Yeah, so we realized that it took us an hour and a half to talk about 10 episodes, so we took a break, and then this is the next day now.
Yeah, the next day. The next day, we did an outfit change, changed our makeup, and now we're back to it.
Refreshed.
Yeah,
so we left off at episode 80 with Apollo outside of the car window, and then now moving on to episode 81.
Yep. I don't even remember what happens to this episode. I read it yesterday.
No, this is the episode where there's a confrontation between Apollo and Hades, and they kind of exchange words, and Persephone seems really frightened. She's shaking like a leaf, and Hades is like, why is she afraid of Apollo?
Right.
And then Hades talks to him because he says, do you want me to talk to him? And so then he goes out there, and he just kind of, Apollo, I just don't like the way he's written because he is like the most dense. He's like denser than a block of lead.
No, he's very socially incompetent, and he's very unrealistically adamant. And I mean, like, he's not an unrepentant rapist. I guess I know why this is here. It's like the fantasy of like two guys fighting over you, but then it's also like your boyfriend is rushing to your rescue, you know? Like that kind of thing. So I understand why it's there, and I understand why, like, you know, it might be like a thing to put in a romance story, but I think Apollo's characterization is just all over the place. I think originally he was like some like frat boy who thought Persephone was lucky to be with him, and I mean, I just keep going back to the fact that he met her and then like assaulted her in the same day, and like it's not like it was like at a party where they were both drunk and he was like, or she got really drunk and he took advantage of that. And then when she said, hey, you assaulted me, he goes, oh, well, you were drunk and asking for it, so, you know, not a big deal, you know?
Yeah.
He assaulted her, and then he wants her to be his girlfriend, which is just like, you know, he never asked her out, he never, like, chased after her for a couple weeks, and then decided to take what he wanted, and then, you know, as, like, an FU to her, you know, like, a lot of guys do that where, like, if they ask you out over and over and you reject them over and over, then they start going, like, oh, you're a slag, you're a whore, I hate you, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's not like he did that and then, like, just took what he wanted from her. It's not like he met her at a party and then assaulted her because she was drunk and, like, and then he just convinces himself and convinces her that she wanted it. It's like really just, again, it's, like, unrealistic where it's, like, again, far be it from me to prescribe how an assaulter should act and how a victim should act, but it's, like, in my experience and from what I understand of the phenomenon, it's, like, usually it's either in circumstances involving intoxication, or it's in circumstances involving like AIDS, like a roofie or something, where the guy's an unrepentant rapist and he knows what he did is rape, but he's a misogynist and he's like, oh, I don't care, you know, women who don't put out, like, she shouldn't have come out with me then, or she shouldn't be drinking with me then. So find some way to blame the woman, or even just like, I don't care, like, women are only good for one thing. So it's like he's kind of like, he wants to date her and he doesn't seem to realize that what he did was assault. But it was clearly assault, and he's never even tried to, like, ask her out or anything.
No, the thing that's strange is during that exchange where he basically forces himself on her, he goes, you've been flirting with me all evening. And then here he says, I've been looking for you all evening. I had something special planned. Didn't you get my messages? Again, we don't get the messages.
No, we never saw the messages.
We never see her, like...
We never saw Hades' message. We never saw Apollo's message, but we saw Hermes' friend request.
Yeah, but could you imagine if she was at Hera's garden and she's feeling tired and she looks at her phone and sees all these messages from Apollo and then says to Hades, can you give me a ride home?
Can you give me a ride home? Yeah, because Apollo would be like, I'm sitting outside your house.
Yeah.
And then she says, can you give me a ride home?
Yeah, like that was one thing.
That would have been a really good way to like have that interaction and then have her like turn on the puppy eyes because she really wants Hades to escort her home for valid reasons.
Yeah. And Hades could be like, whoa, this is, I've never seen her like this before.
And is this why she wanted me to drive her home? Because she knew Apollo would be here waiting for her.
Exactly.
And then Hades would kind of cotton on that way. But, like, this is just, like, again, it's like, oh, yeah, Apollo hasn't been here in, like, how many episodes? He hasn't been here since the 24th. No. He showed up in, like, episode 30-something when Cerberus showed up, right?
Yeah.
So he hasn't been in the comic at this point in, like, 50 episodes.
Yeah, and then...
It's been, like, 50 episodes, and then he finally came up because it's like, oh, yeah, I forgot about Apollo.
Yeah. So she uses her hair to break into his car and take his, Liar.
When she uses her hair to break into his car, does she ever... I don't think she ever uses her hair like this ever again. I don't remember her using her hair powers like this.
Well, so I haven't read the entire series.
I haven't read it in a while, but I don't remember this ever coming up again. I mean, that would have been useful in, like, previous scenes.
It would have been very useful. I would even go so far as to say it would have been very useful if when he was forcing himself.
That's what I was saying. I was gonna say that, but I didn't know if I wanted to go too far.
Like, that's not, like, I don't know if that sounds like victim blaming or something, but it's like if she could do this the entire time and she... Again, it's like the thing where it's like if Cerberus knew she was in trouble and that's why he came to the car, why didn't he do anything when the actual event was taking place? But, you know, anyway, so she breaks into his car and she takes his lyre, but he has this exchange with Hades where he says, Grandpa Winter, I'm not interested in talking to you. I know you created this creepy little scenario where Percy is your intern. I get it. You want to pretend like she gives a shit about you, but she doesn't. It's pathetic. And then she goes, no, you're wrong. I do, as you put it, give a shit about him. He says, it's like you're avoiding me on purpose. Like, it's so dense. But I don't understand, because Apollo's got a point.
Apollo's got a point.
Yeah.
Apollo's 100% got a point, just like Thetis.
Yeah, he has created this creepy little scenario where she's his intern. And it is, you know, creepy.
And it is pathetic.
Yeah, but it seems like all the people who are criticizing
the relationship are the villains.
They're all unrepenting.
They're all evil. They're all evil
people.
to their core. They're irredeemably evil.
Yeah. So that's just interesting. And he never gets to finish that thought because he gets told to go home.
Well, not only that, Hades calls Poseidon.
Yeah.
And Poseidon just shows up, like teleports there. And then Poseidon says, you should have just told me you needed a wingman to go prowling for gals in the mortal realm, which is just like, given what we know of Apollo and Zeus and how they treat mortal girls in the myths, like, what kind of joke is this right here?
It's not a funny joke.
Is that a joke about assaulting mortal girls?
It probably is, yeah.
And then he puts a toga on Apollo and then disappears with him.
Yeah.
And then Hades says, have fun. So,
yeah.
And then Persephone finally gets a monologue about Apollo, but this is like the first monologue that we've seen from Persephone's POV that's like this since the actual assault. And then when she was talking about whether or not she has a crush on Hades, but she never monologued about Hades. She just said, do I like Hades or not? Yeah. But anyway, she's like, in the short time I've known you, all I've done is take from me my peace, my joy, my dignity. One day, I hope I can make you feel as afraid of me as I am of you right now. And it is you who can be the one trembling for words behind a windshield. This time I took something from you, the liar. And then she says, because this is war. But I just want to say really quickly that her internal monologue is like, I just really don't like how every time Persephone has a moment where she's, you know, she has time to herself, we're seeing inside Persephone's head. She has a moment where she is kind of, you see her inner voice, like when she says, maybe I can live on my own. Every time we get a moment like that, she's always with Hades. She's never allowed to be like content or have her own self-possession where she's in a scene by herself, just shown as content and happy and living a life that's her own. You know, like we always get scenes in the context of her with Hades, and I just don't like it.
Yeah.
The implications are just like we see so many scenes of Hades alone. We don't see really many scenes of Persephone monologuing alone without Hades. And when it comes to her wants and desires. Anyway, she says this is war, and she just steals his lyre, which is just like, I guess maybe it's like a mythological thing as to how much the lyre is important to him, but from my perspective, like, stealing the lyre as like a revenge for what he did to her is like, I mean, you didn't go far enough, man.
No, I'm not going to mince words here. I'm going to say it's disappointing because just the entire confrontation with him later, we'll get to that, it's just disappointing because if she has these powers of like spring and nature, the whole thing about nature is that in real life, nature is beautiful, but it can also be terrifying.
It's destructive.
Yeah, it can be very destructive. And so if you wanted to accurately represent how angry and upset she is, it's almost like when you see the destruction that industry has played nature with.
You get more scenes of destructive nature when she sees Hades in the scrubs,
right?
Than you do when she's talking about how much she hates Apollo and how she's gonna get revenge on him.
But you know, like one of the things that I think about symbolically is there's a lot of things where you have industry destroying nature, right? You have deforestation, you have
wildfires.
Yeah, wildfires, skyscrapers. So it's very satisfying to see like buildings be destroyed and nature taking over areas that were once inhabited by humans.
Like life after people.
Yeah, as sort of like a reclamation. And even though you could, destroy, uproot trees, it's still so strong that it'll always come back. It's like the real underdog, right? It's really powerful. Like you look at pictures of Chernobyl after everybody left there, and it looks like very surreal and interesting. And then there's also something scary about going up against the elements and nature and stuff like that. So I don't feel like Persephone's connected with nature at all. Like for me, planting rose cuttings doesn't do it.
Doesn't cut it.
Yeah, doesn't cut it.
Doesn't cut it.
No pun intended. And if she was gonna get back at him because she's so angry, what would have been cooler is if she her hair snakes out of the car like that, and then while Hades and Apollo are talking, they turn around and they see the car destroyed.
I was gonna say destroys car,
Yeah.
like Superman did in
Man of Steel?
Man of Steel, where he's getting like beaten up in a bar, and then the guy goes outside and sees his car like friggin'
Destroyed.
Destroyed.
Yeah, his truck is
his truck is
destroyed.
just like bent up because
Yeah.
Superman like destroyed his truck. I think it would have been better if while Hades and Apollo were arguing, you see the real power coming from Persephone and her wrath, and you see like a tree completely just,
impale the car.
the car.
Where there was no tree, now there's a tree.
Now there's a
impaling
tree
the
and a
car.
bunch of vines wrapping the car up.
And he goes, "Oh my god, my car!" Because we've seen that car more than we've seen his lyre. That's the car they picked him up in at the mall.
Well, not only that, but cars are like traditionally associated with masculinity.
Yeah.
And that would be like a symbolic version of like destroying his manhood.
Yeah, so that would have been cool, as if she destroyed his car and then he was like speechless and he couldn't look her in the eye, and she's like, "What? You have nothing to say? That finally shut you up?"
Yep.
And then Hades is like, "Whoa."
I just feel like we never get to really see Persephone own her anger. And we also, like you said, we don't really get to see her connected to nature or just connected in a way that you would expect to see the goddess of spring connect with nature, apart from like flowers in her hair and just stuff that's really aesthetic, but not stuff that's actually symbolic of the power of nature and its dual-sidedness, where it's like at once both forgiving and providing, and it can be also incredibly inhospitable, harsh, and destructive.
Yeah, because especially since they showed in the archives with the tapes and the fates, the future queen of the underworld, and she looks super tanky and scary on those TV screens.
Yeah, but even then, like, that's the other thing that gets me, is like the more she becomes involved with Hades, the more she just adopts his aesthetic.
Yeah.
Like the future queen of the underworld, she's just wearing black and like a black crown like Hades.
Yeah.
Like she's not wearing like, a crown of thorns or like something that's still associated with nature, but the darker side of nature.
Like dark roses or black dahlia flowers.
Yeah, black dahlias, roses, and thorns, because roses are traditionally a symbol of something that's beautiful but also harsh.
Yeah.
And it's flowers because, it's spring, not winter.
Yeah.
And you could easily go along with that, and that would be perfect as a representation of her. Or you could just go straight up with winter, because the whole thing is when Persephone goes to the underworld is winter. So you could have her wearing like dead branches and twigs and stuff like that. A crown made of thorns and twigs.
Like white birch trees.
Yeah, white birch trees. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
Her dress could be made of fallen leaves or something like that. I mean, you could be really creative with it, or you could just go with roses. Roses are pretty easy. Black roses, black dahlias.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, the nature aspect of Persephone's character is, like, next to nothing.
Yeah.
And then, like, her actual anger and wrath is also next to nothing.
Yeah, because you have that dramatic monologue from her about how angry she is at Apollo, and it's juxtaposed with pictures of Hades bringing her inside.
Yeah, Hades with his back on her, or his hand on her back. Like I said, she's not allowed to own her anger. She's not allowed to own her fury. Even when she's alone, even when she's thinking in her head about something that's purely personal to her. We didn't get pictures of Apollo frightened at her feet, like her fantasizing about getting revenge. We got pictures from a third-party perspective of her and Hades.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, even when we're in Persephone's head, we're not allowed to be in Persephone's head. Like, God forbid she have a character. God forbid she have hopes and dreams that don't revolve around Hades,
Yeah.
And that's just very, profoundly disturbing to me.
It just seems like a missed opportunity.
It's a missed opportunity to make her an interesting character, but it's also disturbing to me that this is the point of view character.
Yeah.
So, we get more from Hades than we do from Persephone.
Yeah.
We get more from Minty than we do from Persephone.
Yeah.
That's why she's a more sympathetic character. Like, I think we have more monologues, more insights into Minty's character and how she feels internally, and we get more negative emotions from Minty, her insecurities, her doubts, her fears, her anger, than we do from Persephone.
For sure. And speaking of Minty, that's where episode 82 picks up, right? Mm-hmm. With Minty and Thetis. Again, pomegranate. What is a pomegranate B series plus? What is that? It's a cell phone?
I think it's a cell phone.
But the pomegranate X was a soda.
Why'd they get a new cell phone?
To send,
to
anonymous
send,
nudes.
yeah, to send anonymous news.
But you don't have to get a new cell phone.
No, you could just
send
download a program or send it from like
a VPN or something.
No, there's like programs where you can set up a Google Voice account.
Yeah, Google Voice.
Yeah, and just send it like that. The other thing I've noticed is that ever since episode 70, but I think even before that, like the opening panel for these new episodes is like really underwhelming.
Yeah.
It's not an establishing shot, it's like a shot of someone's hand.
Yeah.
Or like a shot in this case of like a cell phone. It's just like there's no establishing shot, there's no like, point of interest. It's just like, okay, let's just get on with it. It's very efficient,
It's not even a cell phone, it's a box with no cell phone inside. It's an empty box.
It's an empty box.
Yeah. So Thetis has this harebrained scheme where she's going to send Zeus's nudes to Hera. And the reason why she does that is to get Hera and Zeus to argue with each other, to fight with each other.
Yeah, to break up.
Yeah, I think she is very upset with Minty and Hades being official, and so she wants to kind of sow this discord so that she too can become official with Zeus.
Mm-hmm.
And so then Hades calls Hera, and he tells her, I don't want to hook up with you ever again, or I don't want to, like, smooch with you ever again, to get back at Zeus. I think that's wrong. And it's funny because he does that right after dropping Persephone off at home, after he and Minty got in a fight.
Yeah.
Right? So he's saying, like, maybe you were just trying to make me feel better in your own way. I don't want to be that for you anymore. I can't be that for you anymore. And it's like, you kind of just used Persephone to make yourself feel better as well in your own way, right? And he is not.
Yeah, he just went from Hera to Persephone. Like Hera smooched him, and then he had a moment with Persephone in the garden where he was like perfectly happy to let her kiss him on the cheek and put her paws all over him and stick her fingers in his mouth.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't really like, oh, I've like, like the implication here is like he doesn't want Hera anymore because now he has Persephone, the younger model.
Well, not just that, but he's saying like every time you and Zeus get in a fight, you can't come running to me, right? And it's like, well, every time you and Minty get in a fight, you can't go running to Persephone.
Oh, that's true too.
Like that's the way I was thinking about it. It's like he's saying this like because he's like a good guy, and he's like, no, I can't do that to my brother. And it's like, what about doing that to
No, but
Minty?
not only that, but what about Hera?
Yeah.
Like, Hera's the one who's the rotten deal here. Is divorce not allowed in Olympus?
Yeah, her husband sucks. So then she's got, like, a book where she's keeping track of suitors.
I thought this was so creepy.
Yeah.
She doesn't have Hades' picture here. She has Persephone's picture here. And she has a bunch of dudes that she's planning on hooking Persephone up with. Which is just, like, against her own, no matter whatever Persephone wants, no matter whatever, like... Yeah, it doesn't matter what Persephone wants. It's like, okay, here are the guys that I'm planning on hooking her up with. The goddesses of eternal maidenhood be damned. I don't care if Persephone even wants to do that. She never asked Persephone if she wants to do that. She's just like, oh, it's still pending. It's not official yet. Here are all the guys that I'd like to hook Persephone up with.
Yeah, and it's weird because right after the call with Hades, she goes to herself, you finally outgrown me, and then she deletes the message, and then she pulls the book out and says, okay, Hades will make an honorable suitor for Persephone. Now that he's not interested in me, he passed the test, basically.
Yeah.
So I can write him down in my little
No, she specifically wrote Hades permission to court checkmark.
Because he says, I don't want to be with you
Hades
anymore.
didn't give her permission to do that, to set him up with Persephone.
No.
And Persephone, she doesn't even know Persephone likes Hades.
But how weird is it that this is all framed around, like, timing-wise? It's right after he drops Persephone off at her house, and then he calls her, and then he says, I can't be that for you. And she goes, okay, now he's good for Persephone. Because it's like, it's right after he spent time with Persephone that he realized that he doesn't want to be that shoulder to cry on for Hera, because it's not right. And then she goes, oh, perfect, that means he's suitable for her now. And it's just so convenient how all of it just aligns perfectly with the fact that he defended Persephone from Apollo, and he's a good guy now, he's a good suitor for her now, because... you're cutting all the threads of all the messy relationship things, and it seems like everybody's lives just revolve around Hades and Persephone getting together.
But I don't understand, like, the other thing that's really weird about this is that she is the goddess of marriage, but she didn't even engineer, like, it's not like she was the one who called Persephone over to the house, and so she wasn't, like, actively trying to engineer their relationship earlier. And then, after she puts them down in this book, like, I don't remember Hera coming back in a major way to interfere in their relationship. So, like, you were setting this up as, like, Hera's, like, the matchmaker, like, the ultimate matchmaker.
Yeah.
But she wasn't matchmaking Persephone and Hades by calling Persephone over to her house to deliver the roses conveniently at the same time. And she doesn't really do anything after this either that I remember.
Yeah.
And she certainly doesn't in the next 20 chapters. Like, this doesn't come up in the next 20 chapters. So it's just like, what was the point of doing this except that you made Hera look extremely creepy and presumptuous?
Yeah. I don't know.
She's toxic. But I mean, like, from the perspective of the fans, this makes Hera a good guy because she supports the main OTP.
Yeah, and then that's the only thing that differentiates you from being a good guy and a bad guy. Except the bad guys, even though they have a point, they have like a little sprinkle of evil there anyway, just to make them more bad.
Yeah, they made Minty a domestic abuser.
Yeah.
They made Apollo a friggin' rapist.
Yeah, Thanatos was written out of the story for this portion because...
He hasn't been in the story for like 40 chapters.
Yeah, because there was no way to make him extra evil to put him in bad guy status.
They should have had Minty slap Hades and then Thanatos slap Minty immediately after. Kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
She slaps Hades and Thanatos comes in on stage, right, and like decks her.
Yeah.
That would have been, that would have been a great idea to just like, write that one off as irredeemably evil.
Yeah.
So
yeah. She gets interrupted when she gets texted pictures of Zeus's wiener.
Zeus's swan bill.
It's number no longer in service, sending her pictures of nudes of Zeus. And then he's like, "Oh, you're making something out of nothing." And she gets really angry. And she's like, "If you're going to go cheat, could you be more discreet?" And then he's like, "Why don't we start talking about you for a change?" And then he goes, "You've been off lately. I noticed you haven't been doing your duties. You haven't blessed any marriages in the mortal realm this week." And so she's still upset about the pictures.
But what is her... Like, I don't understand. Like, this should have been on the mirror, by the way, but I don't understand why Hera hasn't been doing her duties. Like, does that matter? Is that something that we're supposed to care about? Or is it something that's like, oh man, I don't know what I should have Zeus be angry about, so I'm just gonna have him angry that she hasn't been doing her duties.
He should have had Zeus be angry that she went and was macking on Hades.
Yeah.
Like, that's the easiest thing to be mad about.
Because now you're just introducing more plots that it's like, the fact that Hera isn't doing her duties, like...
That's a big deal, right?
It's a big deal. Or you could have just been the alcoholism.
Yeah.
Zeus could have been like, let's talk about you. You're friggin' drunk, you know?
Yeah, you're getting our daughter to make you cocktails.
Yeah, friggin' appletinis at like 7 in the morning, you know?
Exactly.
Like, I mean, you didn't have to bring up this whole other plot of Hera not doing her marriage duties, because that's another plot. Like, having somebody point out something that's that big, that's another plot that it's like you're introducing that and it doesn't get resolved. You could have just tied up the alcoholism thing, made that a little bit stronger, and gone like, let's talk about you. You're a friggin' alcoholic, you know?
Exactly. And he says, "You've been sneaking around all week, a new obsession with Apollo based off of feeling." And she goes, "Why aren't you listening to me?" And he goes, "If Persephone wanted your help, she would ask. Zeus has a point." Again, Zeus has a point. But we don't like Zeus because he's a cheater.
No, he gaslights her by saying you're acting crazy, but he basically just says the same thing that Hades said to Minty.
Yeah.
But with Hades, it was unsaid. You know, you're jealous.
Yeah.
You're just jealous. You know, you're just jealous of Persephone.
Yeah.
Do you want her? I want you. Doesn't answer the question, just paints Minty as irrationally jealous.
Yeah.
Zeus does the same thing to Hera. I guess Hades learned it from Zeus.
Right, but I mean, he's still got a point. Like, if Persephone wanted her help, she would ask for it. And then Ares shows up.
Why does Ares just show up?
Because, well, so the first time Ares was mentioned is in that little book. This is the first time I noticed it. In that little book of potential suitors for Persephone,
She put
Ares with 3 question marks, because I think she wanted to pad out the potential suitors list, but she's like, okay, let's see, what do we got here? Oh.
No, she should have put everyone on there. She should have put Hermes. She
did have Hermes.
Oh, she did?
Yeah, Hermes is on there, but...
Oh, let me see. I'm gonna go back. She put, Hephaestus, Hermes, Ares, crossed off Apollo. Yeah. She should have put her classmate, Tori.
Tori. Thanatos wasn't on there.
That's because Thanatos doesn't like her.
Yeah, well... She doesn't like Apollo, so why was Apollo on there?
She put Apollo down there originally, but now she thinks Apollo is the guy who assaulted her.
Yeah,
based on nothing. she doesn't know. She has no reason to think that Apollo was the one who did it. In fact, like, if I were her, I would think it was Hades.
Yeah, I would think it was Hades.
I would think it was Hades because Hades is, like, weirdly obsessed with her.
How come Eros isn't on there?
Because Eros is already with Psyche, even though nobody knows that. Or do they know that? Because Zeus was gonna get him in trouble for that, but then his mom bailed him out.
Yeah, but still, why wouldn't he be on there for a potential suitor?
Because he's gay?
I don't know. And so Ares, that was the first mention of Ares. And then,
No, they mentioned Ares in, like, the chapter where she goes to visit Aphrodite. They talk about dad hasn't been home in a while.
Yeah, but this is, like, you know, the first time it's Ares listed as a potential suitor for Persephone, and then he comes right into the chapter right after that.
Yeah, because it's being written as it's being drawn.
Yeah.
There's no overarching plan here.
Yeah.
And then he shows up for, like, 10 episodes, and then he leaves again.
Yeah.
Just like everything else, you know? Show up for 10 episodes, and then leaves for 30 episodes.
So now we're on episode 83, which starts with a previously on that shows the eyeball.
That shows the events of episode, like, 35.
Yeah.
And this is episode 83, just to keep count of when these plots were last introduced and when they're resolved. This is literally a year later.
Yeah.
A year later, in real life.
Yeah, we get the previously on, and then we cut to a dream sequence that you don't realize is a dream sequence at first. But it's Persephone and Demeter fixes her some breakfast, and then she goes, I'll add something extra since you're eating for two now. And then you have, like, horror visual imagery of Persephone looking at her stomach, and she realizes she's pregnant, and then she wakes up, and it was a nightmare. So then she goes to the bathroom to check her stomach.
I just want to say that like, if you wanted to have, like, a pregnancy scare horror visual, there would have been a much more interesting way of doing that. Like, you could have had her, like, stuffing her face, and then Demeter could be like, here, have some more food, you know, after all, now you're eating for two. And then Persephone, like, you know, like, you have, like, the shock panel, the shocked reaction, and then you have her hand trembling as she reaches towards her stomach, and then she touches her stomach, and then you have a panel from a downward angle.
Yeah, downward angle.
Under her stomach,
yeah.
And then you show her, like, terrified face.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was just, like, such a wasted opportunity, because I'm personally, like, extremely scared of pregnancy.
Yeah.
And, like, I would not just show it as, like, such a blasé reveal, where it's just, like, again, navel up, head-on shot. Like, the composition is getting pretty bad in these chapters. You know, pretty much after episode 70, it's kind of just been, like, now it's just navel up, face on shots. Pretty much every single panel is just navel up, head on shots.
Yeah.
And it's like the composition problems are already plaguing the majority of these episodes.
Yeah.
So that would have been an easy fix because composition matters. You could alter the composition and not only make the scene more efficient, but also make it more effective.
Yeah.
In conveying the message you want to convey. Like what I just laid out would have been less overall panels and less filler, and it would have conveyed the message and the horror element much more strongly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't do that. But.
Yeah, and then real quick, this panel where she's looking at her stomach in the mirror. So I know a lot of people like this panel because it shows...
Oh, stretch marks?
Yeah, stretch marks, but that's like such a low bar, honestly.
No, you shouldn't like the panel because it shows stretch marks, because who cares if it's showing stretch marks? The fact is that she's shaped like a Coke bottle. And the focus of this panel, when the character is scared... Okay, so let's think about the context here. The main character is scared that she might be pregnant. She's a 19-year-old girl, never been in a real relationship before. As far as we know that this is her first time. And it was with a guy who literally assaulted her. Yeah. She wakes up after a terrifying dream that she might be pregnant. And what does the camera focus on? Does it focus on her stomach? And, like, her hand, you know, brushing over her stomach, and then her going, oh my god, thank you, you know, oh, relief, it's not real, or, like, her hand brushing over her stomach and going, like, you know, am I pregnant? Like, I'm so scared. Yeah. No, the camera focuses on her butt. You know, this is, like, this shouldn't be praised just because she has stretch marks, because it's literally a Michael Bay thing to do. This is, like, Michael Bay levels of cinematography. Yeah. It's like, okay, let's have an establishing shot where the camera crawls right up Rosie Huntington-Whiteley's butt. Yeah. Let's have an establishing shot where we have a 360-degree pan of Megan Fox detailing a motorcycle in, like, the most pin-up way possible. That's what this is. Like, I don't care if she has stretch marks. This is meant to be, like, an exploitative, gratuitous shot of the main female character who's only 19 in a situation where the main character's terrified, anxious, scared, but the person who's operating the camera is going like, okay, honey, aim those cheeks to the camera. Put that fat butt right in the middle of the lens. I don't care how scared you are that you might be pregnant.
Yeah.
We gotta get those cakes on camera. Like, it's so horrible. Like, we don't even see her face except in the mirror. It's so dehumanizing. It's supposed to be about how the character is feeling. And it's like a continuation of the thing where I'm like, I don't know why there's so much distance between the reader and Persephone. There's so much distance. We never see inside her head, or very rarely do we see inside her head. And most of the framing of Persephone is inherently exploitative. Yeah. It's not in a way, and it's not in a way that's knowingly, like, it's not like the character herself chooses to dress sexy. The whole thing about Persephone is that she doesn't know how sexy she is, so it just feels really creepy. Because the character herself is almost like not even consenting to being portrayed in this matter. It's very voyeuristic.
Extremely voyeuristic.
It's extremely voyeuristic.
And another thing I'll say is that in previous scenes with other characters, there's like, let's see here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panels. And in scenes with other characters, like, juxtapose the scene with Minthy walking into the office to confront Hades. While she was walking in, she had little bits of inner monologue going through so you could understand what she was thinking. Here, she could have woken up and said, oh, thank God, it was just a nightmare.
When is my last period?
Yeah, but still, like, that was so scary. Stupid Apollo, like, he's putting me through all this stuff. Like, he's not even here, and I'm still terrified. And then she goes, okay. And then she says, phew, what a terrible dream. And then she looks off to the side, and then she goes, when was my last period?
But you know what the other hilarious thing is? It's not hilarious. It's just like, did you forget the timeline of your own story? Because I think this is, like, Saturday, Sunday. Because Friday was the night that Hades went to Hera's house. This is the next day. This is Saturday. Apollo assaulted her on Monday. So why would Persephone be scared that she missed her period when it's been less than a week?
Yeah, that's not the timeline.
That doesn't make any sense.
No.
Unless Persephone's that naive where she thinks that she can get retroactively impregnated.
Well, not just that, but even if you were going to take a pregnancy test, you would have to wait. I think the guideline says, let's see.
You have to wait. You have to, like, in order for it to be accurate, you have to be, like, a week or 2 weeks late.
Not only that, but they say you can carry out most pregnancy tests from the first day of a missed period, and if you don't know when your next period is due, do the test at least 21 days after you last had unprotected sex, because it takes a while for those hormones to show up in your brain.
You can take it the first day you miss a period, but it won't be very accurate.
No.
It's more accurate the longer it is after you've missed your period. Yeah. So, like, a week after you've missed your period is when it's more accurate. Sometimes you can get false positives or false negatives if it's just the day after you missed your period. Yeah. So, regardless, like, unless her period was supposed to come the day she was assaulted, I don't think it's been long enough for her to be like, when was my last period? Yeah. And then she calls herself an idiot and says so much has happened that she hasn't been able to keep track. A lot has happened in a very short amount of time. Yeah. Hasn't it? To be fair. Yeah. I guess I should be due for one around this time. I've never had to think about this sort of thing before. I mean, even though this is a Persephone-focused chapter, it's like you said, we get a lot less internal monologuing from her than we do from Minthy or Hades. Like, in a Hades-centric or a Minthy-centric chapter, we get a monologue, like a line of thought, pretty much between every panel. Yeah, I just think, again, there's nothing going on here. No, but her saying I've never had to think about this sort of thing before, that's like, oh crap, did I file my homestead exemption? Oh, I've never had to think about this sort of thing before because I'm a new homeowner. And then it cuts from that to her cutting up the lyre. No, it cuts to that from her angry face. Yeah. But it's not like, oh my god, this is all because of that Apollo. You never get the actual anger. You just show her angry face. And then even when she's cutting the lyre, it's from the back of her head. You never see her face. No. You never see her actual angry expression. You cut to her angry eyes, drops the book, unwraps the lyre, takes out a pair of scissors from the back. You see her back. You don't see her face, grits her teeth, but it's just a close-up of her mouth, and there's, again, the effort is put into making sure the lips are super glossy and full. There's not a single, like, when you're frowning, no wrinkles. When you're frowning or gritting your teeth, you get these lines around your face, you know? There's nothing like that. No. There's nothing like that. Even in Naruto, when Sakura was angry, you would get, like, lines around her eyes.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that. When she cuts the lyre, you don't see her face, you just see her profile, and then the hair is covering her eyes.
But it's such a lame, like, limp cut as well. Like, again, no downward shot of her slashing the lyre with a pair of scissors, her face, the lyre in the foreground, her in the background.
Dude, you
angry.
could have done like a Death Note thing where even when Light was writing in the Death Note, they managed to make it look super menacing and violent. Yeah. And he was just writing a name in a book, but the way that they framed it, it managed to look extremely violent. Yeah. And the other thing is, like, again, I don't know if it's a mythology thing or what, but I don't know the significance of the lyre. For me, if somebody freaking assaulted me, I wouldn't just take their guitar and, like, cut a string on their guitar and be like, oh yeah, that's compensation for what he did to me. You know, no. Like, if the lyre is supposed to be really important to Apollo, if it's supposed to be part of his powers, then set that up. You know, set it up so that it's like, oh yeah, Apollo without his lyre is like a fish without water. He can't live without it. He's obsessed with the thing. The lyre had never even come into the story until she stole it from his car. We didn't even see him stringing the lyre. We've never seen him use the lyre, ever. No. It's not like he, like, assaulted her and then, like, played the lyre after he was done, and then he was like, oh man, this lyre is so sweet. If anything ever happened to it, you know, I'd be really upset.
Again, that's why the car would have been perfect.
We've seen more of the car than we have of the lyre.
He looked really proud of the car. He was leaning against it like a cool guy.
Yeah, exactly. It's a symbol of his masculine pride.
Yeah.
It's a much more appropriate, like, symbol of destruction and revenge, or it's a much more appropriate object on which to wreak havoc than the lyre, which was literally, again, set up in the episode where it was actually stolen and then destroyed.
Yeah, and the panel of the string getting snapped is so, like, just head on, hand down here, no sort of composition that adds any sort of weight to that, and then you show her sweaty and shaking,
but from the side, again, a very, very underwhelming composition.
You're telling me that just cutting that, she was, like, so worked up? I didn't get any of that.
No, it's because she's a pure cinnamon roll, and pure cinnamon rolls can't feel anger. She's literally, at this point, she's literally Giselle from Enchanted.
Oh, sometimes you make me so...
I make you so what?
You make me so... angry! I'm angry.
Are you alright?
I'm angry.
I feel angry!
Oh, man.
You know? She's got the emotional range of a gerbil.
So then she hides the lyre in a box that is labeled books, which was not set up earlier in the scene.
No, it was not earlier. It was not in the room, in the scene at all.
Yeah.
When she was, like, walking to her bed, it wasn't there. And it's like, why didn't you just put it there?
And then she says, I wonder it will take for him to notice it's missing. And then she looks out the window, and she sees that his car is still there, but she doesn't see him. And then she says, this is not how I wanted to spend my Saturday. Like, what's the through line here? I've never had to think about this sort of thing before. She's talking about it like it's just an annoying inconvenience. And then she goes, this is not how I wanted to spend my Saturday. Oh, nothing like, this is horrible. He needs to pay for what he did. I need to tell somebody he can't be getting away with this. How dare he? Who does he think he is? And now because of him, I'm going to have to go.
Dude, Eros figured this out in, like, episode 70, and Eros did nothing. Nothing happened. Nobody's doing anything. Persephone is acting like she basically just got, like, rudely, like, pushed out of the way, and she doesn't let, oh man, that Apollo, he and I just don't get along. You know, instead of, like, what actually happened to her, where she got actually, like, friggin' violated.
And her life could be ruined.
And her life could be ruined because she could be kicked out of her scholarship. Apollo could he took pictures of her.
Yeah.
He could just call her a slag, publish. If I were Persephone, I'd be worried about being kicked out of my scholarship. I would be worried that he would publish those photos in the paparazzi, because she's already been published in the paparazzi as, like, a slag.
Yeah.
Hades', like, new side piece.
Yeah.
I would be worried that he would publish those photos. I would be upset that maybe nobody will believe me if I tell them what happened.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll think that I was asking for it, you know? Like, this is just, like, it's so underwhelming. It's, like, the emotional response to what happened to her. Again, it's like she still doesn't fully appreciate what happened to her.
No.
That's what it feels like. It feels like Eros told her, dude, that was assault. And she's like, oh, okay, well, me and Apollo, you know, he's just a bad guy. We just don't get along.
Yeah, I just don't like him.
I just don't like him.
Yeah.
This is not how I want to spend my Saturday. Instead of like, dude, the friggin' rapist is hanging around my house. Where's the police? I need to get a restraining order, you know?
Exactly. So then she goes to the clinic with a fake name, and she takes a seat, and she says, I think I might be pregnant. And so then they go through a little bit of a history, and she says she has no partner. She talks about her age. She doesn't smoke. She's a light drinker.
This entire sequence with the doctor is very pointless.
It is.
It doesn't add anything to the story. It doesn't add anything to her trauma. Like, it doesn't have anything to say about, like, you know, Persephone being re-traumatized. You know, like, there is something to say about, like, if you... Another reason that a lot of victims don't report is because they're scared of being re-traumatized.
Yeah.
With the evidence collection process, and then, like, doctors and police officers asking invasive questions, like male doctors and police officers, or not even male doctors, but, like, male doctors obviously being more, something that you want to avoid, or being more kind of, like, scary as a victim of rape, having them investigate you and probe your body in very dehumanizing ways. But when she goes to the OBGYN, you know what I felt like? I felt like Rachel had just recently been to the OBGYN, and she was like, oh yeah, this would make a great plot for my comic, and then it decided to include it, and she's like, you know, I hate going to the OBGYN, they're very dehumanizing, you know, it's a very wham bam thank you ma'am kind of deal, and it's like, you didn't think about, like, somebody who had just been victimized, like, 5 days ago, going to a male doctor, getting probed down there. And I don't think she's ever been to the OBGYN, because she acts like she's never done it before.
Yeah. I mean,
and it's pretty scary the first time you go anyway.
Yeah.
And having just been freaking victimized, like, imagine how bad that experience would be.
Right.
It was more like, oh yeah, OBGYN, you know, it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
You know, as somebody who's been to the OBGYN for the last 10 years, yeah, I don't like going to the OBGYN.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. Like, you really did something there.
No, I mean, it's weird because she's thinking when he hands her the cup, if he's going to ask me to pee in a cup, the least he could do is make eye contact with me. Who thinks that when they're handed a cup to pee in?
Again, it's just like, yeah, it's vaguely unpleasant to go to the OBGYN because most doctors are overworked and don't have time for their patients. But I don't think that would be your major gripe if you've just been friggin' victimized and you have no idea what's going on and you're scared of losing control of your body and, like, scared that the doctor is gonna know. You know what? I'd be like, will the doctor know what happened to me?
Exactly.
Will he know what happened to me? You know, will he be able to tell? Because she doesn't know. She's very naive.
Yeah.
You know? I'm so ashamed that this happened to me. All of this stuff. Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah, and so they take a swab and then they do a test, and he says, well, the good news is you're not pregnant, but I don't know how long it takes to get results. I know you have the instant, like, sticks that you can get at the drugstore and stuff like that. I'm not sure.
I think he just put a stick in her urine.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like he did.
Yeah, and so then very ham-fisted, he says, next time be more careful, you need to be responsible for your own body.
That's never happened to me.
I don't think OBGYNs say that's very cartoon Saturday morning billing.
Exactly.
Dialogue.
That's never happened to me at the OBGYN. And I'm pretty sure they do the test when they take your urine sample. They tell you whether or not you're pregnant, and they do STIs.
Yeah.
But it's, like, not instant. It takes, like, a couple days for the results to come back. And then they, like, usually I just get a call on the phone, and they say, like, oh, you're clean and you're not pregnant, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And then...
What an unsettling and invasive experience. What an understatement for somebody who just got victimized, like, 5 days ago.
Not only that, but she had to say that. She had to say that because...
because in the panel, she's just looking off like,
Yeah, like, I don't get the fact that she feels unsettled and invaded.
There's nothing in her expression that says she feels unsettled or invaded. And it's just like she's remarking on the weather, like, oh, sucks that it's raining, you know?
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. Oh, yeah, oh, it's raining, what a shame.
Yeah, like, could you imagine if she lied down and the doctor unintentionally said something that was, like, the same as what Apollo said? Like, if Apollo said, just relax, and then he goes, just relax. And then she has a flashback, and then she goes, I don't think I can do this. And the doctor says, well, it's not going to take too long. Just calm down. And then he goes, hey, is everything okay? Like, did something happen to you? And then she goes, I don't want to talk about it. And he goes, okay, well, just be careful next time. And then, like, he says, just be careful next time. No, you need to be responsible for your own body. And he thinks he's being helpful by saying, just be careful next time. And then she thinks to herself, I was being careful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, what are you talking about? You think I wasn't being careful? Of course I'm careful. You know, like, this thing doesn't happen to me all the time. And she feels very defensive about it. And then she leaves, and then she gets like really worked up, and the doctor's like, okay, well, see you later. And then she's like,
I think you could have just, unless it was going to contribute to the narrative or contribute to a character arc related to the trauma that she experienced, you could have just, skipped over it.
Yeah.
And had her like take show her throwing away a pregnancy test and being like, I hate that I have to do this because of what happened to me. I've never had to do this before. I've never had to think about this before. You didn't have to show her going to the OBGYN because, like I said, it just felt like a total gee whiz.
Yeah.
Like,
Could you imagine if she was at work, like the internship, and then she goes to Minthy, and Minthy's still bullying her at this point, and she goes, Minthy, so you and Hades are in a relationship. And she goes, yeah, what about it? And she goes, well, do you ever, like, take, like, pregnancy tests and stuff? And then Minthy's like, what? And she's like, I don't know which one to get, because I don't know, I've been feeling kind of sick lately.
No, you know what you could have done to keep the paparazzi theme going and to make Persephone feel very, like, under a microscope and have the tension ratcheting up, where she feels like, cornered and there's no way to turn. She has no one to talk to. Don't have her go to the clinic, because have the paparazzi be around her house constantly as, like, Hades' fling.
Yeah.
And then, so don't have her go to the clinic. Don't have Hades take out the paparazzi's eye, obviously, so that the paparazzi keeps showing up. Because that would have been a very interesting mechanic.
Yeah.
And that would have added some stakes to the story. So have the paparazzi constantly following Persephone everywhere, because this is literally 5 days or 6 days after she met Hades.
Yeah.
She's still an interesting item of interest,
Yeah.
And she just started working at Hades' Underworld Corp, so they could be like, did he just give a job to his sugar baby? Preferential treatment, ? So instead of finding out from Thetis that the Underworld internship doesn't even start until 2 months later, you find that out from the gossip rags.
Exactly.
Persephone opens up a gossip rag, and she becomes, like, really hyper-conscious of how she is portrayed in the media, and then she sees that the internship doesn't start for 2 months, and she's like, what the heck is going on?
Exactly.
Well, not only that, and then you could have, so that you have the paparazzi staking out her house, so she doesn't feel comfortable going to the doctor, she doesn't feel comfortable getting a pregnancy test.
No way.
So she has to turn to Thetis or Minthy if they're bullying her, and she's like, do you have a pregnancy test? I really need to take one. And then Thetis or Minthy are like, what happened to you? You're not with Hades.
No.
I've been, like, I put a GPS tracker in Hades', like, vein,
Yeah.
He's not seeing you,
Exactly.
So what happened to this girl? She's not in a relationship. She's not the type to sleep around.
Yeah, and Minthy,
so what's going on
Minthy
here?
could be like, hey, I think we should tell somebody about this. Like, this is really messed
I
up.
think instead of Hera getting a vision and, like, because that goes nowhere.
Yeah.
I think it would have been better if Thetis, Minthy, or Thanatos was kind of putting together the pieces about what happened to Persephone. That would make it more interesting, too, because they're, like, enemies. Yeah. And so they start feeling bad for her, and, like, one of them has to help her out. I think, in general, there's just way too many characters. Yeah. So I think you could have cut Hera out, or just made her, a background character. Cut out Eros. Yeah. Because he's, like, pointless. I don't like his character. Yeah. I cut out Aphrodite, like, or make her a background character. She could just be the impetus for them getting together, because she tries to get revenge on Persephone at the party for Ares liking her. Yeah. And then just have, like, the Thetis, Minthy, and Thanatos drama, and then have one of them, like, slowly become her friend, and then, like, having to help out this poor kid who's clearly under very dire circumstances, and meanwhile she's cracking from all the pressure. Exactly. Like, that would have been so much more interesting. And then, like, again, that would also make Hades more sympathetic towards her too. Exactly. Like, she's a damsel in distress. Exactly. Like, all of that just would have been way more interesting. Or you could have just made Artemis more of a friend. Because she's barely in the story. Yeah,
Artemis is barely there. And, I mean, you could have had, with the Thetis, Minthy, Thanatos thing, they could have put the pieces together about Apollo, and then you have Thetis trying to seduce Apollo. She gets a handle of his phone. She finds out he took these pictures of her, and she's like, oh my god, you guys, what are we gonna do? Like, this is really serious, right?
Or Thetis could if you want to make Thetis evil, Thetis could be the one who tries to sell them to the paparazzi.
Yeah, she could take them and not tell Minthy and Thanatos about them.
And I think they should just publish them in the paparazzi. Because in order to make your story interesting, you just need to torture your characters. Yeah. So I think they should publish those photos in the paparazzi. Yeah. And then if Persephone, again, if we go back to the first episode, if Persephone was, like, cut off from Demeter's fortune, and she was trying to make it on her own, and she had to have the Goddesses of Eternal Maidenhood scholarship in order to pay her way through school, then she would be totally screwed and really scared of losing it. Because here it's like, I don't know why she's scared of losing it.
Yeah. No, she says she doesn't want it. She can pay it back with her internship
She
money.
says she doesn't want it, but then she's, like, scared of saying no. Yeah. Like, why doesn't she just leave the scholarship? She doesn't need to be in it. No. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So,
like, there's no stakes. If she leaves the scholarship, there's nothing that she really loses. Yeah. So
then right after leaving the clinic and saying that was an invasive and unpleasant experience, she looks at the pomegranate X series laptop, which is not the same as the pomegranate X series soda that's in the vending
Or the
machines.
pomegranate B series phone.
No, it's not the same thing. And so she's looking at the pomegranate X series in new colors, and then she's got her coin purse, and she's making this goofy expression right after she had to go experience being, like, touched in a way that was
That would be
uncomfortable.
traumatic for a victim of
Really
assault.
traumatizing.
Yeah.
She's got these shiny cartoon eyes at the pomegranate X series. And then no establishing shot, we just cut to Artemis in workout gear saying, what's that? And she's got a new laptop that has ants coming out it, and it's like taped, and she went dumpster diving right after she came out of that clinic and felt very dehumanized. She went and dumpster dived
Yep.
for a laptop. And
Dude, we spent less time on Persephone getting dehumanized and having a pregnancy scare than we did on Hades getting, like, stood up by Minty.
could you imagine if right after Hades got slapped by Minty, he went out and said, well, that was a dehumanizing experience, and then he made shiny eyes over seeing a laptop,
Or a dog.
and then he went dumpster diving? Yeah, like,
Dude, Hades' trauma is treated so much more seriously than Persephone's trauma.
Yeah,
And his trauma is like 2,000 years old in some cases.
exactly.
And it's like, what the F? Like, get over it, dude.
Like
you
being
know?
told you look like your dad, the worst tyrant ever, and he's like emo about that for like an entire chapter.
Meanwhile, Persephone has this friggin' pregnancy scare from a guy who literally assaulted her 5 days ago, and it lasts for like 10 panels.
Yeah, she goes dumpster diving for a laptop, and then she invites all her classmates to a study group on Monday. And then we cut to the guy who's missing his eye, and the green guy, Tori, who's his roommate, is sitting in the corner
of his hospital room.
of his hospital room, and that's why they had the flashback of, hey, remember this guy getting his eye plucked out
50 chapters ago.
50 chapters ago, because the implication is that this guy who she invited to her study group on Monday is not going to go because that guy got his eye plucked out. So that's what they're setting up here. So then we cut to episode 84, which starts with Hades saying, sometimes I wish I were a dog. And he's
You already
washing-
are a dog, Hades. Don't worry.
He's washing his dog in the tub with a big brush. And then we get this awesome panel of him, his face.
He looks like a VeggieTale.
Yeah, he looks like the cucumber from VeggieTales. And Zeus is talking to him about brunch. And then he says, I don't want to do brunch, but then Zeus and Poseidon show up anyway. So then they have their brotherly brunch, and then it turns out that Ares is home.
The last time they had brunch was like in episode 20 something, 17 to 20 something,
Yeah, I think so.
and this is episode 84. So, you know, it's been a week in real life, but it's been almost 2 years. Or it's been a week in the comic, but it's been almost 2 years in real life.
Yeah.
And Zeus shows up. I wonder why they're not at the strip club anymore.
He goes, how did things go with Persephone last night? And he goes, good, no thanks to you, traitor. He goes, oh, calm down, I did you a huge favor. I turned you into a tasty slice of forbidden fruit. So they're just basically bantering.
Why is he forbidden? How did Zeus turn him into forbidden fruit? How?
I don't know.
No, I mean, because all that happened was that they showed up at Hera's house, and then they went to the garden together.
Yeah.
But Zeus did nothing.
He shined the flashlight on them and told them to get out of the garden, actually.
Yeah, but how is that turning hate? He was already forbidden to Persephone because he's in a freaking relationship.
Yeah.
Not that she acts like it. I mean, not that that's gonna stop her.
Yeah. So it's weird because they're all talking about Persephone, and Hades is saying, you know, I'm still with Minty, Persephone's only 19, I'm not sure how I feel about that, I'm still processing stuff with Minty. But the thing that's interesting is that, why wouldn't he say, guys, it was so weird, Apollo showed up outside of Persephone's house last night, and then Zeus would be like, you know, Hera was saying something about Apollo.
Dude, why isn't Zeus talking about the fact that his marriage is falling apart and Hera's an alcoholic? Like, if I was in that situation, I'd be like, shut the F up, Hades. Nobody cares about your 19-year-old pedo infatuation.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I've got real problems here. I don't want to talk about yours. I don't want to talk about how you can get Persephone to like you, Humbert. You know? Like, what the F?
Yeah.
Everyone's just like, oh yeah, Hades, tell me how it's going with Persephone.
Yeah, and then Zeus says, why don't you just make her your bride? And he goes, I know it's a little old-fashioned, she still might be upset in the beginning, but she'd get used to it.
No, before that, Poseidon says, are you sure you're not having an emotional affair? That can be equally, if not more damaging than an affair based on physical intimacy.
And then he says, look, this pancake is in the shape of a kitty cat, right
No, but
afterwards.
Poseidon has a point.
Yeah.
And then they immediately undercut that with a lame joke about cat pancakes.
Yeah.
And then Hades says, I don't know how I feel about that because Persephone's only 19.
Yeah, but he also says how much flirting is necessary to constitute an emotional affair.
Dude, you're already, like, imagining being with her. You've already had, like, 10 panels of you internally moaning.
Not only that, but I think if we saw Minthy doing the stuff that Hades is doing
To
Persephone,
Thanatos?
yeah, Persephone to Thanatos, right? I don't think the audience would be cool with that. Because
She showed up in a closet with Thanatos and told him that she doesn't want to be in a relationship with him anymore, and people call her a cheater.
yeah,
Because she was screwing around with Thanatos and she explicitly says that was before me and Hades were exclusive.
yeah,
And she cuts it off the second they become exclusive, and people still call her a cheater.
yeah.
People call her a cheating slag.
I think it would be worse.
She's not a cheater. They weren't in a real relationship.
No, if she had like a mug with his like lip stain on it or something. That
Thanatos,
Yeah.
she had hairs from his man bun.
Yeah, if she had hairs from his man bun or like one of his scrunchies. and
Yeah,
his
one of his
more,
scrunchies.
That would probably hurt Hades more, right? I don't think Hades would care because he was prepared to like.
Proposed to Mindy.
No, he was prepared to have sex with Persephone in the kitchen.
In the in like the third episode.
So I don't think he would care.
So I think you've already gone past the boundaries of emotional affair, dude. You were ready to throw down with her
Yeah.
in like the third episode.
Yeah.
The third episode when you barely just met her.
And you were gonna propose to Minthy, and you're just like.
Yeah, you were gonna propose to Minty and she didn't show up to the party that you were gonna propose to her at, and then Persephone comes along and you're like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what the F?
So I don't think he would care, honestly. But yeah, so after that exchange, though, Zeus says the controversial thing about making her your bride. And then he goes, but isn't she a goddess of the eternal maidenhood? It's forbidden. Again.
It's not about whether or not Persephone would actually consent to that. It's whether or not the other people who claim ownership to her would allow that to happen.
Yeah, and so then Zeus says she's a candidate, so she hasn't done all the official mumbo-jumbo as of yet. I don't really know what the terms and conditions are for that scholarship. It's very vague and nebulous, but it's also a big obstacle.
It's a big obstacle, and it just, like, whatever is convenient for the story, that's what it is. But also, like, why would that be the first thing you think of? Why not, like, I can't do that because that's rape, Zeus?
Yeah, no, I mean, they just had that conversation in the car, like, being with somebody means...
sticking up for them and being there.
Being there for them, right?
Yeah.
And then he's like, yeah, that's how things should be. You see things how they could be or something, right? Like,
yeah.
All of that just bounced off his dome. Like, he didn't think about... He didn't absorb any of that stuff. It's because of the scholarship.
No, first it's a scholarship, and then he has a panel where he does a big thunk. And then he's like, wait, I want her to love me. I don't want her to be my wife against her will. Why wasn't that your first thought? Why did you have to think about that? He was like, wait a minute, let me think about this.
And then Zeus says, but what good is her love to you if she joins the goddesses of eternal maidenhood? What does that mean? What good is her love to you?
Is it like a binding contract that you can never renege?
Because, like, what happens when you get a job? And a house, and you have your own money?
No, like, Artemis is still a goddess of eternal maidenhood. And so is Athena and Hestia.
But what's the benefit? It gives you a scholarship, but then what other benefits does it give?
I don't know.
It's
It's very vague. It's extremely vague.
It's like when you have a scholarship for school. Let's say you write an essay.
No, let's
college.
say you're in on a football scholarship. You don't have to keep being a football player till the age of 60.
Guys, I gotta clock out. I gotta go play football.
They own me.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't make any sense why she couldn't just use the money for her scholarship and then, like, peace out.
Yeah.
Like, you can never leave once you're a goddess of eternal maidenhood. Artemis could never leave. I don't get it. I literally don't get
What
it.
does Artemis even do all day?
That's another question. What does she do all day?
She shows up in her little athletic
She
clothes.
baked a cake. She talked to the cat. She was shooting arrows.
No men allowed inside the house.
Like, what do the gods in general do when they're not, like, talking about Hades and Persephone?
Drinking.
Like, do they have jobs? Zeus has an office. What does he do as his job?
Hera's duties.
What are her duties?
Blessing marriages.
What does that entail?
I don't know. But it's all very important.
Like, Hades barely works.
Yeah.
Like, he has an office and he's the CEO of the underworld, but he does nothing.
Yeah. So, then we actually have the time skip where it cuts to the next day. So.
Oh, dude, that was the first time. So this is Monday.
Yes. So she goes, oh, nobody's here yet. I must be a little early. And it's Persephone in the library waiting for her study session. And...
Wait a minute. She said, this is not how I want to spend my Saturday.
Yeah.
When Apollo's car was still there.
Yeah.
But then she goes to the clinic. So why was Apollo's car still there? They never returned back to that.
Poseidon came back. We don't know what happened to Apollo.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, this is not how I want to spend my Saturday, she said after looking at Apollo's car. But then she just goes to the clinic.
Yeah.
What does Apollo's car have to do with Saturday? Like, I thought it would be, like, I was thinking that that would be, like, the flapjack scene, or, like, the crepe scene, where Apollo's, like, serving up crepes.
Yeah.
I thought that was the same day.
No.
So she sees his car, and she goes, this is not how I want to spend my Saturday. I forgot that there was a time skip till Monday.
Yeah.
Wait. When they show up for brunch, is that already the next day?
Sunday?
Yeah, is that Sunday?
No, it just starts with him watching his dog. They don't tell you what day it is.
It must be Sunday, because they talk about Sunday brunch.
Yeah.
Earlier in the comic.
Yeah.
So we just don't see Persephone for a day.
Yeah.
And then Sunday we go to Hades.
Yeah.
And then on Monday, Persephone's at school.
Yeah.
So what was the point of showing Apollo's car? Because if you say, this is not how I want to spend my Saturday, after looking at Apollo's car, what was the point of that? It was just a wasted panel. Like I'm saying, like, it's being written as it's being drawn, because otherwise, why wouldn't you just cut that out?
Yeah, I guess the logic is that his car is still here, and then she goes, well, he's not here, so I'm gonna go to the clinic. I guess the
Dude,
logic
I
is
thought the car was there because that was the same day he was serving up crepes.
No.
That's
You were wrong. You
just
were mistaken.
cut it out. Just cut it out of the episode.
Cut it out!
It adds nothing. It's just confusing.
It is confusing.
It's confusing. It makes me think that this is all one day. I'm so confused.
Yeah.
Okay, so cut to Monday. The first time we do a time skip before the 10-year time skip, I guess she was warming up.
Yeah.
In Lore Olympus, cut to Monday, and Persephone is waiting for her study group.
Yeah, and nobody shows up. And she's upset about that. She goes, maybe everyone was busy. I can't believe nobody came. It's time for class now anyway. She walks off. So then she sees Tori, her green classmate, on the way to class. And she goes, Tori, slow down. Why didn't you come to my study group? You could have at least messaged me. And he says, don't touch me. Everyone knows your boyfriend. Everyone knows you got your boyfriend to rip my roommate's eye out. And not only that, he was beaten within an inch of his life. And it's all because of you.
And that's the end of the chapter.
Yeah, that's the end of the chapter. I don't know why he said my roommate.
Because his roommate is a paparazzi.
Yeah, I know, but why didn't he say the name of the guy?
Because she hadn't thought of the name yet.
But it's easy to think of a name.
No, his name isn't there until, like, the episode where they go visit him in the hospital.
Yeah, but that's, like, such a weird way to say. Like, if he was gonna blame her for that, and he says, don't touch me, and it's all your fault. First of all, why wouldn't you blame Hades for plucking the guy's eye out? Because he actually plucked the guy's eye out.
Because in this universe, we always blame women when men do bad things.
No, he should say, oh, Persephone, well, I gotta go. And she goes, no, Tori, tell me. And then maybe she gets annoyed with him, and he says, no, I was busy or something. And she goes, you weren't busy. You're playing games on your phone or something. And then she grabs him with her hair without meaning to. And then he trips and falls, and he goes, please, I'm sorry. Don't get Hades to take my eye out. And she goes, what? And he goes, well, you know, I mean, after what happened to Alex...
Everyone's scared of you.
Everyone's scared of you, Persephone, because everybody's scared of Hades. You
Yeah.
know, we don't know what he's going to do to us if we get on your bad side.
Mhm.
And she goes, what?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like so much, instead of don't touch me.
No, it's so much better, because if he was scared of her, he wouldn't be angry and he wouldn't tick her off.
No.
Because he'd be scared of what would happen, of the consequences.
Yeah.
So either everyone would show up to her. You know what would have been interesting too, if everyone showed up to the study group and they brought tons of gifts.
Yeah.
They're like, here, Persephone, try my baklava. Here, Persephone, it's the newest laptop, Pomegranate X series. I got it for you, you know?
Yeah, they're like, please.
And then she's like, I don't need your gifts. And then they're like, can you put in a good word for me with the king of the underworld?
Yeah.
That would have been interesting too.
Yeah.
That would have been really interesting.
Yeah, and they're like following her around, and she starts to get agitated, and they're doing everything for her, and she's like, what is going on
No,
here?
it could be the same thing where if you want to continue the thread of her, trauma from being victimized, what could happen is one of the guys can like put his hand on her shoulder, and she's like, this is too much, everyone's too close. She has like a breakdown. She goes, get away from me, get away, and then her hair starts going crazy because like, again, that never comes back,
Yeah.
And then everyone gets scared
Yeah.
because they're like, just don't sick Hades on me,
Yeah.
I'm scared, like after what happened to that guy, please don't beat me within an inch of my life and take my eyeball out.
Yeah.
And then she's like, I can't deal with this anymore. The paparazzi, everyone thinking that I'm like Hades' like side piece.
Yeah.
This has all got to stop. And then that would insert also conflict between her and Hades. Because
Yeah.
right now there's like no reason for them to like each other, and they have absolutely nothing to talk about.
No.
Because there's nothing that they disagree on. They just are instantly, like, clown to clown communication on the perfect wavelength every time.
And she would be like, Hades could stop all of this right now if he just said something. Because he's the king of the underworld. All he has to do...
Well, not only that, I'm not his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Minty is his girlfriend.
He just has to come out and say that. Like, enough beating around the bush, just say it.
You know what would have been...
These people would leave me alone.
You know what would have been really interesting? Instead of Minty becoming a domestic abuser, if Hades actually went through with the proposal.
Yeah.
And then you have, like, this impending marriage, or Minty hasn't decided whether or not to say yes. Like, let's add some stakes to this story.
Yeah.
Like, he reaffirms his commitment to Minty, things go really well for 2 weeks, he proposes, and then Thetis starts wrecking their relationship, because Thetis is like, what? You got him to propose? You're engaged? And then Persephone would be super upset and, like, sad. And then also... potential pregnancy scare, and then it all starts closing in on her. The stakes get worse and worse. Things are going from bad to worse for Persephone. She's getting bullied at work. She's getting followed around by the paparazzi. People at school are being really fake nice towards her to buy her affection,
Yeah.
That would have been so much more interesting.
Yeah.
It would have been better if Persephone was getting hounded by the paparazzi, bullied by Thanatos, Minty, and Thetis, and then she also had the pregnancy scare after she had been assaulted by Apollo, and then she has to ask Thetis, Thanatos, or Minty for a pregnancy test because she can't tell Artemis, obviously, otherwise she would be suspicious that she's violating the tenets of her scholarship. But I also think it would have been a good opportunity, if you're going to go with Persephone being cut off from her mom and cut off from her fortune, for her to be like, at her lowest point, she's basically missing her mother. Yeah. Because that's the one thing that another thing, not the one thing, because we don't get a lot from Persephone, but that is one of many things that we don't get from Persephone. We never see how strong her relationship is with her mother.
Yeah. For
somebody who supposedly was babied, coddled, and basically hovered over by Demeter, she doesn't really have a strong relationship with her. I grew up very sheltered. I have a very strong relationship with my parents, even though there are definitely things where it's like, they could have done that better. They were definitely really coddling, in the sense that they were very scared to let me out into the world by myself. At the same time, it's like, when things got hard, when I went out into the world for the first time, stuff got really hard. It's a lot of pressure. It's very stressful for a young person being independent for the first time.
Yeah.
And, sometimes when things got hard, it was like, I just want to go back to my parents. So we never get that from Persephone. We never get a moment where she's overwhelmed by all the pressure and the stress and all the bad stuff that's happening to her, and going, maybe Demeter was right.
Yeah.
That would be the first thing, because Demeter was scared of Persephone being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Supposedly Demeter potentially knew that Persephone was a fertility god, which hasn't come up in 20 episodes. But, Persephone does never have a moment where she's like, maybe my mom was right, or I want my mom. Yeah. I want to go back home. I want to be safe. I want to be comfortable. And then has to fight that feeling because she's cut off from Demeter. They're estranged, and she wants to prove herself.
Yeah. I mean, it's sad, because the love between a mother and a child it's like one of the most powerful bonds in humanity and among mammals, basically any animal that is raised by a mother. I know we mentioned Dumbo has that really sad scene where he's at the carnival, or
crying in the jail cell.
Yeah, crying in the jail cell for his mother, and they show all the animals, like the hippo and the baby and the tiger and the baby, and it's sad. It's very distressing to see an animal separated from its mother. Similarly, it's very distressing, for mothers in real life to be separated from their children, or to be worried about their children. It's one of the most terrifying things that could happen to you as a parent, is knowing that something bad happened to your kid. You see it all the time with missing persons cases where your child is attacked or killed or goes missing or is kidnapped. It's traumatizing, and it's devastating. It's another reason why I would never have kids, because you'd constantly be worried. I wouldn't be able to handle my kid getting bullied, let alone anything like this that's happening to them. So for her to not think about her mother and to not yearn for that maternal comfort, especially because the maternal comfort is also reminiscent of spring and nature.
Yeah,
right?
Mother Nature,
and the comfort of the mortal realm and the flowers, and looking at how dismal and ugly and gray everything is around her.
You could have really done a lot to parallel Persephone, things getting darker and darker for Persephone, what she's having to deal with, and then looking out and seeing, well, she's still in Olympus at this point.
Yeah.
She's in Olympus, but I think Olympus could have been made more like a cityscape instead of like a suburb, I guess, where she is with Artemis.
Yeah.
She looks out and she just sees, lots of, cityscape. You could have made it look like LA and the underworld looks like New York or something.
Yeah, and she could be yearning for that. She could be yearning for nature and her mother's home-cooked meals, and she could be looking at how materialistic everyone is around her.
Yeah.
And think back to doing like embroidery with her mom on a little embroidery circle, or making food in the kitchen with her mom, and doing things with her hands. How she said she likes doing things with her hands because they remind her of the mortals.
And people think she's weird for that.
Yeah, and they could be like, you don't like going out to clubs, you don't like drinking, you don't like buying things, and she's like, and they could be like, what did you do for fun? She's like, well, when I was a kid, me and my mom used to read books to each other, and they're like, mommy's girl, oh, look at her, it's so pathetic. You could even have Thetis and Minthy corner her until she's crying and say, you gonna cry for your mommy? And then she thinks about that when she's like huddled in her bed, hugging her pillow, and she goes, I want my mom. And she thinks back to the fact that they bully her and say, oh, you're gonna cry for your mommy? And then she goes, no. And she wipes the tears and she goes, I can't, I have to be strong. So that would be very sad, though.
Well, it's such a shame, too, because ostensibly Demeter is kind of like a negative force in Persephone's life. The fact that she coddles her and then hovers over her and all of that stuff, because Persephone is supposed to be all about getting her independence.
Yeah.
But it's such a shame because she doesn't really get her independence, and she doesn't really, like, the narrative doesn't really want her to have independence. She basically just goes from an overprotective, doting mommy to an overprotective, doting daddy. That's basically what's going on in the story.
Yeah, when she's talking again about, if I have my own money, I could get my own place, I could do what I want, I could get my ears pierced.
And then the first thing that's shown is just her in the company of Hades.
Yeah, and go on a date. She's not talking about doing the things that Demeter never let her do as a child, because we don't really know what Demeter wouldn't let her do as a child. I mean, there's no discussion.
It was really
of that.
just no boys allowed.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that keeps getting brought up.
It seems to be like, it's like, wasn't there anything else that you wanted to do? Is there anything else that your mom wouldn't let you do that she thought was dangerous? Like, I know a lot of mothers don't let their kids go places by themselves, right? Travel, go shopping, eat certain foods, try certain things, go to amusement parks because
get a
she's like,
tattoo.
yeah, get a tattoo. I don't know. We don't really get that, like you said.
Dress the way she wants to.
Yeah, we don't get that interior look into her mind, so.
It's a shame. And that would have made the story stronger.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so episode 85 starts with Hades panting and jogging with his dog. And then he jogs past the Underworld Corp headquarters tower. And the two secretaries kind of check him out. And then he says, I wish everything could slow down. Me too, Hades. Everything's going by so fast. So he's there. This is right after Persephone finds out about the paparazzi getting his eye plucked out. And so then, very conveniently, it's the third Monday of the month, as Hecate reminds him. And this is that same Monday with the study session. And so the third Monday of the month is when everybody at the corporation gets to air their grievances. They get 10 minutes of time
To speak with the king.
to speak with him. I guess they can't send an email or do a Zoom call or anything like that.
No, again, it's like really strange because it's like only bits and pieces of the comic are modern, So like this is very old-fashioned king-style grievances that they would have in like medieval times. Or ancient times, and like people have to literally show up to the Underworld Corp in order to air their grievances instead of just like sending an email. So it's like, why is this not just modernized?
Yeah.
When so much else is modernized, why is this not modernized?
Yeah, so he said in a previous chapter that he has thousands of employees and everyone gets 10 minutes to speak with the king about any issues they might be having.
It's not just employees though, it's like people who are citizens of his realm.
Okay, so that's like a lot of people, 10 minutes each.
Yeah.
So that would take like days.
Yeah, but that's all the king would, sometimes the king would just do that all day, back in the day.
Yeah.
Back to Persephone.
Yeah, she's in class and her classmates are all gossiping about her. And they're saying she's just like all the snobs from Olympus. And then, I don't understand what this means. I know there was a reason she was called Persephone. Persephone?
Yeah, because they said she's such a phony.
Okay, yeah. I didn't get that the first time. And so then he calls her the dark concubine of Hades. And then she goes, we're just friends. And again, it's like everything is going back to, you like Hades, don't you?
I know.
No, I don't.
I know.
It's like you couldn't have said something else. Like if this guy was going to say Hades, like you're just Hades' little plaything.
Instead of the dark concubine of Hades, why didn't he just say, like, you're just you're just getting free rides from Hades. Hades is just like, you're just his little sugar baby.
Exactly.
You're using him to climb up the ladders of society.
Yeah, so they're still debating over whether or not it's even true. And she goes, even if it is true, I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. How could you pluck somebody's eye out and beat them within an inch of their life for it to be a misunderstanding?
She hasn't seen the fact that he's been beaten within an inch of his life yet.
No, but she's giving the benefit of the doubt to Hades after hearing about such a heinous thing.
Yeah, I know. And she doesn't even know him.
Yeah, and then instead of addressing that in a way that makes sense, they just go into joke territory.
And then she just decides to fly over to Hades in the middle of the school day.
Yeah, because she's more upset about this, it seems like, than she is about
what actually happened to her.
Yeah. And so she can't see him because of the huge queue of people in line to see him. So it's very convenient. And then she gets coffee spilled on her to make a bad day worse. And then she's about to cry because of that.
Yep.
And then Ares shows up and she gets angry. We start seeing the hair activate again with the little leaves on it. Ares is like twice as tall as her. And
he's about the same height as Hades.
Yeah.
Because he's the second husband, love interest.
I think Hades got a little boring after a while, because let's be honest, Hades is boring.
Hades is so boring.
Hades is basically just Will Graham mixed with Hannibal from NBC's Hannibal TV
No,
show.
but more Will Graham, because he was only, like, dangerous when he plucked that guy's eye out, and then she was like, oh, maybe I went a little bit too far in some places.
Yeah, because Hannibal would carve people up and make statues for Will, and Will's like, this is disgusting.
She quickly dropped the whole dangerous, dark love interest thing because it was too hard to write.
Yeah, but Will goes around rescuing dogs. That's like our introduction to Will. But he's got the Hannibal aesthetic with the suits and the dark blue and everything. It's very much like just Will and Hannibal, but it gets boring after a while, especially because they're trying to look for reasons as for why Persephone and Hades just can't be together. So they have to keep delaying it. So in the meanwhile, it's like, okay, let's just introduce this guy, Ares. And Ares, to me, just instantly reminded me of Junkrat from Overwatch.
Yep.
He's got big-time Junkrat energy. He's, like, kind of chaotic, and...
I think the most interesting thing about Ares versus Hades is that Persephone and Ares don't... Well, Persephone doesn't like Ares.
Yeah.
And then whenever they're together, like, in order for the ship to work, you have to think of reasons why Persephone would end up liking him. And that in and of itself is already more promising and more interesting than Hades and Persephone, which is like insta-love.
Yeah.
There's no internal obstacles to their relationship. There's nothing that you can imagine them arguing about, because apparently she's even okay with him owning slaves.
Yeah.
You know, they never argue, they never fight, they never have like a moment of contention between them that needs to be like solved or smoothed over. They never come to mutual understanding. It's just like, Persephone is so cute and sweet, and she has a heart-shaped butt, and Hades is nice to me.
Yeah.
So we love each other.
Yeah, and Ares is like flirting with her. He goes, why are you so upset? I could feel your rage all the way from the mortal realm. What are you so worked up about? And she's like, why do you want to know? And he goes, because it's interesting, you're interesting. So we're kind of setting up another ship here. So this guy says, can the two of you get a room? I'm trying to finish my Sudoku. And then Ares gets all angry and throws that guy out the window for some reason. And so he's still flirting with her, and...
Why did he just show up? Because he felt her anger?
I mean, she's, like, so special.
That other people just show up wherever she is?
Yeah. And so he's, like, annoying her and flirting with her and stuff like that. And so then she explains the paparazzi thing to Ares, and how Hades pulled the guy's eye out, and he goes, oh, is that all? I would have killed him. You want to know what I think? Secretly, you love the attention, and you're just sulking because he didn't invite you to come and help. And so she gets more worked up about that, but this is, like, much more emotion from her than the scene with Apollo.
I think it's also trying to set up that he was attracted to her because, like, not attracted, but he was, like, physically brought over to her because of her feelings towards Apollo, but that's, again, so hollow because we never got that depth of rage.
No.
Like, it'd be one thing if she was so enraged that she, like, blacked out or did something that she didn't remember, or she was so enraged that, like, you know, there was, like, some kind of physical reaction, or something, you know, because, like, again, she has more of a physical reaction when she sees Hades turn into Kronos than she does with Apollo. If there was a physical reaction that called Ares over, like the freaking ring, you know, from Lord of the Rings, and then they're also trying to set up the fact that she changed her name from Corey to Bringer of Death, and like the thing with Demeter bribing Hermes. But again, like this is like the I think this is the third or second time we've mentioned it, and the Demeter bribing Hermes thing was like in the 60s, episode 60, and this is like episode 86. So again, it's been like 20 episodes since Demeter bribed Hermes, and now we're coming back to this and like just hinting at it. It's not going anywhere. Ares is just going like, oh, I wonder what happened. Remember that plot line? I wonder what happened. Like that happens a lot in this comic where it's like something will come up and then 20 or 30 chapters later, nothing is advanced. It's just like a flashback or two characters talking or one character talking to another, and then they're like, remember that plot line? And then it never gets like advanced or resolved or nothing happens with it. It's just like, oh yeah, remember that?
Yeah.
Or like, you know, the Eros and Aphrodite flashback in episode 70 is like a classic example where like nothing happened because we already knew that Psyche became a nymph.
Yeah.
We already knew that Eros has to do everything Aphrodite tells him.
Yeah.
And we already knew that Psyche tried to kill him. And then the fact that he committed an act of wrath and then Aphrodite seduced Zeus in order to get it wiped off his record, that doesn't lead anywhere. So what new information was added to add to the plot? Nothing. It's just like this. It's like Ares was summoned to Persephone because of her feelings towards Apollo, but that's kind of hollow because we never got those feelings. Like, we never saw those feelings.
No.
We never saw how strong they were. From all the indications, compared to her reaction when she sees Hades turn to Kronos later, like, they weren't that strong.
Yeah.
It wasn't as strong a feeling of anger and wrath as the feeling that she had when she saw friggin' Hades. So, there's that. It's not supported by the text. And two, even if it was supported by the text, and Ares is like, I wonder what happened there. Like, what is the point of showing this now if it's not going to go anywhere?
Yeah.
If it's not going to go anywhere immediately, then it's kind of just wasting our time.
Yeah.
Like, it just feels like it keeps happening where a plot line's introduced, and then you just keep getting the promise that it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Remember that plot line? Here's some cool imagery. It's going to be really interesting, you guys.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, I wonder what will happen to that plot line. And then 30 chapters pass. And then it comes up again. Remember that plot line? Oh, it's going to be really cool, you guys. And then it's like, okay, but this isn't going anywhere. We're not adding to the plot line. We're not advancing the plot line. There's no consequences to that plot line. So what am I supposed to take away from it?
Yeah.
Like, I think, again, if you wanted the walls closing in and Persephone to explode with anger and really F up Apollo's car, or his lyre, if you introduced the lyre earlier, and this could be after Apollo, if you want Apollo to leak the pictures to the press, or Thetis can leak the pictures to the press, and she sees the pictures in the press and assumes Apollo did it.
Yeah.
And then she, like, busts up his car.
Yeah.
And then Ares shows up, and he shows up at the scene.
Yeah.
Don't put Hades there. Just put her Ares there, so that we concentrate fully on introducing this new character.
Exactly.
That would have been more interesting.
Yeah, and you could even have it where she feels good because Ares is telling her, yeah, do it. And then Apollo's like, no, Persephone, please don't do it. Like, I'm sorry, I'll never bother you again.
Instead of the stupid Hades and Hecate, like, flirting while they, like, pull out that guy's eye, freaking Persephone should have been beating Apollo within an inch of his life and pulling out his eye.
Exactly.
That would have been more interesting.
And Ares is, like, talking her, yeah, do it.
Yeah, he's
Persephone.
gassing her up.
And she's like, yeah. And then she's like, oh, that felt really good. And then Hades is like, what did you do? And then she's like, oh, I don't like the way Hades made me feel when he asked me why I did that. Ares would never ask me. And then it's like, well, Ares is kind of toxic at that point, you know? That would be more interesting.
But it's more interesting.
Yeah.
Like a perfect romance where nothing happens, there's no conflict at all.
Yeah.
That's not interesting.
No.
A perfect story where nothing happens and it's just perfect and everything works out great is not interesting.
No.
So anyway, Ares is like, what did you do? And then Persephone says, if I tell you, will you stop singing? And then, like, you know, again, it's like even Persephone doesn't talk about what Demeter was paying Hermes to keep quiet. So I feel like Persephone is like the most mysterious character, even though she's the main character.
Yeah, and Hades said if she has met me before and she didn't say anything about that, what else is she hiding? I mean,
you know what else is weird? She doesn't think about Ares at all.
No.
Like, usually when Hades and Persephone are interacting, you get panels showing Hades is, like, super obsessed with her and, like, thinking about her, internally moaning, blah, blah. Get nothing with his interaction with Ares.
No. I like Ares, though. I think he's more charismatic and interesting.
Yeah, he definitely is.
I like his character design. I think he's more interesting to look at. I think his interaction with Persephone is more interesting to read about.
Yeah, definitely. And he even says stuff like, secretly you love the attention. and you're just sulking because he didn't invite you to come and help.
Again, that's like very much Hannibal and Will kind of dynamic. And it's like I think she wanted to do something like that with Hades talking about I smell the rotting feet thing, but that never went anywhere. Ambitions rotting at your feet didn't go anywhere.
Mm-mm.
I mean, you could have had Hades tell her, hey, you should go after the paparazzi guy.
Yeah, Hades is supposed to be the king of the underworld. He's
Yeah.
supposed to be dark, but he just got neutered
Yeah.
at some point. I mean, he's a scumbag, but not in the way that was intended.
Yeah. So she gets really mad at Ares, though, and he's like smug. And then Hades comes out and goes, you're angry at me?
Oh
But
my god, the characters were supposed to be walking to Hades' office this whole time.
They're waiting in that line the whole time.
How? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Because these characters were just interacting, and then they're suddenly in Hades' office.
Yeah, because...
And then Ares says, we were having such a good time catching up that we didn't notice that we finally reached your office. No, it's because you never drew them, like, stepping forward in line.
Yeah, or the queue of people getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah, no, because if you showed them arguing from, like, a top-down view, you could have shown, like, people, like, the line getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
As, like, every 3 or 4 panels, you could have shown that.
Yeah. Why even introduce the plot of the waiting in line?
Because she wanted Ares to show up.
Yeah, but he could have shown up anyway.
He could have shown up outside of the office. She gets bumped into with coffee.
Yeah.
He shows up right outside the office.
And while she's walking to his
While
office.
she's walking to his office, he, like, detains her.
Yeah.
And then Hades walks out because maybe a security guard was like, I'm gonna call, the boss.
Yeah.
Hey, it's the boss's side piece. I'm gonna call the boss down here.
Yeah, does that third Monday ever come back?
I don't think so.
Okay, so, like, again, like, what's the point?
It's pointless.
Yeah, so that takes us to episode 87.
Hey, this episode only had 2 assistants.
Yeah.
Why do some episodes have 5 assistants and some only have 2?
I don't know. So episode 87 starts with Hades going, Persephone,
Are you angry at me?
Is this true? And she's like, oh, he still has the flower I gave him last night. I'm not angry, I'm upset. Again, it's very emotionally manipulative for Hades.
It wasn't last night, it was Friday night.
Yeah, Friday night. Yeah. I mean, it's just a flower, though.
No, yeah, instead of being angry, she just busts out the tears, which is like, that's the trick you use. If you want your boyfriend to do something for you without getting, like, mad at you, just start crying, you
No,
know?
but I mean, she has a reason to be mad at him, so why not be like, I'm not angry, I'm furious. And she goes, I'm upset, and he goes, with me? And she's like, I'm afraid so, and he goes, that won't do, will it? And
It's so...
Ares has a point, because he goes, scream, yell, do something. And she goes, that's not how I do things. And it's like, you were literally doing that 2 minutes ago to Ares. What do you mean that's not how... Why would you say that's not how I do things and then show her doing that?
It's
like,
because she's
the chapter before.
It's because she's a soft flower. She's a soft flower who doesn't have a single negative, angry emotion.
Yeah.
She's Giselle from Enchanted. She just cries.
And then he says, did you use your powers on her? And he says, yeah, a little bit. But that seems like retconning because I never saw any indication that it was Ares' powers that were getting her riled up because the same visual cues of the red eyes and the hair was shown earlier in the story when she was getting angry at Apollo. But
Yep.
I don't think that had anything to do with Ares.
No.
So how was I supposed to know that he was using his powers on
There was
her?
no indication.
Yeah, and then he goes, she's not even a century old yet. She doesn't have the stamina for your stupid games. She's not even a century old yet, Hades. You
Yeah,
creep.
she's not even a century old yet. Why are you preying on her?
Yeah. And then Ares says, oh, I thought we were just having fun. And he says, like, the most ham-fisted, I just wanted to get a rise out of her for my entertainment. Nobody talks like that, man. And so then you got the boyfriends fighting over each other where Hades goes, you're lucky you're my nephew. And then he glares at him. And then they disappear to Hades' room of requirement where she gets an outfit change.
Mm-hmm.
And he explains that this is a place, like a hiding place that he goes to.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have some banter where he says, no, I didn't see you naked. It's just an illusion that you changed your clothes. And he's like, I thought you'd be more at ease in a dress that wasn't coffee stained. But this outfit that she's wearing looks like something Minty would wear.
Yeah, it really does. And that happens as the story goes on. Like I keep saying, like her color choices and all of that just become much more Hades-esque instead of continuing with her own aesthetic and style. I'm pretty sure every single outfit that she has was either picked out for her or bought for her by Eros or later on bought for her by Hades. It was just like, so much for being independent and living on your own with your own money.
Yeah, well, so the thing that confuses me about this scene is that he's like, maybe you can tell me what's upsetting you over lunch. But just previously he said it's an illusion, so is this a real lunch or is it a fake lunch?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering when I read this. I was like, is she actually eating food? I don't get it. Because it's all food that he, like, summoned there. So I don't know if it's, like, real or not. Again, the powers of the gods, the world building and all of that, what they can and can't do, is so unclear, and it's just, like, it's literally just written into the episode at that moment. At that specific moment, I want to have this scene happen, so their powers are suddenly going to include that.
Yeah.
That's what it's just like.
So then she says she's troubled by the reporter who took a photo of us, and he goes, yes. And she's like, did you really pull his eye out? And she's eating, like, a tiny little thing while he's eating a big old steak.
Of course.
Yeah.
She's a delicate woman.
And so she says, they say you broke his legs and that he's been hospitalized, and he's chewing his steak, and he goes, yup. And she's like, Hades. And he's like, I don't see the problem with it. And then she goes, well, I think you did it more for yourself and not for me. And it's just a strange conversation, because it's like that I thought it would please you. That interaction took place not over a matter of weeks. Like, I would be scared if a guy did that after knowing me for a
Dude,
day.
and this is after he has a mug with her lipstick on it,
Yeah.
and her baklava, and her flower petals.
He's going around pulling people's eyes out.
He's going around pulling... I'm surprised he didn't have, like, a friggin' private investigator tailing her. And the other thing that's really annoying is that she was more angry at Ares than she is at Hades.
Yeah, but that's because Ares used his powers on her.
That's a friggin' cop-out, bro. That's a cop-out.
Yeah.
That's a total cop-out. It's because she doesn't want to include any sort of tension between Hades and Persephone.
Yeah, and she says it's going to hurt her reputation. You didn't think about something like whether or not I would want that. If you want to do something that involves me, could you talk to me first, right? And then you have the 5 panels of hand-holding. And he says, I'm sorry, the last thing I want to do is hurt you. But it's strange because, again, if we look at the timeline for how long these people have known each other.
Well, it's been a week at this point.
Yeah.
It's been a week.
Yeah, so then she says, I'm afraid I owe you an apology as well. And then that takes us to episode 88, and he goes, sweetness, what on Olympus could you possibly owe me an apology for? And then he's, like, kneeling at her lap. And she goes, well, I've been flirting with you, or at least trying to. You have a partner. I'm not respecting you, her, or our friendship when I do that.
What friendship?
Yeah, and then she goes, sugar snaps, this is hard. Yes, I don't understand. Like, the sugar snaps thing is very Flanders.
It's very Flanders.
Yeah, and she goes, when I agreed to my scholarship, it seemed like a realistic commitment for me. And then I met you, and I didn't expect we would keep interacting like this. What I mean to say is I didn't think I would have such a strong connection with another being. But it's been a week.
It's been a week.
If this had been, like, after months, then maybe. And she's like, you gotta tell me. Like, you're about to get married to Minty. This is crazy. We can't keep doing
he
this.
should have proposed. He should have proposed to Minty, and they should be about to be getting married. Just throw in some friggin' stakes.
Yeah, and it's just very strange that they're having this really big, drawn-out, dramatic conversation, and she's so small in that panel.
I know.
Yeah. But it's a really big, drawn-out, dramatic conversation that takes place within a week, and the body language of the characters and the touching and everything is just way too overly familiar.
So overly familiar.
Yeah, when I'm with you, I don't care about Minty or her feelings, and I should. I feel guilty that I just don't care.
I've never gotten that. Like, when Persephone's with Hades, we get no internal thoughts whatsoever. It's like Minty doesn't exist. It's like she's doing this on purpose because she's trying to steal him from Minty. That's what it comes across. It comes across, whenever she's with Hades, she comes across as incredibly manipulative.
Yeah.
Not sincere, not naive, manipulative. Like a homewrecker stereotype. More of a homewrecker stereotype than Thetis and Minty. Like,
Yeah.
seriously.
And so Hades, his IQ drops to the temperature of the underworld because she says, I don't think we're making the best choices right now. And he goes, I'm not sure what you're trying to say. Do you want me to leave you alone? And she says, no. And then there's like a panel that's very out of place here where the colors are totally different.
Colors are totally different.
Where they're like embracing. And she goes, but maybe we could slow down. I'm not sure I like Minty very much, but no one deserves to be cheated on. So what do you mean maybe we could slow down?
Maybe we could slow down, she says, as she burrows herself into his chest and snuggles closer and they're holding hands.
No, like, it's a yes or no thing. It's like, do you want to be with Minty? Or, like, why isn't she asking him, if you're with Minty, then why are you like this with me? Like, I thought you were different from your brother Zeus. I know Zeus has a thing going with him and Hera where he's seeing other women.
No, he says, do you want me to leave you alone? She says no, snuggles back into his chest, but maybe we could slow down. What about Minty?
Yeah.
Why don't you ask him to choose between you and Minthy. Like I said earlier, if some dude was coming on to me, making the moves, but he had a girlfriend, I'd be like, bro, ask me out and dump your girlfriend or F off, you know?
Yeah,
like, why are you, like, being so flirty with me? Why are you interacting with me like this? Why is this going on when you have a girlfriend?
Exactly.
This is annoying. This is F-boy behavior.
It's total F-boy behavior. And then she goes, I mean it about slowing down. You did pull out someone's eye. Oh, I thought I did that for me. And you have to promise not to give me special treatment at work. And so he cuts back to the idea.
No, she smirks at that. I thought I did that for me. And she goes, oh, you.
It's like flirting about taking a guy's eye out. But, so Hades is like, oh no, she knows that I'm paying her salary and interns don't usually get paid. But she doesn't know that. And she goes, I don't think interns normally get business cards, and flash back to her getting the business card, because that is preferential treatment at work. He is still giving her preferential treatment by paying her.
Yeah.
Right?
Because interns normally don't get paid.
Exactly, like he just said it. And he goes, I'm getting away with it. And
Hades really cares about Persephone's wants, feelings, desires. He really cares about them. That's why he's constantly trying to pull the rug over her, pull the wool over her eyes. I might have one last teeny weeny request. Why does she talk like a 5-year-old?
Because she's, like, that's what makes her attractive, is that she's
like, she doesn't talk like this to other people. She only talks like this to Hades.
Yeah.
So it definitely comes across like she's manipulative.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine?
She seems like she's putting on a cutesy facade because she knows that's what Hades likes because he's a pedo.
Yeah, could you imagine if she said, oh, sugar snaps at the clinic? You know, like...
Hey, doctor, I have one last teeny weeny request.
Yeah.
You'd be like, what is wrong with you, lady?
Teeny weeny.
Teeny
Whoa.
weeny, what?
Not in my office.
Seriously.
You get out of here with that teeny weeny.
This is 100% DDLG. It's so creepy.
Yeah, so then we cut to Hecate talking to some rando about parking spaces, and Hades isn't where he's supposed to be. And I guess the thing about parking spaces is supposed to be funny, and she looks off to the side, but you don't know where she's looking at. I have no idea where they are in this panel of them floating.
I have no idea where Hecate is.
I guess she's in, like, a parking garage or something.
No, she's supposed to be where Hades was when he was taking, like, requests or whatever.
Yeah, the scene is so dark that you can't really see what's going on there.
I have no idea where this is supposed to be. I think that's a sofa in the background, but I can't even tell.
Okay, so the person who's there complaining about parking spaces is supposed to be talking to Hades.
Yeah.
With the complaints about
But
parking
I'm just saying, like,
spaces.
in general, the backgrounds in these episodes, these next 30 episodes, are really bad.
Yeah.
They're, like, the first 70 episodes had better backgrounds.
Yeah, so then Hades and Persephone, I guess, are floating outside of the window. And then she goes, where are they going? Does anyone do any actual work around
What's
here
wrong with
anymore?
Hades' eyes in that one panel?
Zoom and enhance.
What's wrong with his eyes?
It's, I think, just color bleed
Oh.
from
It looks
eye
like
to
he
the
has a
bridge of the nose.
cyclops.
Yeah, it looks like he's a cyclops, but, I mean, again, it looks like a guy and his daughter going out somewhere.
She looks like a child.
Yeah. And so then that takes us to episode 89, where we catch up with Hades and Persephone, and he says, are you alright? Would you like to stop for a little bit? And she goes, no, I need to get this done. And they're flying to the hospital. And he says, do you actually want to be a member of the Goddesses of Eternal Maidenhood? I'm not questioning your choices, I'm just curious. And she says, it's hard to explain. I've been groomed for joining since I was about 14.
Hades, darn, I didn't get there first.
Yeah. And she says it's an honorable path to take for a goddess. And Hestia and Artemis are powerful and respected by all, but we don't really know what Hestia and Artemis do.
We don't know what anybody does in this organization.
Yeah.
It's like we were saying about being on a football scholarship.
Yeah, and she says, it means Zeus can't marry me off to sweeten a business deal. She goes, sorry, I know he's your brother. But again, why would she apologize about talking about Zeus like that when he's legitimately, like, a nasty person? Because later in the hospital, she calls that guy rude, and she has no problem saying that to him, right?
Because she's a friggin' pick-me for Hades.
Yeah. So then he goes, well, back to the subject at hand, do you want to join? And she goes, I'm not sure. I thought about leaving, but if I leave, I can't go back in, that's it. Hestia has put a lot of time and effort into preparing me. I haven't seen it. And my mother would be so disappointed. I have no idea what her mother's like.
I think she doesn't care about disappointing her mother because she hasn't thought about her once in her first week outside of home. She hasn't thought about her at all. She hasn't thought about how much she misses home. There's no homesickness, and there's no missing her mother. There's, like, no relationship between Persephone and Demeter at all.
Yeah.
0.
So, I've got a question about this. She says, I can't shake the feeling that it's not right for me, but am I screwing things up for everyone because I have cold feet? So, she's worried about quitting the scholarship because she's going to disappoint everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought she was worried about the scholarship initially in previous episodes because of what happened between her and Apollo.
Yeah, she felt like she didn't deserve it anymore. And she was a fraud.
Yeah, so what is she saying? I can't shake the feeling that it's not right for me. We know, I mean, right now she should be thinking, like, should I tell Hades about what happened? If I really told him how I felt...
Would he be disgusted?
Yeah, would he not like me anymore? I mean, where's the whole thought about Apollo and how that throws
this is directly related to what happened to Apollo.
Yeah.
And it's like it never even happened.
Yeah.
If you show this chapter to someone out of context and you were like, oh yeah, by the way, this is an organization that you can't join. This is an organization that requires you to be like chaste for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And she can't join anymore because she got sexually assaulted. Would you get that from the character?
No.
She got sexually assaulted last week and she can't join anymore.
It sounds like she's trying to back out of the school play.
It sounds like she's trying to, like, you know, High School Musical Troy.
Should I go for it? I'm gonna shake this. Yikes.
I don't want to play basketball anymore.
Yeah, like my dad's gonna be so disappointed that I don't want to play basketball. But then you conveniently left out the fact that it's because the coach freaking like
Assaulted
him in the locker room.
Exactly.
And he's like, I don't know, Dad. I don't think basketball's for me. But he's not thinking like, if I tell my dad the truth, is he gonna understand?
Or is he gonna call me gay
Yeah.
and say it was my fault and that I'm
Exactly.
disgraceful?
There's none of that there, but we know that's because she was deliberating over that. But Persephone, for some reason, in this scene,
We know.
just doesn't know.
But does the author know at this
Exactly.
point in time?
Yeah, and she goes, I'm trying to work out if it was my choice, if everyone just told me that it was my choice, you know what I mean? And then we cut to him snuggling Cerberus, and he goes, yeah, I've got some idea what that's like, but I have no idea what that's supposed to mean.
I think that was when he went into the underworld because it's a bunch of stairs.
Yeah, it's a bunch of stairs, and you see, like, Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, and then a couple other people behind him in the distance.
Yeah. Hestia.
Yeah,
And
but
Demeter.
again, you have another thing where it's like when she was talking about her insecurities of being a dumb village girl in Sicily, and he goes, don't apologize for being born in Sicily. Here she's talking about the goddesses of eternal maidenhood, which Hades could never understand, because those backwards, like, chaste woman things never apply to men.
No.
And he goes, yeah, I've got some idea what that's like. No, you don't. You're a king of the underworld.
He contextualizes everything in terms of himself.
Yeah, like...
He's like one of those people where if you talk about, like, I bet if the guy who he beat almost to death, whose eye he took out, if that guy starts complaining, he's like, yeah, I know what that's like. And then flashes back to, like, when he was hungry that one time.
Yeah.
You know? Or, like, when he was beaten within an inch of his life, and then Hera just immediately climbed on.
Yeah.
And then that guy's like, no, like, because you got Hera out of that. I got
Yeah.
nothing.
Or, like, he's like, dude, I'm really scared right now. And he's like, I know what you mean. He cuts back to Minthy coming at
Oh
him.
my god.
Oh, really? Yeah, you know exactly what that's like, don't you? And so...
Dude, if he was scared about being Kronos and being confused with being Kronos, why didn't the paparazzi say, you're just like Kronos? And then Hades is like, oh my god, being violent in this way is something that a tyrant would do.
Yeah, it's weird because he's so smug when he's having lunch with Persephone about, yeah, I did take that guy's eye out. I don't see what the problem is. And it's like, dude...
This is the guy who's like, do you think I look like Kronos? No, but you act like him.
No, I mean, he was so traumatized after Minthy slapped him that he blanked out and saw Nyx.
Yeah.
And then he's like, yeah, I took that guy's eye out and I beat him within an inch of his life. What's wrong with that? He deserved it. It's like...
And Minthy went, dink.
Yeah, like she slapped him upside the head. He didn't...
No,
fall down.
she went like this. Ugh.
Yeah, like she's... And
His head didn't even move.
Yeah.
He didn't even go like, oh, you know?
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, it's scary to be slapped by your partner, but having your eye plucked out and...
Beaten almost to death.
Yeah, having your legs broken, that's horrible. Could you imagine, you know? And then he's like, well, yeah, he deserved it. But then what happened to him because of Minthy was so traumatic that he blacked out and woke up on a sofa.
Do you think I look like Kronos?
Yeah, Hera, do I look like Kronos to you?
Oh my
Like,
god.
oh,
The
geez.
favoritism is so blatant.
He's this friggin' sociopath. He is like one of those guys who is a narcissist.
Yeah,
And
he's
like,
a total narcissist.
my problems are the biggest problems.
My trauma is the most important.
Yeah, my trauma is the most important. It's crazy to see this kind of cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, in the writing.
Yeah.
100%. It's really bizarre. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Especially when you binge it and you're just like, wait a minute, I just saw that.
Yeah.
Like, I just read that last week.
Yeah.
And now you're trying to make me feel bad for this guy by drawing him as a child? Like, really?
No, man. So they arrive at the hospital, and then this is when we get the name of the guy, Alex Peter. He didn't have a name before, he was just Tori's roommate.
You know, people say that, or Persephone's supposed to be 5'2".
Yeah.
But nobody who's like 5'2" is like one head over a normal countertop.
I'm 5'3".
Yeah, I don't think she's 5'2". And Hades is definitely not 10 feet tall, because then everyone in Olympus must be like 8 to 10 feet tall.
Yeah.
Because Hera is also shorter than him, so is Minty.
Yeah.
So I don't think Persephone is 5'2". I think she's like 4'5".
Yeah.
This is like one head above the countertop. That's like child size.
Yeah, unless she's standing bent with her butt sticking out.
No, I don't think she's 5'2", because you're 5'3", and like you're only a little bit like too short for countertops and stuff like that. You're not like.
Could you imagine if every time I tried to cook, it was like up to here?
That's what I'm saying.
I would sue the person who built this house.
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
Like,
I'd be like, this is discrimination, man.
she's 4 feet tall.
Yeah.
She's 4 feet tall. She's not 5'2".
No.
There's no way. If she was 5'2", she'd be up to his shoulder, and she was up to his shoulder in the beginning of the comic.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden she's like the size of a child.
Yeah, and so the receptionist won't let them see Alex Peter because they're not family. But then Persephone hatches a harebrained scheme to dress up in scrubs. And so he goes, I don't know how you managed to talk me into this. Where are you going? His room is this way. And she goes, it's not my fault people leave important documents lying around. It's all very convenient.
It's very convenient. It's
Yeah.
just supposed to be a cute moment.
Yeah, and they go, surprise, it's us. And this guy is understandably terrified. And she goes, don't worry, we're here to help you. And he goes, I don't want any help the two of you have got to give. And they've got his eye in a Ziploc bag full
With
of ice. And they're acting like they're doing him a favor.
And they're so cute and
Yeah.
like precious.
The only reason you're getting your eye back is because of this goddess. You should thank her. And he goes, you really want me to have my eye back? Like, again, like she's doing him a favor. And she
Why
goes,
don't you unbreak my legs while you're at it?
Yeah. And he says,
Because he's like trying to sit up and he's going like, ouch, ouch, ouch. It's like that guy in SpongeBob who's constantly getting his legs broken.
my leg!
Or that salesman who's like, and I have to use this machine to breathe for
Yeah,
me.
I've got paper skin and glass bones.
Some guys have all the luck. I was born with glass bones and paper skin. Every morning I break my legs, and every afternoon I break my arms. At night, I lie awake in agony until my heart attacks put me to sleep.
Yeah, and he goes, you really want me to have my eye back? Yeah, but you shouldn't write things that aren't true, okay?
As if he deserved this. As if he deserved to almost be killed for writing gossip.
Yeah, so then he goes, thanks, I guess. And she goes, okay, well then, are you ready? And he goes, yeah, maybe you should go wait in the hallway. This might get a little graphic. And so then this guy says, don't leave me alone with him. And Persephone has the gall to say, he's going to put your eye back in? I would have stayed if you weren't so rude. What is rude about that interaction?
Well, not only that, but he doesn't want to be left alone with the guy who almost murdered him.
Yeah.
And she's like, nah, your comfort in this situation, your re-traumatization, not important.
No.
Your PTSD,
Again, Hades, I don't want to be alone with her when she's like this.
little child Hades.
I-
And Minty just goes, doink,
I would have stayed if you weren't so rude.
all 90 pounds of her.
Could you imagine if Hades told Persephone, I don't want to be alone with Minty when she's like this. And she's like, I would have stayed Hades, but
You were really
you were
rude.
really rude, so I'm gonna leave you to that. The audience would be like, oh my god, poor Hades.
Seriously,
Poor Hades.
it's
This
crazy.
This guy got beat so badly he's in the hospital, and she's saying I would have stayed. if you
Dude,
weren't
no,
so rude."
they not just beat so badly he was in the hospital, supposedly beaten within an inch of his life.
Yeah.
Supposedly, in the text, beaten within an inch of his life. At least both of his legs were broken.
Yeah.
At the
so-
least.
So then Persephone's like, it's taking a little longer than I thought. It can't be that gross. So she peeks in there, and her eyes go all shiny.
Glittery.
Yeah, and then we cut to episode 90. Honest to God, like, how do you write Hades saying, I don't want to be alone with her when she's like this?
That was only
For tiny little Minty?
Dude, that was in episode 72, and this is episode 89.
Yeah.
Or 88. That was only like 16 episodes ago.
Yeah.
But I guess that was 4 months in real life.
Yeah, I mean, like, how could you feel bad for Hades in that interaction at all when he did this to a guy before that interaction took place? And
He did that 40 episodes
He was
ago.
glib about it, you know?
Yeah.
And then you
Cha
have-
Cha and Hazel moment.
yeah, you have the audacity to say that Minty's an abuser and she's horrible? Dude, Hades is a psychopath.
He almost killed someone
He
for no
almost-
reason.
Yeah, for a woman he met like a day before.
For printing gossip about a woman he met the day before.
Yeah.
At this point, chapter 88, it hasn't come up since chapter 35, and then the Minty thing was 4 months ago. Rachel wrote the main lead who got abused, literally almost beating a guy to death, and she not only made it glib and a joke, she romanticized it.
Yeah.
So how can you say that I'm not taking abuse seriously when Rachel already did that?
Yeah, exactly.
And then expected me to take one instance of abuse seriously, but not the other.
Exactly.
How do you write that?
Exactly.
You can't put both in one comic. Either abuse is serious and I need to take it seriously, or rape is a joke. When Poseidon was talking to Apollo, rape is a joke, and ripping a guy's eyes out and beating him to death is har funny.
Yeah.
You can't have both at one time.
No.
You can't. Especially if you want me to take one thing super seriously that's literally a slap.
Yeah.
But beating a guy to death is just a joke.
Exactly.
That doesn't make any sense.
No.
Take this part seriously because I want you to take it seriously. Take this part as a joke because I want you to take it as a joke.
Exactly.
I want you, like, this is how I want you to think about the scene, and just take it as that. Don't criticize me. Don't think too hard about it.
It's like impossible for the people who are overly attached to their characters to make them flawed characters. It's like an impossible, it's like, you know, challenge, make your character flawed, parentheses, impossible, right? Like,
No. The biggest thing is that Minty was supposed to have borderline personality disorder and be a horrible abuser and like the worst female character in the series.
what's Hades' excuse?
But in doing that, she made her the most interesting, most relatable female character apart from the slap.
Yeah.
And Hades is the main male character, and he's like a horrible person, but that's never acknowledged in universe. Everything that he does is just like the fact that he beat a guy to death. When it happened, it was funny. When Persephone tried to bring it up, she wasn't even mad, and it was played off like a joke.
Yeah.
She was like, "Oh Hades, oh you,
Yeah, you better not do that again.
better not do that again." You know.
Stupid. And
I don't like that you did it, but I'm secretly kind of flattered.
No, could you imagine Ares said, you're just upset that he didn't ask you to join, as if that's what she really wanted? And that's like the implication, is like she actually really wanted to
I
be
know.
with him.
What was the point of that? Is that really what was supposed to be, like, is that really what we're supposed to think that she felt?
Yeah, because if Persephone goes out and does that to a person, does that make her worse than Minty? No. The audience would think she's justified.
Yeah, they would. If Persephone killed Minty tomorrow, everyone would cheer.
Yeah, that's messed up. It's a total double standard. So then we get to episode 90, where...
89.
No, we're on episode 90.
Are we?
Yeah, we just finished that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Just 10 more to go. Yeah. So we
Right.
get to episode 90 where we see what Persephone's looking at through the blinds. And she sees Hades putting the eyeball back in, but he looks like Kronos. And then we see her touch her neck and she's like blushing. And she goes, "Oh no, not now." And then she gets like a pink aura around her and she gets all sweaty. And her eyes get all big and black and lifeless like. And then we have flowers just going nuts. Outside, inside, everywhere. We cut to a bunch of different characters all over Olympus. Eros and Psyche are at like a pool with a baby. I don't know what's going on there. But
It's like, oh, remember these characters?
yeah, Hestia.
It's not, yeah, Eros and Psyche, but I don't think he knows that that's Psyche yet.
No, but what's with the baby?
That was his brother.
Okay.
In the chapter where she goes to Eros' house. It's just to be like, remember these guys? I haven't forgotten about them.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah, so then Hades is all finished, and he goes, "Hopefully you're satisfied now," and then there's flowers everywhere, and he goes, "Are you okay?" And she goes, "Yeah, I'm just a little overheated. It's pretty warm in here, right? You look flustered. You're not getting sick, are you? You do feel a little warm." And then she goes, "You don't have to do that." So she's acting all awkward, but I don't understand what this scene was supposed to visualize. But then,
I don't know what this is supposed to be.
Yeah.
But I thought it was like a weird reaction to being uncontrollably attracted to Hades as Kronos, like when he looks like Kronos. But I don't know what the purpose of this is. And again, it's like, if that's the case, then how come she had a stronger emotional reaction with her powers to seeing Hades put a guy's eye back in than she did when when confronting Apollo?
Because putting a guy's eye back in is just so inherently erotic.
Oh, what the F? I don't get it. Was it because he was wearing a doctor uniform? Like, does she have like a doctor fetish? I don't get it.
Yeah.
I legitimately don't understand. I don't understand the point of the scene. I legitimately have no idea what's going on here. Like, I don't understand.
Why
like,
does-
maybe, like, if she wanted to have this reaction, why didn't she have this reaction when he held her hand?
But
Why didn't she have this reaction when they were hanging out in the garden together?
What about when he saved her from
What
Tower
about
4?
when they almost kissed in Tartarus?
Yeah, when he saved her from Tower 4.
I don't know. It just came out of nowhere and for no real reason.
But why does Hades look like that when he's putting the guy's eye back in?
I don't know. And I thought, is it because she's attracted to his Kronos form, which is the form that he's like most, like, insecure about, because everyone says he looks like Kronos.
But why does he look like that when he puts the guy's eye back in?
I don't know.
What is he doing to put the guy's eye back in? Does he have healing powers?
I don't know. And then if she is attracted to Kronos, and Kronos becomes like the big bad later, why would you make her attracted to the villain? Yeah, I don't get it. Shouldn't she be more attracted to his normal form and say, like, you look nothing like Kronos? I don't understand.
Yeah, I just don't understand the whole scene.
I don't understand the point of the scene.
Maybe somebody smarter than us can explain it to us, but yeah, it's very confusing. And then so she's got flowers all over her, and she's in the bathroom in her underwear.
Another unnecessary voyeuristic shot
Yeah, and
for
she
no
goes,
reason.
I don't want him to see me like this, but this may be the last time I get to spend time with him like this. This is ridiculous. I feel like I'm going through second puberty. So that lends credence to the idea that she was, like, super into it.
Well, not only that, but, like, it's so random. They've been together, like we just said, they've been in closer situations, more intimate situations than this.
Yeah, the phone call where she asks him, how come you're not married, comes to mind.
And it's just weird. And again, we get more internal monologuing here than, like, most points in the story.
When she was at the gynecologist's office.
Yeah. She had very little internal reflection when she was at the gynecologist's office.
Yeah, she just said
And
that
we
was
get tons
unpleasant.
here.
That was unpleasant, and then she went dumpster diving.
Yeah.
And then they set up a bunch of, like, rules and boundaries for what they should and shouldn't be doing with each other. And so she starts talking about, well, it's not very fun, to have rules and boundaries, but no texting each other between the hours of 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. And she looks very different, like a different person in that panel when she says that.
No, this is, like, the other thing is that, at this point in the comic, you already start to get a lot of the copy-paste panels. Like, they're being copy-pasted a lot more than they were in the beginning.
Yeah. And it's weird because between the two of them, she's 19 and he's, like, the 40-year-old.
45-year-old.
Yeah, 2,000-year-old, 45-year-old. So why is she setting boundaries?
Well, not only that, but he has way more internal monologuing than she does.
Yeah.
Way more. He's calling himself a coward, say something, say anything. She shared her feelings with you and you're giving her nothing. Blah, blah, blah. But, dude, she shared her feelings with you and you're giving her nothing. When she said, I really like you, or am I just imagining it, he confirmed that.
Yeah.
So he already confirmed that he has feelings for her.
Yeah.
So why are we having this scene, which is literally 2-3 episodes later, where he's acting like he doesn't have the courage to tell her how he feels about her? Because he already did.
Yeah, and it's very overly dramatic where he's got this internal screaming. In one panel, it's all, well, he says, I'll see you around the office. But it's really a bunch of hullabaloo about nothing because, like we said, we've already had more intimate interactions between the two of them.
Well, not
before
only
this.
that, but she said, I don't want to be in this relationship with you when you're with Minty, but she never told him to pick one. And then he said, so do you not want me to talk to you anymore? And she said no and ran into his arms.
Yeah.
So why is this being treated like a breakup?
Yeah.
Or like, let's just stay friends thing. Because
Yeah.
she didn't say let's just stay friends or I don't want to be romantic with you. She said let's go slower.
Yeah.
Even though you're already in a relationship.
Exactly.
So what's going on?
Yeah, and then he calls himself a coward for some reason. I don't understand what's cowardly. I mean, what do you mean? Coward about what?
She told you how she feels about you and you're giving her nothing. But she didn't tell him what she feels for him. She just said we need to set up boundaries.
Yeah. So, but
Then she never said let's just be friends either.
But what's coward got to do with anything? Is he calling himself a coward because he's like, you're not going to choose between her and Minty? You're a coward because you won't make the decision? Like, what does coward have to do with anything?
Because he won't tell her how much he likes her. But if he liked her, then why doesn't he just break up with Minty?
Yeah, because when Minty says, do you want her? He says, are you jealous to Minty? Instead of being like, do I want her? I don't know. It's like when, in the scene with Minty...
You know, he should have been calling himself a coward when he ran back to Minty.
Yeah.
Not when he's talking to Persephone. He should have been calling himself a coward if you had the proposal scene. That would have been Hades taking the easy route, because he's like, do I risk it all with Persephone, or do I go for the woman that I've already had, even though I don't love her?
Yeah.
And instead of Minty being abusive, he can be like, I recognize that I don't love Minty. I haven't for a long time. It's just that she's familiar and she's comfortable. You know, we will never work out in the long run because we're too different, and, Minty's too insecure, blah, blah, blah. My family doesn't like her, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, I'm a coward because I'm choosing the woman that's easier, more comfortable, and more predictable than choosing Persephone, who at this point, I don't know if she likes me, instead of Persephone being like a friggin' clingy dog where she's always hugging him and coming onto him and kissing his cheek. She should be keeping a distance and shy, and he should be like, I'm a coward because I'm choosing the woman that I already have that I don't really love over the woman that I don't know her feelings for me, and it would be hard to build a relationship with her.
Yeah.
That would have been the real cowardly thing.
Yeah.
To keep the woman that you don't love instead of going after the woman that you actually like because it's harder.
Exactly.
That's actually cowardly.
Because he doesn't know if he could handle a rejection from Persephone.
Or if she even likes him.
Yeah.
He should be like, does she even like me? Or is it just
Exactly.
in my head?
Yeah, but we don't get that, obviously. And so he walks off, but then for some reason he runs back. And then he taps on the door, but the door, he's taller than the door.
Yeah.
For some reason. But why did he come back?
Because he wanted to tell Persephone that, F you, I'm gonna text you between the hours of 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. if I darn well feel like it.
No, he didn't say that, though.
No, he didn't.
So why'd he come back?
Because he said, tell her how much you like her. You should just, if I tell her how much I like her, will that just make things harder for her?
Well, he could text
So
her.
she's basically like, we should take things slow, don't text me, and like, let's set up a boundary. And then he says, okay, and then he's like, I'm a coward because I didn't tell her how much I like her. But dude, if someone's trying to set up a boundary with you because you already have a girlfriend, what is you telling them that you love them going to accomplish except like being very manipulative?
Yeah, because
that's so manipulative.
He still won't choose.
He won't choose. He'll just tell her, but Persephone, I love you. And she'll be like, but you have Minty.
Exactly.
If you love me, then break up with Minty and then we'll talk, you know?
Yeah, like she says it's not fair for me, to do this with you while you have Minty. She's not saying it's not fair for you to do this to me while you have Minty.
Exactly.
That's where the blame should lie.
That's where the blame should lie.
So, it's just crazy. So then...
And him telling her that he loves her is just a douche move.
It is.
It's not helping things, because what he really should do, if he was calling himself a coward, is call Minty up and break up with her.
Yeah.
Go to a cafe, call Minty up, can we meet? Go to a cafe, break up with her, then go see Persephone, knock on the door, Hestia's there. That would have been better.
It would have been. It would have given them breathing room, too. It's again, a thing with pacing where it's like, just stop the thought there, let some time pass. Please.
Stop front-loading the relationship when it's been 5 days.
Please.
A week. It's been a week. Stop front-loading the relationship.
Yeah. So then the next chapter, chapter 91, picks up with Hestia opening the door, and Persephone's right there, and she makes a face at him. And then Hestia knows that the pants match the jacket, and she goes, hey, it's like you two were just together. Is that why you're late for the meeting? And then, that's Athena, right? Mm-hmm. Athena's there, and she goes, oh, Uncle Hades, it's so good to see you. How are you? And so, I'm guessing Athena is like... Is she, like, gay?
She's a... Well, later on they... This is really problematic, but later on they reveal that Athena and Hestia are in a relationship, even though they're in the goddesses of eternal maidenhood.
That's a loophole.
Yeah, because I guess lesbians aren't really having a sexual relationship.
Yeah, like that's the loophole.
That's so homophobic.
It doesn't count.
That's extremely homophobic, but yeah, she is gay.
Another thing,
and she ends up being in a relationship with Hestia.
The thing that's it's annoying to me that jumps out about her character is she looks like a smaller version of all the other men in the story, and you don't see any other woman look like that because all the other women are like presumed straight.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, only the gay woman looks different facially.
Yeah.
Every other woman looks identical. They all
Hecate doesn't look like all the other women.
Yeah, but she's not. Again, she's never shown to be like.
She's like aromantic.
Yeah, to have any sexual
asexual
desire or romantic desire at all.
Yeah.
And it's like, if it's a woman who has something to do with a guy, you better believe
she's a straight woman.
She's gonna look a certain way.
Yeah.
So that's very strange to me. But so she shows up, she gives Hades a big old hug, and then Hestia tells her it's not proper for you, Persephone, to spend time with a gentleman without a chaperone. And then she goes, I was just telling Hades about the latest charity project on template restoration.
I think that was supposed to be temple restoration.
Yeah, temple restoration. Because my brain processed it at the time as temple restoration.
Me too, but now I just realized it's template restoration.
Yeah, so Hades goes along with it and says he's going to do a donation, and then she invites him in to watch a presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And so Artemis is really upset for some reason. And then it's chaotic. She goes, what are you doing inviting the king of the underworld into my home? And she goes, looking at him makes my pure Olympian body burn. Why? Why does she hate Hades so much?
Because he's the king of the underworld.
But why? How does
Because he's a man.
But her brother,
I know.
Hermes.
I know. It's because Artemis is in the comics so little that she doesn't have a character. That's why. Every time she shows up, she has a totally different character.
Yeah. And so she says, we might be able to convince him to make an ongoing donation. This could finally be our chance to get that community center built. And she goes, great work, Persephone. Make Hades a drink, won't you? And it's like, she was so upset about seeing Persephone with Hades in the paparazzi photo that she took the jacket. But then here, she's like, oh yeah, keep working your magic toots. You know, see if you can squeeze more from that stone.
Yeah, go make him a drink.
Yeah. And then she goes, are you going all the way to Athens to get that drink?
And change into a lower cut dress.
Yeah, and so Persephone's embarrassed. And she goes, this is so embarrassing. Why can't today just end? But what's embarrassing about it? Because nothing happens in the following discussion that's embarrassing.
No.
It's not like she says, okay, Persephone, you give the presentation to Hades. And she's like fumbling over her words and everything.
Yeah.
What's embarrassing?
Nothing.
And then we cut to Zeus and his car got keyed.
Ha!
Hades' car should have gotten keyed.
I know, right?
Yes.
Minthy should have keyed Hades' car.
Yeah. So then Aphrodite is there at his house hugging Ares. And so Ares and Aphrodite are in a relationship, but they're not married. And then that brings us to episode 92, where Ares chews out Zeus for sleeping with Aphrodite, and they get in a fight. And so he's also Zeus's son. And this is where I get to a point where it's like, why would you choose to keep these aspects of the mythology? Because Ares is also Eros' dad.
Mm-hmm.
And Persephone and Ares have history.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, why would you choose to keep those elements into the story?
Even if you did, why did Persephone have to be 19? She's the only character in the whole comic who's that young. She's the youngest character in the comic except for Hebe. Because Artemis Artemis doesn't go to school. Neither does Eros. Like, no other character goes to school. Apollo doesn't go to school.
Yeah.
So, like, why is Persephone so young? I don't get it.
Yeah, so then we cut from Ares and Zeus back to Hestia, and she's got a embroidered dress for the ceremony. What ceremony is it, by the way?
Some ceremony. Induction ceremony, I think.
Like the scholarship ceremony?
The induction, like the official induction ceremony.
So Hades, being the dumb
I mean,
idiot,
but that's me guessing. There's no... They say, like, Zeus said she hasn't been confirmed yet, or she hasn't gone through the formal process yet. So I'm guessing there's, like, an induction ceremony, but that's me speculating. That's not in the text.
You know, it'd be really useful for Artemis to, like, just explain what's going on.
I know, and give Artemis
Yeah.
some screen time. Or during the actual presentation.
Yeah.
The presentation could have been a time, because we're, like, 90 episodes in, and we still don't know what this scholarship does.
Yeah.
We're 2 years into the story, and we don't know what the scholarship does. This presentation could have been, like, your time to put in the exposition of what the scholarship does, what its benefits are, what its full-time members do.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what they do.
But the presentation is treated like a gag, because then they cut, and they say, well, that was such a boring presentation. And so Hades, being the dumb idiot that he is, makes the check out to Persephone and not the goddesses of eternal maidenhood. And then he says, Hestia says, I trust you to sort this out. And on the back of the check, he writes a thank you note, but there's no spot to endorse or anything like that. But Persephone, why would you trust her to figure that out when she doesn't even know how she's getting paid for her internship?
I don't even know if she has a bank account. She doesn't have a bank account because they have to get her a bank account later in the story. That literally takes an entire episode where she gets a bank account.
Why would he make a check out to her then?
I don't know how he's paying her. Like, the day one of your job is putting up your, like, filling out your W-2, putting in your bank information.
They didn't put the routing number on the check either.
No. Well,
So how is she supposed to sort that out?
I don't know.
So she pockets the check. And then he goes back home and he says, Gah, why won't today just end? But then Zeus texts him about Code Red, and Ares is still beating him up. And then he talks about how he was sent away on a months-long war campaign. And then he's really upset about him, and then they fight, and Zeus has the audacity to say it was consensual between him and
That's
Aphrodite.
fake. It was a Me Too situation.
Yeah.
It was a coerced situation. It was about as consensual as Apollo and Persephone.
Yeah.
It was a transactional, extortional situation.
Yeah. And so they fight some more. And I don't know, I mean, Zeus is such a scumbag, but I don't hear nearly as much criticism about him
As
from
Apollo?
the fan. Not just from Apollo, but like Minthy and Thetis.
Mm-hmm.
like, Zeus is a horrible scumbag.
Mhm.
And everybody's like, oh, what are you gonna do about Zeus? Hades is like, oh, he's my brother. What can I say? You plucked a guy's eye out.
No, like, I don't understand why Zeus and Aphrodite is consensual, like I said, but Apollo and Persephone is coercion.
No, but, like, if Hades and Hera had a thing, and he plucked a guy's eye out for making rumors about Persephone,
Yeah.
you're telling me that no paparazzi ever caught him and Hera, first of all. Second of all, he never wanted to get back at Zeus with anger like that because of what he did to Hera.
No, he has, like, when Hera's like, we have a lot of problems, he's cheating on me, blah, 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 he's like, oh, I trust you to sort that out on your own. But when Minty slaps him, he's like, oh.
No, when,
Hera drops everything to go comfort Hades when
Yeah.
Minty slaps him.
Yeah.
And then when she tries to talk about Zeus, he's like, well, you know, that's between you and Zeus.
Yeah.
This is uncomfortable for me. It's like when Hecate started talking about when she spent time in the mortal realm, he just cut her off. He's like,
Yeah.
I don't care about that. You have to realize that everything revolves around me and Persephone. Okay, this is a Persephone and Hades show.
Yeah,
I don't
Hades-
care about your abusive marriage, Hera. I don't care about your toxic relationship. What's more important is that Minty slapped me, okay?
Yeah, Hades is just such a scumbag. So then Hades shows up and he goes, what's the code red? And then he gets decked by Ares. And then Hera comes out and she tries to stop him and then she gets elbowed in the face. And then
Mhm.
that's the end of that chapter. So then Ares is like, oh gosh, Ma. And then Zeus is worried and he goes, look what you did, you stupid idiot. It was an accident and I wouldn't have done it if it weren't for you. So then they're all saying, everyone shut up. And Hera, like, puts an end to the shenanigans. And Ares gets out of there. She tells everybody to get out of her sight. And then Poseidon shows up somehow. And he goes, some help you were. Where the heck have you been? And he shows up with beer cans. So then Zeus, laying low for a while, they go to the mortal realm.
This is so pointless. This shows up, they go to the mortal realm to see Semele, and it's like, this is so pointless. Does this ever come back? I don't remember this ever coming back. It has nothing to do with anything. You're just introducing more characters.
Yeah.
You're introducing more characters and more plot lines for no reason. Like, what happened? There's so many things we could be spending time on. We could be spending time on the fertility goddess angle. We could be spending time on Kronos. We could be spending time on Apollo. We could be spending time on Ares. We could be spending time on the Act of Wrath. There's so many things that you could be spending time on, but instead we're wasting this time in the mortal realm.
Yeah, and we get like 1, 2, 3, 4 panels dedicated towards Hades giving a coin to a lady.
Yeah, for no reason.
Yeah, and it's weird, just from like a logical point of view, Zeus gets attacked by Ares for cheating, well, for, you know, basically coercing his girlfriend into sex, and then immediately he goes to the mortal realm to sleep with another girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
That's bizarre.
It's really weird.
That's bizarre even for Zeus as we know him. It's very strange. And then Hades says, and why does Hades go along with it? Why doesn't he go, no, like, look, you did something wrong, own up to it.
Well, not only that, this is what all of your problems boil down to.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand why Hades, why we're supposed to have so much, like, you know, what is it? Is it pathos for Hades? We're supposed to have so much pathos for Hades. Meanwhile, he hangs out with womanizers and abusers and a literal rapist and does nothing to stop it.
Yeah.
Like, what about men holding men accountable? You know, hashtag Me Too.
Yeah.
Like, he's basically hanging out with Trump right here.
One
And I'm
side.
I'm supposed to feel bad for him.
He's hanging out with his
Like,
brother.
I don't care about Hades. He's not a good person. He's friends and, like, he encourages. He literally brought Zeus to the friggin' mortal realm to go, like, you know, what's it called? To go womanize more random women and cheat on Hera,
Yeah.
the woman that he supposedly cares so much about.
And then he tells Hera, hey, look, every time you have problems with Zeus, don't come running to me.
Yeah, it's not my
But
it's
I'm
not
gonna
my
help
problem.
your husband cheat on you some more.
Yeah, exactly. He's helping Zeus cheat on her, but when Hera's like, hey, I want to talk about my problems, he's like, oh, not my business.
Yeah.
Not my business.
Yeah. So then we get some Zeus with this random lady, and it's very purposeless.
Yeah,
And-
why are there so many panels where he's giving this lady a coin?
I don't know.
Like, well, it's just, like, grinds the whole story to a halt for no reason.
Yeah, like, I forgot what they were talking about because I was so fixated on the coin. And then when you have the coin, and then he goes back to talking about Zeus's girlfriend. And it's like, the lady he gave the coin, that was Zeus's girlfriend?
No.
Oh, no, it wasn't. Because then in episode 94, we cut back to Zeus and his girlfriend, and there's a strange interaction that's weird. She's talking about how everything's boring around here, And then she says, the loom is so boring. I guess this is like another attempt at bringing in another Greek myth.
Yeah.
Right? And she goes, I kind of want to set fire to the loom and see what my father will do. It's like so bizarre. These guys just slept together and she's talking about setting fire to a loom. I had no idea what they were talking. I'm not familiar with the original myths.
No, I think most of the people reading this are not familiar with the original myths.
Yeah, and he goes...
I assumed it was related to the myth because it just came out of nowhere, and it just seemed like a reference for the sake of having a reference.
Yeah, and then he goes, man, this chick is unhinged. Hot. Again, that's disgusting. I mean, is that supposed to be funny? It's not funny. I don't find Zeus charming or funny. I think he's a scumbag. So then, meanwhile, Hades is doing Will Graham 3.0. He finds a little puppy in a cage. Why is the puppy in the cage?
I don't know.
Who put that puppy in the cage?
Again, it's like I don't know what to do next. Oh, let's have Zeus rescue another puppy. You know? Like, that's what it just feels like. It's like, oh, I don't know what to do next. Let's have Zeus. You know, like, maybe she was, like, scrolling on Instagram and she saw a cute dog, and she's like, that dog is so cute, let's put it in the comic. Or she adopted a dog in real life around the same time as this comic. As this episode is being written, she's like, let me put this dog in the comic. Like, it just feels so random. It's like, there's literally no reason. There's so many things we could be spending story time on, but instead, we have a stupid dog.
Yeah, why is he saving a puppy? What does it have to do with anything? And so then they get out of there because Semile's dad comes out, and he goes, how dare you defile my daughter in such a way? Papa, stop, I love him. I do not want to deal with this. Ah, young love. And then they all go back to...
So that was basically
Olympus.
a pointless chapter.
Yeah. Like,
It was a pointless episode.
What's the point? What comes from that?
Nothing.
Is it, like, supposed to be funny? Because, again, it's not funny.
It's not funny. It's just, it feels like a waste of time.
You could have cut straight from him saying, let's lay low for a while, to back to Hades' house.
I know.
Poseidon is in the indoor pool, and Zeus is on the sofa.
Yep. Them going to the mortal realm was nothing. It didn't go anywhere.
He saved a puppy, and that's it. And then Zeus says, I know I'm a crappy husband. And then you get this, which is so confusing. Now we have Pomegranate Zero, and Pomegranate is a soda again. But the first time it was a soda, it was the Pomegranate X Series soda. And then it was the Pomegranate X Series laptop. And then it was the Pomegranate B Series cell phone. What is Pomegranate? Pomegranate Zero. So enjoy the same delicious taste with 0 calories.
Can you imagine if Apple had phones and laptops and then also, like, an apple soda?
Yeah, Tim Apple soda. It's so refreshing.
What the heck?
It's bizarre. And why are they showing the soda commercial when he's talking about Hera?
I don't know. This is because the model in the soda commercial, I think that's Daphne. She comes in later.
Yeah, but why would you introduce her as a model in a soda commercial?
I don't know.
Why would you call the soda pomegranate?
I don't... Because you couldn't call it fig, you know?
You could have called it chaos, like apple soda.
No, because, like, there's, you know, Greek fruits are, like, pomegranates, dates, figs, and then all the citrus fruit. You could have made it...
but Underworld Corp's...
Blood
like,
orange. Blood orange.
Underworld Corp, their, like, logo is a pomegranate.
Yeah, you could have left it like that,
The
like
implication,
apple.
The implication is that Hades is the CEO behind the soda.
Yeah.
So...
I don't know. I don't know what Underworld Corp does. If they produce everything, then it's like a monopoly.
Yeah.
And then everything is just branded pomegranate. For no reason. Even though one company can have like 50 billion different brands, like Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah, I don't understand.
It's just really bad world building. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's just confusing and annoying when it keeps showing up as like a joke. But it's like, this is a joke that just makes me think about your world building and how bad it is.
Exactly. And it's bizarre to have a joke like that during a serious conversation about how Zeus loves Hera and how Hades is telling him, try not to worry about things you can't fix right now. I'm so distracted by the Pomegranate Zero that I do not care what they're talking about.
No, this is the point in the story where she keeps cutting to jokes, like the mortal realm. She keeps interrupting serious plot lines like Apollo with Ares, you know? She keeps cutting away from the hard stuff to go back to the cute jokes and, like, the character interaction and stuff because she doesn't know what to do with the serious plots.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't know how to resolve Zeus and Hera's relationship. So she just cut to the mortal realm because, you know, cool reference to another Greek myth, you know? But that doesn't add anything to the story. It just distracts and detracts from the story.
He hasn't talked about or thought about Minty this entire time.
He hasn't thought about Minty slapping him, which happened in episode, like, 72. And this is, like, episode 94. So he hasn't thought about that in the last 6 months in real life.
Instead of shenanigans with his loser brothers and adopting a random puppy, because it's very convoluted, because eventually the puppy has like some sort of purpose, and that is once he gets the puppy all cleaned up, he tries to take a picture of the puppy and says, I bet Persephone would love you. I probably shouldn't text her right now. I forgot about that stuff. Because I think the creator realizes that she needs to put some space in between when they set up the rules and when he gets the idea to text her again. But you could have him working at his office.
You could have him talking to Minty and breaking up with
Yeah,
her.
have him talking to Minty, or like have him go out. We never see Hades go out, enjoy a lunch, go shopping, and see an outfit that he thinks Persephone would love. And then he reaches for his phone and he goes, ah. Or he sees something that reminds him of a joke that they have, like an inside joke. And he's like, no. I mean, anything.
No, it just feels like she wasted your time for the last 2 episodes, and she's like, oh yeah, Hades and Persephone, let me just ham-fist that in here somehow.
Yeah, because it cuts from that night when he leaves the presentation to them going to the mortal realm to back to here. And then he's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that stuff. And it's like so much random stuff happened in between where you didn't really feel like there was breathing room. It's like the illusion of stuff happening without anything actually happening.
Mm-mm.
So he says, I need to respect Persephone's wishes and give her the space she asked for. Why do I feel like we broke up even though we're not even together? Yeah, why do you though? And then he says, I hope she's doing okay. None of this would have happened if I just managed to keep my distance like I was supposed to. One thing is still really bothering me though. Persephone's frightened of Apollo. Why? And why was he waiting outside her home?
Yeah, bro, that was like, too bad that was like 10 chapters ago, right? That was like 3 months ago, right?
Yeah.
In the meanwhile, we've been wasting our time in the mortal realm.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what the last 10 episodes were.
No.
Ares? I guess Ares was there?
Ares and the classmates and the Monday
And the hospital scene.
The hospital scene with the eyeball and the Zeus.
Why didn't he ask her about Apollo when he saw her at his office?
He could have asked Zeus, hey, you know Apollo, let me ask you something. This is weighing on my mind. Last night when I dropped Persephone off, because Zeus says how to go with Persephone last night, he could have said, dude, it was really weird, Apollo was there. Do you know anything about this? Are those guys like together or something? He goes, well, Hera did say something about that.
But she's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, don't pay attention to her. And then he's like, Hera said something? And then he goes, Hera, what's this about Apollo and Persephone? You gotta tell me everything. And she goes, oh, Hades, oh, thank God. I feel like I'm going nuts here because Zeus is telling me that I'm crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I can talk to you about this because you would believe me.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I think happened.
And then he hires a PI to tail Apollo because he's paranoid.
I mean, Hera didn't even bring it up with Hades.
Dude, he didn't even bring it up with Persephone when he saw her and they had like 5 episodes together because I think Rachel forgot that was a plot. And she was like, oh yeah, 12 episodes later, let me ham-fist that in there, even though it has nothing to do with what's going on.
So he suddenly remembers that Apollo, she's scared of Apollo, he's outside of her house. Was it a one-time thing or does it happen all the time? And then he looks at the social media and Apollo posted today at 11:15 a.m., get to hang out with this cutie today, #blessed. And then Daphne says, lucky. And then Persephone says, can you take this down?
But that wasn't today, that was like a week ago when they were hanging out at the mall, remember?
No, because I think the crepes episode is the next episode.
Oh.
So he's recycling a picture. But nobody does that in real life. That they post a social media post like this and they say, get to hang out with this cutie today. And then they bring a picture up that we saw earlier. I mean, that's like so transparent because Hades is looking at that for everybody to see.
Because he never took a picture with her when they were doing the crepe stuff.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is an old picture that he's bringing up and he's announcing to everybody.
Okay, so the next episode's a flashback then.
The crepes thing?
Yeah.
No.
Well, then how come Apollo says, I get to hang out with this cutie today, but that doesn't happen until next episode?
I don't know what... He's going to sleep right now.
Yeah, but it says today at 11:15 a.m.
Yeah, and then she's crying.
And she's crying, hugging Hades' coat.
Yeah, and then she confirms the Hades friend request. Let's go to the next episode, because I don't remember if it is.
I don't remember if it's a flashback. Because I just remember seeing that picture that Apollo posted, and I was like, wait a minute, that happened like a week ago in the timeline. I've been paying attention to the timeline.
No.
Because it's the worst aspect of this series.
Because the next episode after that, she goes to Eros' house. So she's not back in bed crying after the crepes thing, because Eros comes in and interrupts it. So it can't be a flashback, because then we just keep moving forward in the timeline. So
wait, why is she sleeping on the floor?
I don't know.
And she wasn't crying with Hades' coat.
I don't know. Yesterday was really crummy. My whole class hates me. Hopefully
Why is she sleeping on the floor?
I don't know. Maybe I could bake something and take it to class. Rice Krispie treats probably won't make up for the eyeball thing. I got Hades' jacket all crumpled. I guess, it could have been the case that she sees Hades doing the friend request and then she gets up and then she puts his jacket away and then she just lies down on the ground. Like, it doesn't really matter that she's sleeping on the floor. But
no, it does, but like, why is she sleeping on the floor and why did Apollo post the picture on a day that he doesn't see her?
Yeah, on Monday he didn't hang out with her.
No!
So he said get to hang out with this cutie today. He didn't say tomorrow.
No. What's going on?
I don't understand. I think,
What is going on? I feel like she was trying to set something up and then forgot what she was trying to set up.
Yeah.
Like maybe she was supposed to do a flashback in the next episode and forgot.
Yeah.
Because she just picks up from the next day. She doesn't pick up like earlier that day in the next episode.
No.
And then show Apollo coming over to make crepes. Because we never see why Persephone was crying.
No.
She was, I guess the only reason she was crying with his jacket is because she told him to keep boundaries from her.
Yeah. Because she says, oh, I got his jacket all crumpled, and she gives it a deep sniff. And she says, doing the right thing is hard. And then we get back to, I already feel like I'm being dishonest by using the scholarship. I don't need the pressure of being the other woman as well. But I know Eros said it wasn't my fault, but it still doesn't feel right. So she's talking about being assaulted and how that kind of negates her from the scholarship. But again, that was not part of the discussion at all with Hades. And she keeps going back to it. And she goes, I just need to hold out and pay back the scholarship. Hopefully by then I'll have a clear head. That's all I need to worry about for now. I'm glad Hades still wants to be my friend. I was worried he might freeze me out. Again, these thoughts are so, like, superficial. And it's like, you could have her thinking about all sorts of things, right?
You could have the walls, I really want the walls closing in on Persephone, making her act desperate and do crazy things.
Yeah, like...
I want to see I want to see Persephone under pressure, because right now she's a very boring character.
Yeah, like, if she got, like, she's like, hey, you know, Hades paying me for the internship is not going to pay it back fast enough. I need to get a second job. You know, she goes into town and she tries to get a second job.
Yeah.
And she's like trying to do the hustle culture.
Yeah.
Sets her alarm 6 a.m., sneaks out of the house. Artemis doesn't see me, because if Artemis saw me doing the second job, she'd get suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
And then her second job, she runs into Apollo or something, and she gets so ticked off. And she's like, oh my gosh, this guy, you know, and then he's like, oh, what are you doing? And then he takes a picture with her and puts it on social media. Like, maybe she works at a burger stand and she's flipping burgers.
Yeah.
And if you post it on social media, Hades sees that and he goes, what is she doing? She's working at a burger joint? What is this?
And then he, like, maybe tries to, like, maybe he gets jealous because he sees her with Apollo, and then he's like, you have an exclusive employment contract with the underworld, because that's usually in most employment contracts. Not that we ever see her signing an employment contract, because, I don't know, maybe they don't have employment law in New Zealand or something. But, yeah, usually you can't have another income-producing job while you work for a corporation. So, I mean, Hades could see that on social media and be like, as a condition of employment with my company, you were only supposed to be working exclusively with my company. Is the pay not good enough or something?
Yeah.
And then he'd be like, oh, is Apollo pressuring you into doing something?
Yeah. And then she could be like, look, man, you're not supposed to be paying me at all, and actually, I really need the money, and what difference does it make if I work at this burger place on the weekend? It's none of your business.
Well, not only that, if that's how you feel, then, you know, I would rather quit the underworld job and get 2 jobs from someplace else. Yeah, like, yeah, it's a great opportunity, but I don't want to, you know, if you're going to prohibit me from working someplace else, then I'll just work 2 jobs elsewhere.
Exactly.
You know, I could tutor kids at my school and make money that way, and, like, maybe she can start doing people's homework, too.
Yeah.
You know, I could tutor people at school, do their homework, and make money that way, and not have to worry about running into issues at the underworld corporation. Plus, if she's getting bullied, she might feel super burned out and like she doesn't want to work there anyway.
Yeah, and she's
like the pressure is getting to her.
She's like, Hades, you haven't done a single thing for me while I've been here. Like,
in fact, being around you has only made my life worse.
Yeah. Because
the paparazzi's hounding after me. Minty friggin' hates me. I'm getting bullied. My classmates think I'm like your sugar baby, and like they want to do favors for me to earn your trust, or earn your favor.
And then she could say, the worst thing of all of it is, no matter how difficult it is, every time I see you, I can't help but feel like butterflies in my chest, and it's not something that I can turn off. And then he's like, I had no idea, because he says, oh, she doesn't know that she's torturing me, that little minx. That's stupid. Give that to Persephone. And she goes, he's torturing me. Like, even though all these horrible things are happening because of him, whenever I see him, I get butterflies, because I've got a big, stupid crush on him from the time we first met.
And I just want to get over it, because we can never be together.
Exactly, and it's tragic.
And then that confrontation would force him to admit that he likes her and, like, want to make her life easier for her.
Yeah.
And get him to do something actually nice for her for once.
Yeah, so she quits the Underworld Corp, and on her last day, he says, technically, you don't work here anymore. Tears up her employment record, and then he kisses her on the mouth.
Yeah.
And then she goes, what was that? And he goes, well, you're not my employee anymore, so it doesn't matter. And then she goes, whoa.
You're still engaged to Minty.
Yeah, whoa. And he's like, oh man, why did I do that? Oh my god. And then she's like, okay, put it out of your head. And she tries to make herself busy in her new job, and then she, like, friggin' slashes Apollo's tires, and she's living her best life, and posting all this stuff on social media, and meanwhile, Minty and Hades are at the dress fitting, and she's like, what do you think? And he's like, oh, it looks really great. You know, like, that would be like, oh my gosh, Persephone's doing it, and then her mom comes to visit, and they have a great time, you know? I mean, there's a lot of stuff you could have done. And so But anyway, cutting back to the main story now.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, she says, I'm glad Hades still wants to be my friend. I was worried he might freeze me out. And then Artemis announces that Apollo's there and he's making breakfast for them. So Persephone obviously wants to avoid Apollo. And then Artemis again says, oh, I know you and Apollo got off on the wrong foot, but it would mean a lot to me if you would try to get along with him. Persephone doesn't owe Artemis anything.
No, she doesn't. And Artemis is the one who said no man allowed in my house.
Yeah.
And basically accused her of being a slag.
Yeah.
No man in my house. Why are you inviting guys here all the time? You know?
Yeah.
Why are you inviting guys here all the time, Artemis? And your brother sucks. He's a freaking rapist.
Yeah, like you have to be like
Like an idiot not to know that.
Yeah, and she goes, I'm not sure what happened with the two of you, but maybe if you told me, I could help. And then she goes, it's fine, I'll join you in a second. And then Artemis says, I just wanted to say I'm really glad you're here with me. It's nice to finally have another member in the group. I always feel like a kind of third-wheeled Hestia and Athena. Again, I've never seen that before.
Because Artemis is barely in the story.
Yeah, she's barely in the story. And then Persephone lies and says, I like being here with you as well. We never see them hang out.
No,
ever.
no. She has more scenes with Eros, that she just met, who's now her BFF, than with Artemis.
Yeah. And so Hermes is there, and he's got a ponytail. And so, for some reason, that's like the introduction to him in this scene. He's got a ponytail. Good for you, Hermes. I don't know. And so, then we get a mention of our boy Thanatos. So, he says that he's been doing extra shifts for Thanatos. But why? Why does Thanatos need him to cover a few shifts?
Because Thanatos is lazy, supposedly.
But he hasn't been in the story at all.
No, he hasn't been in the story at all.
And they haven't shown the internship for like a bunch of chapters.
Well, not only that, but the last time Hermes was in the story was only like 2 or 3 days ago. Because I think her first day was on like Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then Hermes was taking her to work on Thursday.
Yeah, and then she got Friday off.
And this is Tuesday. So Hermes, between Thursday and Tuesday, has been working extra shifts and is super busted, and he's talking like he's been doing extra shifts for like a month.
Yeah, he's had a month in the coal mine.
Yeah, but it's only been like 3 days, dude.
Yeah.
Like, what the F?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Haven't seen you in a while, Hermes. And so then, yeah, Apollo comes in, and then Hermes says he's been a huge diva all morning. And then Persephone says, sugar snaps, the liar. But the thing that's funny is she said, I wonder how long it's going to take for him to notice that it's missing. And she goes, has he noticed it's missing yet? It's been how many days since the liars went missing?
Friday night to Tuesday.
Okay. Does he
And
suspect-
if he didn't notice that it was missing, then it obviously wasn't even that important to him.
Yeah, it's like your phone. Like, I would notice my phone was missing. Like,
She
within
should
a
have just
couple of
destroyed
hours.
his car, dude.
Yeah, like, just destroy the car. And then she says, this is weird, because he's glancing at her. And then he says, don't be concerned, it's just a crepe. And then she says, maybe he's just trying to be nice. All I have to do is eat the stupid crepe and then I can leave. But that thought, maybe he's just trying to be nice. The last time she was thinking about Apollo, she said, I want to make you so scared of me that you're the one trembling behind the window. So where did that all go?
Well, not only that, but she says, this is weird, not, I hate this.
Yeah.
She said, this is weird, like she just ran into a guy that she had a one-night stand with, and
Yeah.
she's uncomfortable, not that she's talking to her rapist.
Yeah, who has potentially ruined her life.
I know.
And she said, like, again, in the short time I've known you, all you've done is take from me my dignity, my joy, my peace. Now I'm going to take something from you. Next time we meet, you're going to be the one behind a window who's struggling for words, not me. And then now it's like,
Did he even notice that I took the liar? This is weird. Maybe he's just trying to be nice.
Really?
Stupid.
so she goes, you can deal with this. And then she eats the crepe. And they say, oh, it's so good. And she goes, yeah, it's delicious. And then she says it tastes like styrofoam. But does it actually taste like styrofoam, or is it actually good?
I think it's just supposed to indicate that she's not having a good time because she just wants to leave.
Yeah, but why not have her just say that then, instead of saying tastes like styrofoam? Because now I'm confused. Are Hermes and Artemis lying about how good it is? Or does it actually taste like styrofoam? Because if it does, then why are they lying?
I think she just doesn't like anything about him because he's her rapist.
Yeah, but there's an easier way that's less...
I know, there's an easier
doesn't
way to
even have
show
to-
that. She doesn't even have to be here. She could have just climbed out her window.
Yeah.
Use her flying powers to fly out the window.
Yeah.
You don't have to keep forcing Apollo into the story and then have her reaction to him be so underwhelming.
Yeah.
Because it just makes me think that you forgot that he literally raped her 5 days ago.
Yeah.
And you
then
don't know how to write that.
Coming straight from the taste like styrofoam, then she wonders what her mom is doing.
For the
And
first time in 90 chapters.
Yeah.
In almost 2 years. For the first time in almost 2 years, she's like, I kind of miss my mom.
Yeah.
Not even I kind of miss my mom. I wonder what my mom is doing.
Yeah, she goes, she's probably getting breakfast ready for everyone right about now. I hope she's doing okay. I should really call her. I need to stop putting it off. So why is she thinking about this when nasty Apollo is right there.
Because you have to build up to the flashback next episode somehow.
Again, there was a better way to do that. Like, if she had gotten a package from her mom of, like, her favorite candy, and Apollo was like, oh, I want one, and she goes, no, it's mine, from my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Like, screw off, I don't want to give you any of the candy that my mom sent for me, specifically, you know? And then she goes, man, I wonder how my mom's doing right now, and then her mom has a handwritten letter, and then Apollo tries to read the letter, and she's like, what are you doing, you know? Like, mind your business! And then Artemis very conveniently has to go mess with some mortals, but she doesn't specify what she has to do.
I don't know what she does in the mortal realm. I don't
could've-
know what she does.
You could have said, I have to go do, and then what she does.
I don't know what she does.
I have to go hunt, right? She's the goddess of the hunt. I've got to go sure.
I've got to go secure some hunting parties, you know. I'm going to go hunting with a bunch of mortals today. I don't know what she does. I have no idea what she does.
And then Hermes says, you're going to the mortal realm? Can I
Dude,
come
she
with?
leaves him alone. She leaves Persephone alone with Apollo, even though Hestia said you're not allowed to be with a man without a chaperone.
Not only that, but
So Artemis...
She knows something happened between the two of them.
She's such a bad friend.
And then she goes, Persephone, I'm really glad you're here with me. And Persephone's like, I'm glad I'm here with you too.
She's such a bad friend.
She doesn't owe Artemis anything.
No, Artemis basically, at this point, is putting her in danger.
She's like an enabler.
Yeah.
So it's like, you don't owe her anything. Why would you not tell her what happened? Why would you feel like, oh, I don't want to hurt Artemis's feelings? She hasn't done anything for you the whole comic. The one time she was supposed to keep an eye on you at Zeus's party, if no men are allowed, why would you go to Zeus's party, first of all? But second of all, the one time she was supposed to keep an eye on you, she got distracted, and then Persephone got friggin', like, forced to drink all this alcohol by Eros.
I know. She's the worst friend.
She hasn't done anything for her, so why does Persephone feel beholden to her?
She just keeps putting her in dangerous situations.
But notice that she's totally fine with Artemis, but that guy said, thanks, I guess, and she wouldn't even stay in the hospital with him because he was rude for the eyeball
Yeah,
thing.
I know. Meanwhile, Artemis literally is putting her in harm's way all the time.
Yeah, and it's like, how are you going to tell a guy who was almost beaten to death and had his eye plucked out that he's rude, and then Artemis, I'm glad to be here with you, I don't want to disappoint Artemis. You don't owe her anything.
Stupid.
It's so ridiculous, and people are saying, oh, Persephone's just naive. No, this is like distractingly bad character writing.
Especially if you binge it. From
Yeah.
episode to episode, it's really bad.
No,
It's really, really bad.
it's very inconsistent, and it's written like Persephone is like not naive. It's written like she's unrealistically fluctuates between being naive and then like spiteful, but then sassy, but
Flirtatious.
this doesn't make any logical sense. It's like watching a really bad movie where a person does something that just doesn't make any sense, and the only explanation as to why they did it is because the writer wrote it like that.
Yeah.
The character themselves, you can't even look at the character's motivation anymore,
No.
because it just makes absolutely no sense.
No.
So, they leave her alone with Apollo, and she says, well, I've got a lot of bullet journaling to catch up on, so I'm going to leave you to it. And then he makes her stay with another crepe, and he goes, I said have another crepe. We have a lot to talk about. And then we get to episode 96. And this confrontation between Persephone and Apollo, especially with the long dramatic monologue after he left her to her house with Hades, honestly, it's disappointing. It's
Well,
like,
what about the Demeter flashback first?
oh my gosh. Yeah, let's talk about that. Episode 96. We have a lot to talk about. What should I do? What would Mama do? And then she has a flashback to her mom, Demeter. And it's this like ridiculous thing where Zeus comes in and Zeus says, hey, I need you to hide this nymph in your area of the realm because I was screwing around with Hera again and I don't want to get caught, basically, right? And so she says, no, I'm not going to do it for you. She stands up to him, but she doesn't stand up to him with a lot of confidence. She's very, like, weirdly meek, and then she says, I told you last time was the last time. My answer is no. And then she says, stop cheating on Hera, and I will not be forced to cover for you anymore. So you would think, oh, yeah, great. She stood up for him. She stood her ground. Awesome. Everything turned out well. But no, Zeus sets all of the crops on fire.
Yeah.
And then they all run and hide in
a bunker.
Yeah, the swimming hall or like some kind of shelter. And then she says, sorry, everyone. I should have just taken that girl on. This is all my fault. And all the women are saying, oh, don't feel bad. Zeus is just a bully and you shouldn't take his crap. And they all say, yeah. And then she goes, yeah, we will not take his crap. But then they don't show you how she fights back.
No.
Her crops are all on fire, and
No.
they're all hiding in a shelter.
This is like, what would Mama do? Oh, remember that one time she stood up to Zeus and he like freaking destroyed everything in the realm that she cared about? Yeah, I'm gonna use that as an example to stand up to Apollo. Like, if anything, that would be like, what would Mama do? Oh, I should definitely not do that.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get everything I love destroyed.
No, could you? And then she even apologizes. I'm sorry, everyone. We're not going to take his crap. But then they don't show. If they had showed her then coming out the next morning and using her powers to regrow everything that he burnt down.
Like, no matter what somebody tries to take away from you, you can always rebuild it back and stronger or something like that.
That would have been one thing. Or even she goes out into the storm, Zeus flying up there, striking everything down with lightning, and she sends a tree right up his butt, you know, like tangles him up in some vines, and says the beautiful thing about Mother Nature is that no matter how much you try to cut us down, we just come right back.
Yeah.
With enough love and care and nurturing, we can bounce back from anything. And that's, if you cared about Hera, you'd realize that your relationship isn't damaged beyond repair.
You can regrow it.
Yeah, you can regrow it with enough love, care, and nurturing, but you just don't, because all you do is destroy things. But I'm not going to let you destroy my valley. And then she just kicks his butt, and he runs off. And then it's like, yeah, that's what Mom would do. No, it's just, sorry, everyone, we're not going to take his crap. Yeah, we sure aren't. And then they're all huddled there while the crops are still on fire.
While the world turns into ashes.
Yeah, it's really...
It's like, oh, okay, what she did, I'm definitely not gonna do that, because that didn't turn out very well at all.
It's almost comical.
It's almost like, whoa, yeah, smash cut to Demeter completely failing.
Yeah, like, this is just... No, if you're trying to make a point there, that was not the way to make a point. And so she goes, my mother wouldn't put up with this, and neither should I. And then she says, I said I don't want another crepe, and I don't want to talk to you. But she's like stammering and stuttering, and she says, please leave. Again, huge juxtaposition to how she was with Ares. But I guess that's because Ares was using his powers on her. Again, I don't think so, because when she was in the car with Hades talking to Apollo, she had no problem telling him, like, no, I actually do care about Hades, go home.
Yeah.
Right? And then she got really mad when she was at home. And so then... Apollo says, you act like a brat every time I try to do something nice for you. And then he goes, you know, you should be lucky to be with me. Anybody would be over the moon to be hanging out with me. And then she goes, well, then why don't you go hang out with one of those other goddesses? And then he's like, but I like you. Don't you get it? I have feelings for you. And it's like, where is this coming from, Apollo? I don't understand. In the last chapter, he said, I've been texting you all night. Again, we never see those messages.
We never see those messages.
If she had seen those messages and it's like Apollo saying, hey, I know you're mad, but I want to make this work. I thought it was just a one-time thing, but I want to keep seeing you. Do you want to go to this concert with me? And she goes, oh, crap. Now he's starting to get feelings. You know, but this is like coming out of nowhere. He goes, I'm getting feelings for you. At first, I thought this was just a one-time fling, but what we had is truly special, and I can't think of anything else but you. And it's like... Bro, Apollo, we saw that scene where you coerced her. You took pictures and said, relax, it's just a one-time thing. I'm just taking pictures.
Well,
whatever, Persephone.
Not only that, but that happened in episode 24. And then he came back in, like, episode, 75, 76? And then he comes back again in, like, episode 97. So he just comes, like, every 20 episodes. And nothing happens with it. Like, this confrontation, is just a rehash of everything we've seen before. Like, it's just getting so repetitive where it's like, the same thing keeps happening, nothing is added to the story. It's just like, remember Apollo? Remember Persephone saying she was gonna make him pay? Well, now she's gonna yell at him. But she yelled at him when he picked her up after class. She yelled at him in the car. She's yelling at him now. Is he just gonna come back in another 20 episodes and be like, Persephone, I like you. No, Apollo, I don't like you. Like, it's the same thing. Over and over and over. Nothing's happening. Nothing happened with the liar. Wait, no, does she show him the lyre? She does show him the lyre.
And then I think in the next episode she shows him the lyre.
But nothing happens with it.
No, it's very, like, he doesn't even really care.
He doesn't even react.
No, he's not saying, like, it would be, you know what would have been more interesting during this confrontation is if he held her back and then he says, you took it, didn't you? And she's like, took what? And he's like, you took my lyre. Come on. And then she's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but she starts to get scared because he's really angry with her. But instead, he says, I have feelings for you. We could be the next power couple. You could be an Olympian. He hasn't even known. Like, he doesn't even know that the lyre is missing. And she's like, yeah, now I took something from you. And it's like, yeah, that's a really big, important thing. All that panel space devoted to showing her cut the lyre, that was really important. He doesn't even care.
He doesn't even notice.
He doesn't even
notice.
His
life never even, it's been 4 or 5 days, or 4 days since she took the lyre. And he never even noticed, so I guess it wasn't even important to him.
No, he's just going on and on and on about how, oh, I can work with the fact that you're beautiful, you've got a reputation, you're a daughter of one of the 6 traders, and, you know, we could be the next power couple. And then you're beautiful, I can work with that. And then she goes, okay, when's my birthday, wise guy? Like, you don't really know me, you don't really like me. But it's like, dude, does Hades...
The same thing could be said about Hades.
Does Hades know your birthday?
Same thing could be said about Hades.
Yeah. And so...
What are some things I like? Does Hades know the answer to that question?
But that's such a silly question to ask. Like, if you want to prove whether or not somebody likes you or not, why would you start playing 20 questions with them? When's my birthday? What are some things you like? We already have Persephone's idea of what a relationship should be like in the car with Hades when she says being in a relationship with somebody means that you're supposed to be there for them.
Mm-hmm.
She should say, no offense, but I don't want anything to do with you because you don't care about me. You think you care about me, but if you did care about me, you wouldn't have forced me to eat a stupid other crepe. You wouldn't have forced me to go in your stupid car after coming back from school, and you wouldn't have forced me to... And then he's like, oh, to what? And she's like, you wouldn't have forced me to have sex with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would have come out, and it's like... That is a through line, not when is my birthday, what are some things I like. It's
No, he says flowers, and she throws a plate at him like he's wrong. But it's like, what does she like other than flowers, though?
I couldn't tell you.
I couldn't tell you, because all we've seen is that she gardens and journals.
Yeah.
That's
And
it.
she does like flowers.
She does like flowers. He's right.
He's right.
He's right.
She does like flowers. So she gets really angry, and she goes, we are nothing. You want to talk so badly? Fine. Let me make this clear. I don't like you. I don't want you. I don't want to be with you. You know nothing about me. We are not in a relationship.
Didn't she already have this conversation with him in the car?
Yeah.
In like episode 35, after he tried to pick her up?
Yeah.
So this is all repetitive.
Yeah. And
This is all very repetitive.
he is so, like, written like such an idiot.
He keeps coming back every 10
He
chapters.
says, I don't understand. How can you say we're nothing? We were together.
Well, not only that, but this is less than a week after she said that to him in the car when he picked her up.
And he still says you like me. Admit it. Are you insane? Nobody is this dense. He's so dense. It's like he doesn't even speak the same language.
No, not only that, it's like she just keeps bringing him back into the story when she doesn't know what she wants to write next. But there's nothing happening with this plot line. It's just the same thing. Like, literally the same conversation, the same confrontation.
Yeah.
Built up to, but nothing really resolved, nothing really progressed over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And then she shows him the liar while
He's-
he's bragging about how great he is.
Just such a ridiculous caricature that it's frustrating to read.
It's a waste of time.
It's such a waste
It's a waste of time because it doesn't contribute anything to the story. Like, again, we'll save this question for after we're done with episode 100, but... So she shows him the lyre. You stole my lyre. Persephone, it's ruined. You did this. I told you. This is what I think of you. I don't understand. How does it feel? Pretty effing infuriating, Persephone. Gulp. What's your problem? You're my problem. What you're feeling right now is a mere fraction of what I feel for you. So he said, you have my lyre, but he was never, like, asking Hermes, like, hey, hey man, have you seen my lyre? Hey, Artemis, have you seen my lyre? Did I leave it here the other day?
Yeah, because he's like, the last time I had it was when I came to your house. I know somebody has it. Are you guys, like, playing a trick on me or something? I need that to do my duties. We still don't know what he does.
I don't know what he does. I don't know why the lyre is important to him. And she says, I was thinking of hiding your lyre from you for a decade or so, just to see what you would do. Quietly enjoy your frustration from a distance. But it's obviously not important to him. I don't know what he uses it for. I've never seen him use it in the comic. And he came to their house and he didn't even go, hey guys, have you seen my lyre?
No.
So that'd be like if I took like a friggin' piece of toilet paper a toilet paper roll from your bathroom. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna hide it for you for 10 years just to see if you notice. It's like, it's so lame. Like, it wasn't even important to him.
What would have been more interesting is if he thought Hades took the lyre.
No, and she says, watch your going for it.
Where's my toilet paper, bro?
Where's my toilet paper roll?
Yeah. No, I mean, it would have been interesting if he thought Hades took the lyre, and Zeus, who's in Apollo's corner, starts badgering Hades, give me the lyre, my boy needs his lyre, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, man, and then Zeus's true colors really come out, and then Hades is like, you know what, I have, backed you up so many times when you fought with Hera, I have been in your corner every time you want to do a stupid escapade in the mortal realm, but this is ridiculous, and then he goes, why are you on Apollo's side? Hera tells me that he's done something crazy to Persephone, so why would I help you? You suck, Zeus, you're terrible. And then he gets isolated from Zeus, and then Minthy's like, see, your family is terrible, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, Minthy, you're right.
You
don't
mean,
need them.
Thetis or Hades?
Well, no, Minthy and Hades,
Minty and Hades.
being
Yeah,
still
yeah,
together,
yeah.
right? When he has a falling out with Zeus, she goes, see, your family does suck.
Mm-hmm.
I told you. And he's like, yeah, you're right. I don't need them. Me and you can just be together. And then Thetis is like, yeah, Minthy, keep feeding him that good stuff, right? And then he gets a falling out with Zeus, but then he's like, what's with the lyre? Why does he think the lyre's stolen? And he goes, you know what? Put two and two together, Persephone has the lyre. The last time he had it was during that interaction with me and Persephone.
But even the liar, like, if it's not been built up at all,
No.
just go for the car.
Exactly, that's the easiest.
Just go for the car.
If you really want to go with the liar, you could do something like that.
But you need to set it up beforehand.
Yeah.
Like, you need to have the scene of, like, Apollo busting it out. The moment after he assaults her, he's like, you know, this liar's great. If you cut the strings of the liar, like, you're cutting my life force or something like that.
Yeah.
You need to have something, like, to set up the Horcruxes.
Yeah.
Because if Harry just starts destroying the Horcruxes, and then Voldemort goes like, you did this? I feel betrayed, you know? It's like, well, I don't even know why this even matters.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what does this even have to do with anything? What is going on?
Yeah, so she says, after hearing your spiel today, it's just an insult to injury. You come over here with your BS crepes, your BS confession. You don't have feelings for me, just an unfounded impulse to control me. I've made it clear to you in so many ways that I'm not interested in you, and the only way I could get through to you is to show you this. And then he still doesn't understand it.
Please stop crying.
Yeah, and he's delusion, and he's like, what do you mean delusion? I don't like you, and I don't want to be... It's a circular
It's the
argument.
same thing.
It's so
It's the
frustrating
same
to
thing.
read.
This was in the last episode, and it's the same thing over and over again.
And then
he starts blaming Hades.
He's so stupid! Hades put you... Apollo! You are so dumb, bro. You are unrealistically dumb. Like, nobody could be this dumb. How do you live? Like, his brain doesn't even have two brain cells in it going together. It's like one brain cell by itself and a mirror. And it thinks the brain cell in the mirror is the other brain cell, but it's just talking to itself the whole time. He's so dumb. Like, unrealistically dumb just to extend the conversation.
No,
Like,
just to meet the panel quota. It's so repetitive. It's so boring. You gotta stop hanging around him. He's bad news. Like, it's the same thing. It's
Oh
because
my God.
he's jealous of me.
Yeah, and she says, this may come as a shock, but we don't talk about you. I don't think about you. That's true. She doesn't think about him at all.
She doesn't think about him at all. Even when she goes to the OBGYN, even when she has a pregnancy scare, doesn't
No.
think about him at all.
And then he still says, you need time to think over my offer.
Oh my god.
You're hysterical right now. If you agree to be with me, and if you apologize to the liar, I'll let it go. He's not even threatening right now.
No, he's not even threatening. He's got like something wrong with him.
He's like an NPC from a game.
No, like arrows cursed him or something.
Yeah.
Brainwashed him.
Yeah, like he's so unbelievably stupid that it's just frustrating to read. It's like when you try to argue with somebody, like trying to argue with an NPC from a video game.
Mhm.
Like really, that's what it's like, and it's just ridiculous.
How goes it? I've been better. I hope things get better. Bye. Goodbye. Oh, hello. How are you today? I've been better. How about you?
So frustrating to read.
Yeah.
And then Arrows comes in because she was like, how do I end this conversation without having them repeat it again?
Could you imagine if he was...
Can you imagine if it was the next 5 chapters where Apollo goes, but I don't understand. I don't like you. But Hades put you up to this. No, he didn't.
And then he goes,
But you want to be with me. No, I don't.
let's go on a ride in my car. She destroys the car. Why did you do that? Because I don't like you.
I'll forgive you for the car and the liar and for what you just said if you go on a date with me.
Yeah. He's like, but you ate the crepe, didn't you? And it's like, oh my god,
It's so bad.
You're so stupid, bro. Like, it's not even to the point that he's like a villain. It's just, I just want him to go. Can he just go, please? I'm sick of this purple guy, you know? And so he goes, I know more about you than you realize. Again, that's like teasing that she's so mysterious and like what else is she hiding? But I mean, it doesn't really go anywhere.
It doesn't go anywhere at all.
And
then Eros and Psyche show up.
yeah.
I don't know why Psyche's with him.
Yeah, that's strange. It's
They
like,
never bring her story back.
ever since they reveal that she's the nymph, people like squee over seeing the two of them together because it's like another ship, I think. And so he gets struck with a bunch of arrows.
Oh, he gets shot with an arrow and then his cheek starts bleeding and then he just keeps talking to her and continuing the argument as if nothing happened.
Yeah.
What could you possibly know about me? You're a fertility goddess.
Yeah.
Either you know and you're lying, or your mother knows and she's lying to you. Maybe you're both just living in willful ignorance. Oh yeah, the king of willful ignorance. Is that
Pot in the kettle,
is,
dude.
is that your
Pot in
power,
the kettle.
Apollo, or is your power control over delusion? Like, and then like 5 arrows hit him. He's still talking.
He's got Boromir beat.
He's so stubborn and he's so delusional and he's so single-minded that he's like the Knight of Ni from freaking Monty Python. You can chop his legs off and he'd still be telling Persephone.
But I like you.
Exactly.
Go on a date with me. What we had was special.
This is so annoying.
Yeah.
Now stand aside, worthy adversary.
'Tis but a scratch.
Victory is mine. Thank thee, Lord, that in thy mouth.
Come on, then.
What? How at you? You are indeed brave tonight, but the fight is mine.
Oh, had enough, eh?
Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left.
Yes, I have. Right, I'll do you for that.
You what?
Come here.
What are you going to do, bleed on me?
I'm invincible.
You're a loony.
So Eros breaks through the window, thank God, and he says, "Leave my friend alone, or I'll swear I'll ruin any chance you have of ever finding love." Ruin it anyway, and then Apollo still says, "See you on Friday." And then he fizzes out of there. And
Dude, somebody just needs to kill Apollo, man.
just cut his freaking
Just
tongue
kill him.
out.
He sucks.
And so,
Oh my god, Persephone looks like a baby in this panel.
yeah, when she's with Eros, she looks like a little baby for some reason. And so much for, like, making Apollo... Like, instead of shutting him up and making him tremble for words, she gave him verbal diarrhea, and
I
he just
know.
wouldn't stop talking.
She just needs to resort to violence. That's the only language you understand.
Yeah. And so, Eros convinces her not to go to class and to go over to his house. But they conveniently forget about Psyche, and then...
Until the end of the episode.
Well, no, it's like...
Oh, the end of the scene.
Yeah, end of the scene, and she's just hanging out there. And then she says, "You know, I understand how you feel. I almost was in an arranged marriage. Not that that's going to happen to you." And then there's like a wink at the audience that this is actually Psyche. But Eros doesn't know. So then they go to his house, and his dad is Ares. And they, like, flirt. Ares and Persephone flirt.
Eros disappears for like the rest of the episode so that Ares and Persephone can flirt even though she looks like a child.
Yeah, she looks very childish in this scene. She's wearing a Peter Pan collar, and they're in the kitchen and talking, and he is, like, twice as tall as her, and they're talking about anger, and he's all concerned about her feelings and everything like that, but I thought he could feel rage. You know, when she was angry at Hades, he felt that rage all the way from the mortal realm, but with this infuriating, never-ending, cyclical conversation with Apollo-
No. He felt when she said, "This means war," at the end of the episode where she stole Apollo's lyre.
Yeah.
That's what summoned him.
Okay.
Not his anger at Hades.
Okay. So, it's only saying, like, the declaration of war.
Yeah, when she said, "This is war," then Ares shows up.
But so much for that, because that whole confrontation with Apollo
Apollo
was like,
still doesn't get it.
No, it was
he's
like-
gonna come back in another 20 episodes and be like, "Persephone, go out with
that was
me."
like a deflating balloon.
No, it was like, "Congratulations, you've entered friggin' the Apollo Infinity Zone."
Like a funhouse
It's
mirror.
like the Endless 8 where you're just stuck on this Apollo track. It sucks.
Yeah. And so then
It's
they...
like, just cut him out of your life. Just every time he shows up to Artemis's house, just swan dive out of there, you know? Like, just
Yeah.
avoid all contact with him.
So then he apologizes for getting her worked up at Hades' place, and then he asks why she's upset, and she says, "I'm sorry I let my mother beat you with a pitchfork." And so they're, like, bantering, and he asks if they can pick up where they left off, which is gross.
Why does the shirt turn from white to black in one panel to the next?
I don't know. We'll have to see how many assistants were in this chapter.
Why is he resting his boobs on the table? How does that work?
Yeah, and then he talks about Hades. Hades is his uncle. And he goes, "Is it my uncle? Is that what does it for you?" And then she says, "He's sexier than you." But to me, Ares is sexier than Hades. Ares has a personality.
Ares has a personality and Hades does not.
Yeah. She calls his foot a footsie.
Not only that, but she's got heels on, but she's still only, like, up to his leg.
Yeah, he's almost as tall as her when he sits down as she is, like, standing up. And he's like, "Hades is older than you." And she says, "You're no spring chicken either," but he's still younger than Hades.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then Eros comes back, and he goes, "What's up with you and my dad?" And she goes, "Promise you won't get mad." And she goes, "Me and Ares kind of hooked up a little bit." And then we get into that backstory, where he lands in the woods in the mortal realm, and a couple of nymphs say, hey, there's a god in the woods, it's not Hermes, should we get your mother? And she goes, whoever it is, Mama will make him leave right away, don't tell her she's really stressed today, I can deal with it. So then she goes into the woods, and because she's never met anybody before. I don't really know how old she is in this flashback.
She's only 19 in present day, so, you know, that could potentially have very unfortunate implications.
Yeah, well, hopefully she's not, like,
12.
yeah. Jeez. So she shows up, and she sees that he's injured, impaled on a tree, and then he thinks she's a nymph, but then she's not. She heals him, and then that's the end of episode 100. Yeah, so we're talking about our final thoughts now. While filming this discussion, we only covered 30 episodes, but like we said at the beginning of this segment, it took us an hour and a half to talk about 10 episodes, and we've got 4 hours right now on the timer for filming, including breaks, to talk about the remaining 20 episodes. So even though we only talked about 30 episodes, we had a lot more to say, and I think that's because there were a lot of issues with the writing in these past 30 episodes.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how Rachel hired some assistants around episode like 56 to 59, and then pretty much ever since that time period, the writing and the art has gone downhill a lot really fast. Like you said, we've only covered 30 episodes, which is less than half of what we covered last time. And there was just so much to say because, like, not only do you have to talk about, like, what's happening, and there's so much happening, and simultaneously nothing happening, but you also have to talk about why it's bad, and then come up with alternate ways to include the same kind of semblance of what she was trying to include.
Yeah.
But to make it make sense. Because I can see, like, again, I can see the wheels turning, I can see why she wanted to include this or that. You know, I can see why she wanted to include, for example, Ares, because it is more interesting to have Persephone talk to somebody who's trying to bring out the darkness in her, but it's like, why wouldn't you have Hades filling that role if he's supposed to be the king of the underworld?
No, and you already showed ambitions rotting at your feet.
Yeah, we never returned to that.
Yeah, because when we come up with alternatives for the story, we're not pulling anything, like, no rabbit out of a hat, right? We're drawing from stuff that's already in the story.
Yeah.
And we're saying, why didn't you do it like this? Like, this makes a lot more sense. Like,
yeah, no, we're not trying to, like, rewrite the story completely. We're not trying to, like, oh, this entire story is bad, let's just start from ground zero. It's like, with what we already have, and with what you were trying to do there, why didn't you just do this instead of that?
yeah.
If you wanted to build those stakes, if you wanted to have this scene, if you wanted to have that tension. And I think the biggest thing, like, the biggest takeaway is that with all of the stuff that's been set up so far, I think Rachel just doesn't know how to continue a plot beyond the setup in a satisfying way, how to bring plots to, like, the midpoint and then the conclusion. Like, okay, Apollo assaulted Persephone, what happens next? You know, it's just like, okay, then Apollo assaults Persephone, but then it's like, but then what happens after that? What's the point?
Yeah.
You know, she comes up with ideas, but then it's like, what's the point?
Yeah.
And there's no point.
Yeah, what's the payoff? Like,
You know.
for example, what was the point of taking the lyre if he didn't even notice?
Mm-hmm.
And then she gives it back to him, and it's like, okay, what's going to happen after that?
Well, what was the point of the pregnancy scare?
I don't know. Because she goes straight to dumpster diving for a laptop right after that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, why did we have that scene in the comic? What was the point of Hades and Zeus and Poseidon going to the mortal realm?
What was the point of Nyx?
I couldn't tell you. What was the point of Hermes having a crush on Persephone?
What was the point of the dog that was in Artemis's house and, like, never explained?
What was the point of Hestia giving a presentation about the goddesses of eternal maidenhood if we're not even going to learn about them? It's just going to be treated like a joke.
Yeah, there's so many more instances of that happening in these last 30 episodes than there were in the first 70 episodes. And then on top of that, there's not as much, like, praise to be handed out for the art.
No. Because...
Like, we don't get another sequence like Tower 4. We don't get another sequence like Tartarus. We don't get another sequence like the Underworld. You know, we just don't get anything else like that. We don't get any more new locations that are beautiful or interesting.
Yeah, Persephone getting to the Underworld.
Mm-mm.
And you see the colors. Persephone waking up in Hades' house where she glows off the environment.
Yeah.
Nothing.
We don't get any more gods using their powers in really aesthetic ways. Persephone uses her hair as a prehensile hair to get the lyre out of Apollo's car, and then never uses it again. Yeah, I mean, it's just all over the place. In 30 episodes, pretty much all of the promise and setup with, like, some flaws of the first 70 episodes are just squandered. And then you're just jumping from plot to plot to plot. She brings up a plot, either she sets up a new plot or she brings up an old plot.
Yeah.
And when she brings up the old plot, it's usually just a rehash of what we already covered.
Yeah.
And then going like, remember that? It's gonna be so cool when this comes back.
I mean, you had the thing with the Fates and the future queen of the underworld.
And it went nowhere.
It went nowhere. I mean, you had Minthi, Thetis, Thanatos being bullies.
It went nowhere.
Nowhere. You had so much stuff. And Persephone being a fertility goddess going nowhere.
The only thing that happens is that another character will point it out and be like, remember that plot? It'll be really cool, I promise. And then you forget about it for 20 chapters.
Yeah.
And then in the intervening 20 chapters, like, random stuff starts happening, like going to the mortal realm, adopting another dog, the whole sequence with Ares. Me and Ares hooked up. What does that add to the story?
What does Ares going after Zeus for hooking up with Aphrodite add to the story?
Just to remind the audience that she didn't forget that Aphrodite and Zeus hooked up.
And why was it not cool for Zeus and Aphrodite to hook up, but Ares and Persephone is, like, totally cool? I don't get it, you know? Why would you introduce that as a point of contention between Ares and Zeus, and then have Ares ask Persephone if they're gonna continue where they left off? I mean, that's weird, right?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
So there's just the intervening plots because she can't decide how to resolve the plots that she's already set up. And then there's the issue that just becomes very, very obvious at this point in the game, where she's making stuff up as she goes along.
Yeah.
But it's not just stuff continuing off of or building off of the stuff that she's already introduced into the story. A lot of the stuff that's happening is like, this is retcon levels of making stuff up. Like, the fact that Persephone had met Hades before, but neither her internal monologuing, nor her interactions with Hades, nor Hecate's interactions with Hades when he said he had a crush on Persephone indicate that that was a fact.
No, and Ares and Persephone having a history was also not in the equation when he first saw her at the underworld.
When Persephone was like, do I have a crush on him? This doesn't feel like how I felt when I met Ares.
No.
Or this doesn't feel like how I felt when I was... Because apparently she also made out with Hermes, too.
Yeah. It feels different from those two time periods. No, like, nothing.
There's nothing.
And the letter, like you said, between Hecate and Persephone, is Schrodinger's letter.
Yep.
You've got the message that he sent her at 4 a.m. What message?
No message.
The messages that Apollo sent her, the big thing he had planned that was special. What did he have planned that was special?
Never hinted at up until the point where he brought it up.
Yeah, he never brought that up when he's talking to her for 3 chapters going, but I like you, but the circular argument, he never says, you know what I was going to do for you? I was going to take you to someplace really nice. We never know what plan he had. It was just a line in there, and it's like, okay, that's why he's here. That's the justification for him being outside her house. But there was nothing there. It was just a line that was put in there. There were no actual plans that Apollo had come up with, right? And it's like, how do you... I don't know how you would write a story like that. I have no idea how I would be able to stay on top of that.
No, I mean, I don't think the creator is reading the previous chapters. I don't think, like, what she should have done is every time she writes an episode, she should have, like, a document or an Excel that's tracking, okay, how many plots do I have going on right now? How many things have I introduced? And then, like, just make notes for each of those plots. It doesn't have to be super detailed. It's just like, what do I want to happen with this plot? What is the point of this plot? How does it tie up to the overall theme? And then where's this gonna go? But instead, it seems like she introduces stuff, she forgets that she introduced it for 20, 30 chapters at a time, which is like 6 months in real life. And in the meantime, she comes up with more and more ideas and just, like, shoves them in there, even though there's, like, no room in the story to contain all... Like, now she's built... Like, you see all these plots in the back, there's some that we missed.
Yeah.
And she's got all of these plots now in the first 100 chapters that she has to resolve. Like, all of these things were hinted at, brought up, introduced, and you're gonna have to resolve them somehow, otherwise you're gonna have so many dropped plot threads or so many scenes that went nowhere.
Yeah.
And you just can't do that.
Yeah, making a comic is a labor-intensive process, right? I know for a fact, I'm constantly trying to cut corners. I keep telling myself, 40 panels, that's all I'm going to put, 40 panels.
Yeah,
Stick to 40
that never
panels.
happens.
Please, God, don't do any more than 40 panels. So I write the script And every single line of dialogue, or every single action that the character does that would be in a panel, I have, and I count those out, and I say, okay, it better be between 40 and 50 panels, that's my script. And then I say, you know, I don't want to make more work for myself, so every single panel has to serve a purpose. Otherwise, why would I go to the trouble of rendering an entire panel with a background, line art, flats, lighting, text? Why would I do that unless it serves a purpose for the story that I'm actually interested in getting to, a payoff that I want to get to and be like, wouldn't it be so cool if I got to this part? It seems like a waste of time for me to do something or introduce something that I think would be kind of neat when it's like, no, I want to get to this thing that I have planned down the line. The thing is, here, she doesn't have anything planned.
No, and that's like the major theme is like goal-oriented writing. When you tell a story, you have to have like not only like your overarching plot, in which case in Lore Olympus it'd be like Hades and Persephone's love story.
Yeah.
With like, I mean, at this point that is the overarching plot because like none of these plots are going anywhere. So you have to have your overarching plot in mind, but then you also have to have your B plot, your C plot, your characters, whatever. And you have to have a goal. Like, so many characters in this comic have no purpose in the story.
Artemis.
No purpose in the story. Like,
What are
you
you
could
doing?
cut half of these characters out, you could combine some characters, and they could serve the same purpose in furthering the plot along. Like, why are both Hecate and Hera matchmaking Hades and Persephone? So there's extraneous characters, there's extraneous plots, because she goes, oh yeah, I had this really cool idea, or oh, I forgot, let's have a pregnancy scare, you know, and then just put that in there, it goes nowhere. And it's like, you should be having, like, plot A leads to plot B, leads to plot C, leads to plot D, so that by the time the Act of Wrath comes in, or Kronos comes in, it doesn't just feel like this came out of nowhere, you know? Like, Apollo came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Ares came out of nowhere. It's not like it was built up beforehand.
Minty hitting Hades.
Minty
came out of
hitting
nowhere.
Hades came out of nowhere. There was no build-up beforehand.
No.
So it's like, if you don't have the goal-oriented writing, if you're not keeping track of your plots, if you're not keeping track of your characters, I can understand how week to week, and you're not rereading your old stuff, week to week you're like, oh god, what should I do? Oh, I had an idea last night when I was in the shower, let's just make this the episode.
Yeah.
And then 30 episodes go by like that, and you're like, oh god, I haven't gotten to this plot yet, and it's been 6 months since
Yeah.
I thought of it.
I ran into that problem with the series that I was trying to write, and because I got overwhelmed with getting featured and a lot of attention on the series all of a sudden, that I was struggling for how to make it interesting, and I got so far off the
Beaten track.
so far off the beaten track for what would have made the most sense based on what I had already set up in the story, that me and you had to spend a weekend workshopping the story to fix it, because I was like, what if people don't find it interesting? I have to make it interesting, I have to put this in there, and it's like, no, you have set up all this stuff, deal with that stuff first. It doesn't matter if it's not interesting, you'll get to it later, give yourself some breathing room, you know, please. So, there's a lot of stuff like that, and then to add onto it as well, like another layer of what I find kind of, I don't want to use the word ridiculous, but what I find a little bit insincere or not genuine is these chapters where you have these trigger warnings for themes, but then in other chapters, because it wasn't planned to have something traumatic happen to a chapter later on, you have a character committing a horrible, heinous act that's funny when the author wants it to be funny, but then later it's very serious. And you can tell it's not planned, because it's like, we know the author doesn't take stuff like this seriously. We've seen in previous chapters, Hades took a guy's eye out and almost beat him to death, and then you put a trigger warning on the chapter where he gets slapped by Minty. And it's like, Rachel doesn't take violence seriously.
No, that'd be like if in, Roadrunner and Coyote,
Yeah.
Wile E. Coyote, you have Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote getting, like, brutally murdered in every episode by Roadrunner, and then you have one very special episode where Wile E. Coyote gets, like, sexually assaulted, and there's, like, a trigger warning, and then you'd be like, wow, this came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
This is simply not the avenue to have that serious conversation, given what we've set up in the world so far, and this show's attitude to violence. That'd be like if The Simpsons tried to have a super serious plot about, like, sexual assault or domestic abuse.
Yeah.
When Homer literally strangles Bart all the time for comedy. I can tell you why I think it's taken seriously. I think, and I was talking about this off camera, the format of the webtoon being week to week, and the fact that each episode is short and she keeps bouncing around from plotline to plotline. Like, for example, if you sandwiched Hecate slapping Hades, and then Hades and Hecate taking the guy's eye out and nearly beating him to death, and then you had, if you cut out all the fluff between that and then Hades getting slapped by Minty, that would maybe be like 10 episodes. That's 10 weeks. That would be a much more jarring contrast. But in reality, it was like Hecate slaps Hades in like episode 30. They take the guy's eye out and nearly beat him to death in 35. And then Minty slaps him in episode 80-something.
70-something.
70-something. Yeah, it's 70-something.
Yeah.
72. So that's basically 40 weeks in the intervening period.
Almost a year.
That's almost a year. That's enough time to be like, okay, nobody remembers this. And it's not like she's doing previously on. You know, nobody remembers this. People aren't really going back and binge reading it, you know? And it's easy enough to excuse when it's that much time between events. And then that just brings me to my other point, which is that it's extremely difficult to tell what is going on at any given moment in this comic and this story because of the nature of how it bounces from plot to plot. There's so many plots going on at the same time. It's difficult to keep all the characters straight, all the plot straight, and the timeline straight. And it's just like, simultaneously, so much happens in this story, and nothing happens in this story. Like, episode 100. We're on episode 100. We're halfway through the series as it is currently, and season 3 is the last season of the comic. With the way things have been going, right now, does this feel like a third of the way through a story? What's the main plot of Lore Olympus? You've never read it before. What's the main plot of Lore Olympus?
I have no idea. Like, I could not tell you what happens next in the story. If I had to guess, like, if I had to make a prediction based on what's happening now. So, episode 100, you have Persephone talking about her and Ares, right? Yeah. What I think is going to happen, just a short window, next 30 chapters, we're going to catch up with Minty again. She's going to get... I know at some point she turns into a plant. Persephone, for some reason, couldn't really stick it to Apollo, couldn't really stick it to Hades, but she can stick it to Minty, and she turns her into a plant somehow.
Yeah.
And then, I know that there's something about a trial later, and so then maybe she gets in trouble for turning Minty into a plant, and then Demeter comes back and talks to her, and says, hey, you can't do that stuff. And that's all I could tell you what would happen in the story. I have no idea how they go from this to what's going on currently. I have absolutely no idea. I couldn't tell you. Even in the next 10 chapters, I probably couldn't tell you what's going to happen.
I couldn't tell you what's going to happen in the next 10 chapters. I think we're going to spend maybe 2 episodes with Ares, because I don't remember this very well. I think we're going to spend maybe the next 2 episodes with Ares, and then he's going to, like, F off for the next, like, 50 episodes.
Yeah.
That's how things go in this comic.
Yeah.
People show up and then leave for like 30, 40 episodes. Apollo says the same thing over and over and over every time he comes in the comic, but he leaves for 20, 30 episodes at a time.
Yeah.
So yeah, we covered her approach to writing. We covered the fact that there's so many plots that a lot is happening and nothing's happening at the same time. We covered the inconsistent morality and like how can you expect me to take this seriously when the main character literally almost beat a guy to death and he owns slaves, but I'm supposed to feel really bad for him when he gets slapped by a woman.
Yeah.
And then do you want to cover how Persephone's trauma and sexual assault is covered in this series?
Oh my gosh. Oh geez. It's horrible. It's like she doesn't remember anything, and people are always defending her and saying she's naive, she's optimistic, and going back to the quote that Rachel said at the beginning where she wants to tell a story about a soft woman who having agency and standing up for herself is a big deal. She never does that in this comic. I mean, we're 100 chapters in, and a horrible thing has happened to her, and she doesn't stand up for herself or have agency because first Hades swoops in and saves the day from Apollo, and then Eros swoops in and saves the day from Apollo, and the liar thing was a big wet fart.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what? It's just not, it's unbelievable.
I think the fact that you brought up that she turns Minty into a plant, but nothing like that happens to Apollo is so true. I didn't even think of that.
I mean, like, what did Minty do that's so bad that she gets turned into a plant? At this point, I couldn't tell you. Slapping Hades? Really? Is that why she turns her into a plant? I couldn't tell you. I haven't seen anything in the text so far that would justify being turned into a plant, right? But meanwhile, Apollo, he was there saying the same thing. He, over and over again, styrofoam crepes. She hates everything about him. And yet, she didn't raise a hand to him. She didn't do anything to him. She showed him the liar, and his response was like, oh, why did you do that?
I guess she did the same thing to him that Demeter did to Zeus, which is to say, nothing.
Nothing. It
Nothing.
was crazy.
I would say that Persephone at this point has no character.
No, again, you could take every single point, like interesting point or like impactful moments that's happened from her in the series and say a character does this in the series. I wouldn't be able to tell you it was Persephone. I would not. I would be like, I don't know, Hera? Aphrodite? I don't know. So,
Yeah, no, and I was saying this off camera too, that it's interesting that the villain, who's supposed to be super flawed and also be like neurodivergent, Minty, ends up being like a more interesting and fleshed out character who's consistent, except for the part where she slapped Hades.
Yeah.
That is more consistent and fleshed out than and sympathetic than Persephone. Because we get like nothing from Persephone. We barely see the inside of her head, and when we do, it's always juxtaposed with an image of her and Hades. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like I was joking with Pyrrhic off camera, like, you know, it's really funny how even when Persephone is talking about agency and like what she wants to do, you know, Rachel's over here going like, not so fast, can't forget, you're eventually gonna get with Hades, so let's just show that imagery right now while she's talking about her wants, her dreams, her desires, doesn't matter. We always have to put Hades in here somehow because that's your death sentence, your prison sentence. You know, don't forget, you know, the fates even said it's natural for a king to be curious about his queen, so it doesn't matter whether or not she gives consent to that. She's gonna become his queen no matter what.
Yeah, and that's like a scary thought. You could have made that into like a scary...
Maybe it's more faithful to the myth than we thought.
Yeah. You have all these scenes where she has an interaction with Apollo. The same day Apollo comes to her house, and there's that big scary interaction with him. She's flirting with Ares like 30 minutes later.
Yeah, not even 30 minutes later, she changes and goes to Eros' house, and Rachel can't wait to make Eros leave the scene so that Ares can come back.
And it's like, could you imagine if Hades was like going around and flirting with women, right? I mean, he kind of does with Hera, but he tells Hera to stop, you know, right after the slap. But it's just, it's so crazy how he gets so much like introspection. He had that visual of the wine pouring everywhere after Mickey stood him up.
That was the only like impressive visual sequence.
Yeah.
And even then it wasn't as good as the first 70 chapters.
No, but like we didn't get anything like that with... Could you imagine if the scene with Persephone talking about how much she hates Apollo when she comes back to her house was like that?
Can you imagine if the whole house got filled with a briar thorn patch and then the extreme emotional reaction produced even a fraction of what we saw when she saw Kronos Hades? I still don't know what was going on with that. There's the only emotions that Persephone is allowed to feel are happiness and sadness, and she's mostly just happy like a child would be happy. And I was also saying off camera that it's really weird how much emotional distance there is between the reader and Persephone. It's almost like we're never fully in Persephone's head. We always view her from a distance that's incredibly voyeuristic.
Yeah.
You know, it's like all of her feelings, all of her thoughts are always framed not only in context with Hades, but also in context with how attractive she is.
Yeah,
like specifically framing her butt when she's scared about being pregnant. Like, that's creepy. That is creepy to me. And that's so unnecessary, especially in a comic aimed towards young girls. Yeah. Like, it's like way to like really lean in on the, even when a woman is alone in her own bathroom, scared about potentially being pregnant, let's just sexualize her a little bit.
Yeah, and, you know, people will say, well, just because it's her butt doesn't mean it's sexual. Like, you're actually sexualizing her by thinking her butt is sexual. And it's like, no.
It's like, let's not be naive.
Like, this does not happen in a vacuum, all right?
No, it doesn't happen in a vacuum.
She's drawn like that to look attractive, all right? Well, whether you want to admit it or not, there are, like, societal conventions of what is and isn't attractive.
And she ticks all of them off.
Yeah, she ticks all the boxes, and to frame her like that, because Rachel knows what she's doing with composition. We've seen that in the first 70 episodes. She can frame something and compose it in a way that's dynamic and focus on different things. She's an artist, that's what they do. So she made the intentional decision to show her butt in underwear with a bumblebee on her crack and her stretch marks. That was the focus of the shot. That was the most detailed part of the render. There was effort and thought put into that. It's not like it just appeared on the page.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean,
sight unseen.
No.
Her butt was given more detail and emphasis than her actual face.
Yeah.
And that happens more often than not, I would say, in this comic. For Persephone.
But whereas Hades, you notice how Hades is never wearing a different outfit. Persephone wears a lot of different outfits, and she changes up her look a lot. If I pointed to any panel of Hades, I wouldn't be able to tell you if it's, like, which part of the story is it, because he's always wearing a shirt and pants. Mm-hmm. Always. His hair is always pushed back. It's never down in his face, even though it's long. He's never wearing, like, a polo, shorts, a sweater, a jacket, nothing.
Mhm.
We never see him accessorize. We don't see him with his glasses at all anymore, basically. There was that only that one scene where it says, yesterday when he's talking about the payroll, he's wearing his glasses while doing the scroll thing. But every single time we see him, he is so consistent. It's like he has no personality, and his face has so much expression in it that they don't really care about what he's wearing because they care about his expression. He has so many panels where he does micro expressions, and he pauses to think, and he has these internal dialogues, and he does these cutesy personality quirk things like dropping his coffee and his papers.
Well, not only that, but he's allowed to feel extremely angry, and the comic focuses on his facial expression when he does feel extremely angry. When Persephone was extremely angry, they always cut to, like, either her eyes or her mouth, not her face when she's snapping the lyre, or they do cut to her face when she's extremely angry, but it's very seldom. It's not the standard.
No, we never have shots of Hades' back, or his crotch, or his butt, or his muscles.
Even when the two secretaries are saying, oh yeah, he has a great butt,
Yeah.
we don't actually get a panel focusing on his butt in the middle of the shot.
No, and when he's thinking of Persephone and saying that little minx, you've got the shiny on her butt cheek. You never see anything like that for Hades. And he's supposed to be the one that the female audience is supposed to be like, I like
This
Hades.
is a comic targeted towards women.
Yeah, so it's like, what's going on here? Like, Persephone is so objectified that I have trouble relating to her.
I
on
don't
an
relate to
emotional
her at
level.
all. That's what I'm saying. I don't relate to her character at all. Not only because we're mentally kept at a distance from her, from the lack of monologues and internal thought process that she undergoes. She gets less episodes dedicated to her mental processes and thoughts and feelings than Hades does.
Yeah.
So that's one. Two, when she does, it's so distanced from her. Like when she was snapping the lyre, we don't even see her facial expression when she does that, let alone her thoughts. We don't even see that. And three, there's just the constant objectification reminding you constantly, this is not a person. This is a sexual object.
And it makes me uncomfortable. It makes me so uncomfortable to see that over and over and over again. And I just...
And when her face is in the shot, it's always cute or pretty.
Yeah.
It's never ugly.
No wrinkles.
No wrinkles, nothing scary, like the Kronos face that Hades busts out.
Glossy lips, full eyelashes, it's very unfortunate. And again, it's like, how are we supposed to take the tragedies that this character experiences seriously when it's like clearly the author...
Even she doesn't dwell on it because that would, like, God forbid she become attractive and depressed.
Yeah.
Like, even Minthy had more of an emotional reaction to missing dinner with Hades than Persephone did to being assaulted.
Minthy is less objectified than Persephone.
Minthy is less objectified than Persephone.
Yeah, she doesn't wear clothes that constantly show off her figure. And
no, she does, but I mean, that's the thing. You can draw a character wearing clothes that fit her character because she's supposed to be an attractive character.
Right.
She wears form-fitting clothing, but the camera isn't constantly pushed on her boobs.
That's what the difference is.
That's what the difference is.
It feels like she's not constantly dressed like that because there's
no,
not
but
that
she
much
is.
of a focus on it.
She wears pretty much very similar outfits to Persephone.
But mentally, you don't register it because it's not as much of a focus, right? Like when she's wearing the outfit that she borrowed from Thetis, right? If Persephone was in that same outfit, the way she would be holding herself and the way the camera would linger on her would be
there would be tons of panels of Persephone uncomfortably adjusting her clothing, but the camera would focus on like her boobs spilling out of the top, and it would be portrayed as like a sexy thing. Instead of like, oh, she's uncomfortable. Like the fact that she's uncomfortable would be the sexy aspect.
Yeah, and the body language between Minthy and Persephone is so different.
Persephone's always drawn like a pinup, even when she's upset.
Even when she's by herself in her room.
Even when she's by herself in her room.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like, again, voyeuristic and just not good. So, that is definitely becoming much more prevalent in these 30 chapters. And
she also got shorter.
Yeah.
She also got much shorter. She used to be up to Hades' shoulder in the episode where she was gardening. She was up to his shoulder. And then in these latest episodes with Ares, where she's wearing a little girl dress with a Peter Pan collar and lacy socks, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
It's so gross.
It's really stark and odd, and it's like, how are you not cognizant? Again, people are always quick to say...
She is cognizant of it. She's putting it in there intentionally.
Yeah.
It's not like she just grew up in the world and she's never seen DDLG content. You can tell that's what she watches. Because she's putting it in the comic all the time.
Yeah, and so it's like, it's again, people say like, well, how can you say that? I don't like it when people say that. First of all, just to CYA here, we don't have any proof, but it's obvious to us, right? And it's our strong opinion that that's what's going on here because, again, you can't just pretend like this stuff happens in a vacuum, where there are no outside influences.
You don't have to be psychic
No.
to intuit someone's intentions.
No.
When an artist's intentions or a writer's intentions, when they use specific language or specific framing. Like, unlike what a lot of people like to think, art is not completely subjective.
No.
There's such a thing as a cinema language when you have cinematography, otherwise editing would be unintelligible. Editing is a language. Editing, when you make a movie and you edit in a specific way, that can change the meaning of a scene.
Yeah.
And editing in a movie is equivalent to paneling and shot composition in comics. Film has a language, comics have a language. The way you set up a shot, what elements you choose to frame in that shot, the body language, the character expressions, they all convey a story. What a character is wearing, their costume, all conveys a story.
Yeah.
And you can pretty much look at all of these panels and come to a very stark conclusion when it comes to this aspect of the story.
Exactly.
And how Persephone is drawn. And it's only Persephone. It's no other female character in the story.
No, it's very intentional, and it's very disturbing, and it's a feature.
It's a much more prevalent feature as the comic goes on.
It is, but it's concerning because, again, I read Lore Olympus, and there were some things happening in these chapters, and there were some illustrations where it's like, I was wondering, how come there isn't like a content warning on this comic? Who is this comic aimed towards? What are they trying to say here? You are presenting a female character in a way, and you're highlighting
Constantly.
positive attributes, and you're saying anybody who doesn't like her is a bad person.
Well, not only that, you're also setting up the narrative that Persephone is the most beautiful character, the most beautiful female character in that universe, and she's the only one who stopped aging at 19, and she's the one who's the shortest. Not only short, because like I said, Pyrrhic is 5'3".
Yeah.
She's not only short, she's so short that she's up to like most male characters like hips now.
She's up to here with countertops.
Yeah, her countertops up to here. I've never seen a 5'2", 5'3" woman countertops up to here.
No.
That is a child.
And
she wasn't that short in the beginning of the comic.
No,
too.
it's very insidious when you're intentionally taking steps to portray the most positive, flawless
Female character.
Female
the
character.
audience insert, crucially.
Yeah, and it's like, I can't relate to her because I'm just seeing somebody who's been objectified beyond recognition, and I find it disturbing.
Well, not only that, this is the female audience insert for a bunch of 12-year-old girls. Because Lore Olympus is classified as YA.
Yeah.
Like, young girls are reading this.
I mean, I would hope to
Like,
God.
this is like Michael Bay levels of objectification.
Yeah.
And this is what you're putting in media for young girls.
Like, oh man, could you imagine if you grew up reading this and you thought when you got your first internship as like a teenager, going to a college internship, you have an attractive boss
Who's 45.
who's 45, and you think it's gonna play out like Hades and Persephone.
You're just setting up little girls for a world of heartache and exploitation.
Yeah, because that's not how the real world works, and to
message it in a positive light is so ignorant and so irresponsible.
to heap on the accolades is so ignorant and irresponsible.
Yeah, I don't know why this comic... It'd be one thing if this comic was just a slice of life and it had a mature content warning. It was on her Patreon.
Yeah.
Whatever, I don't care. This is on a platform that only allows content for 13 and under. PG-13 content only. It's on a platform that's the most popular international webcomics platform. It's the #1 comic on that platform internationally. Or in the US at the very least. It's a New York Times bestseller, and it's classified as YA.
Yeah.
And it's award-winning. And this is how it treats its main female character. And that's the part that makes me gobsmacked, where it's
Yeah.
like, I can't believe people are so uncritical. You know, if this was written in a book, Persephone only came a head taller than the countertop and up to Hades' hip, you know, and Persephone was wearing lacy socks that came to her ankle with little bunnies embroidered on them.
Yeah.
And her favorite hair bow, you know?
Yeah,
Like, with that language, I don't think that would fly.
No, she was dressed at Hera's house in a t-shirt and booty shorts, and she was wearing a swimsuit as underwear because it was laundry day.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine, like, her yellow bikini, the halter top of her yellow bikini peeked out of her white t-shirt, and Hades saw the knot fluttering in the corner of his eye, and he thought that if he just tugged on that string, it would all come loose, you know?
Yeah, because we get more internal monologuing and internal moaning from Hades' perspective than we do from Persephone's.
Yeah.
And in order to objectify her that much in the text, it would be so much more obvious.
It would be.
It would be so much more obvious because, to me, reading this comic, it's already blaringly obvious.
It's just disturbing to see.
But if it's like people are like, oh, if it's not written down, where's the evidence? It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
are you kidding me?
How can you look at that and not understand through social cues and social conventions that this is exactly what's going on here?
Film language. Just because it's not written doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, people always talk about representation when it comes to like having diversity in movies and stuff like that, right? And they say that representation matters. But for some reason, when it comes to representation that could actually hurt young women and girls, then it's like, oh, that's
You're just
shaming.
looking too hard. You're just looking too hard.
You're looking too hard. You're shaming short women. You're shaming women for being naive.
You're prudish. It's purity culture.
It's purity culture. They're saying that calling Persephone a pick-me girl is putting down women and it's misogynistic. I think it's misogynistic to have a character that you treat like an object, who has no clear motivations.
Who has no agency.
No agency, no thoughts in their head.
She exists to be used as Hades' object.
A pretty toy for a bunch of different male characters in the comic, you know? I think that's misogynistic. I don't think it's misogynistic to point out that
well, not only that, if she's meant to be, it's meant to be a deconstruction of purity culture, that she's in the goddesses of eternal maidenhood. If the goddesses of eternal maidenhood are the oppressive evil force here, then what are you telling me? Are you telling me that it's preferable for a 19-year-old should not be chaste? A 19-year-old should not be in an organization that encourages, like, you know, well, in this case, it's an extreme. I don't think there's really any organizations out there that encourage women not to be in relationships ever.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing it's a proxy for, like, places that tell women that they should wait until marriage or something.
Yeah.
Or at least wait until, like, they're in a loving relationship. So what's the alternative? Is the alternative that women should be walking around wearing, like, you know, barely anything at all, bearing it all for the male gaze, running around in the fantasy sequences? She's running around in expensive dresses with diamond earrings, fur coats on the hand of Hades as his arm candy. Are you telling me that basically being a sugar baby is the ideal, you know, fighting against purity culture? Is that the ideal alternative? Because just saying purity culture bad, that's not really a deconstruction. You're not providing an alternative to purity culture. You're just relentlessly sexually objectifying the main character, and I guess the alternative and the ideal outcome is that she ends up with Hades, who's more than twice her age.
Yeah.
He's more than twice her age in real life. If he's in his 40s, he's more than twice her age. There's literally a power gap in every conceivable aspect that there could be a power gap. At this point, he just needs to be related to her to, like, seal the deal and make it as problematic as possible.
Yeah.
And, that's the alternative, that she just becomes, instead of being locked into a purity culture thing where she's, you know, chaste, virgin, whatever, she's locked into a relationship with a much older man, and that's just naive and, quite frankly, stupid, because in real life, that's how domestic abuse happens. Domestic abuse is not a 90-pound woman slapping the 45-year-old, her boss, who also has financial control over her, as will be revealed later.
Yeah.
Domestic abuse is a 45-year-old man grooming a 19-year-old who's his employee, who's less than half his age, who is totally inexperienced, who has there's a culture gap between them, there's an income gap between them, there's a complete lack of experience on her part, not only sexually, but even worldly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the alternative. That's not the cause of a lot of domestic abuse. You're going to take that relationship and center that as your ideal relationship, but point to the 90-pound woman slapping the man as domestic violence. Like, that is just purely naive, and it's a load of crap.
It's a load of crap. And then another thing that's ridiculous is...
It's just, like, just to harp on the point, it's totally disingenuous to say that domestic violence is treated with any seriousness in this comic at all, because you are totally ignoring the context of the real world and the messages with specifically the characters of Hades and Persephone that you're setting up young girls for, who are much more likely to be abused than men are, and men aren't even reading this comic.
No.
So why are you telling little girls about the dangers of female on male abuse, but there's nothing about domestic abuse and power gaps between men and women?
No.
Like, that's the part that really is disingenuous, and that makes me angry when it comes to this comic.
Exactly. That is a load of crap. And then another thing that's a load of crap, in context with that, is the idea that Demeter is a helicopter parent and a control freak, when I have not seen a single shred of evidence that she's controlling of Persephone at all.
She was right.
She was right.
She was right.
And not only that, but the alternative with Hades would be worse than the life that she had with Demeter.
Dude, if Demeter is a helicopter parent, then Hades is basically, she's a kept woman.
Yeah, he's like an arranged husband.
He's like an arranged husband. She has no freedom of income, no freedom of autonomy, because even when she's like, maybe when I live on my own, I can get my ears pierced, Rachel's like, nah, you're never gonna live on your own. You're always gonna have Hades looming over you like a freaking, guillotine. Like the guillotine looms over your neck. You can't escape him.
Yeah.
You're gonna end up with Hades one way or another.
Yeah, and that is not a message to send to young girls. I don't understand why it's so controversial just to tell girls you don't need anybody to be happy.
You don't, no, especially not a guy who's in his freaking 40s when you're 19.
The happiest demographic is actually single women. If we're talking psychologically, studies have shown that single, unmarried, childless women are the happiest demographic. So if you want to have a story about a girl falling in love with a guy, sure, that's fine, but don't write your world in such a way that all the villains, the irredeemable villains, are the ones who stand in the way of this relationship that isn't perfect. It's a very naive, idealistic, unrealistic relationship.
Well, not only that, don't ask for kudos for portrayal of domestic violence and portrayal of sexual assault when both of those things are handled so poorly and so unrealistically by the comic. But the main relationship is riddled with so many problematic elements that would play out really badly in real life, and those just get completely glossed over, and anyone who stands in the way of the main couple is just like, oh, you're just jealous, you're just a hater and a villain in the comic.
Yeah, in real life, abusers tell their victims that all your friends and family are just jealous and they're wrong because they want to get in the way of us. So that mentality, to have that play out in the comic with sincerity, is terrible. That's not right, because that is how abusers isolate their victims, and they say that your parents are controlling you, your friends are jealous, they're not going to understand you, I'm the only person who understands you.
Well, here's the thing, the narrative already does that for Persephone because she already has no friends.
That's what I'm saying. So
she has no friends.
But instead of saying, look, Persephone, you don't have to date Hades, you can be your own person, do your own thing, whatever, it's like not even an option that occurs to her.
Nobody even really talks about the age gap with any seriousness at all.
No. It's like all treated like a joke. So when you're treating that stuff, and again, in real life, studies show that age gaps are very detrimental to women.
They're very bad for relationships.
Yeah.
Very bad for relationships.
So the proof is in the pudding there, right? So how can you have something like that in your comic and then expect, again, these more serious issues to be taken seriously? It's just ridiculous. And so it would be one thing, again, this is fine. These are our opinions. It'd be one thing if it's like, okay, this comic's not for me, I'm not interested in reading it.
No, it'd be one thing if it wasn't marketed towards little kids.
Yeah, but
if it wasn't marketed towards little kids and winning awards as a YA comic, I would have no problem with this. Whatever. It's like 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
It's dumb. It's not my thing. I don't care for it. I'm not going to read for it. I'm not going to read it. I'm not the intended audience. Whatever. But it's like adults are consuming that. This is kids.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like annoyed. And the fact that it's award winning is why I'm annoyed, because I'm like, nobody read this. Nobody read this with any sort of like close eye.
Yeah, I mean, I've never read it before. Now I've read 100 chapters at a normal pace, just binging it. And at the beginning of this video series, we went in wondering why people like Lore Olympus. Now I'm starting to wonder, do people actually understand what they're reading when they read this? Or, what's going on here?
I think it's the weekly format.
Yeah, I still don't understand why people like it. And I think studios realize that if they ever adapted this into a TV show, it would never work. It'd be like The Time Traveler's Wife all over again, and they'd be like, nobody's gonna be...
There's no way you can include all of these problematic elements and then animate it and voice it and then aim it at a young teenage audience and have the parents watching over their shoulders and being like, what the F? This would be like in Sailor Moon if friggin' Tuxedo Mask was in his 30s. That would... You just won't happen. It was already considered problematic that he was 18.
Yeah. So... But Tuxedo Mask is like, oh,
he's
man.
like the best boyfriend ever.
He's up here. Hades is like in hell, literally.
Yeah.
He's garbage compared to Tuxedo Mask, but it's just crazy. If you legitimately like it and you think it's valid, your reasons for liking it are valid, I don't understand how you could think that after reading it. After reading 100 chapters, I'm like, why? Why do people like this? How can people defend it? I don't like it.
I think the goodwill of this comic was based on episodes 1 through 70.
Yeah.
Because of the art. and because of enough cute moments between Hades and Persephone, and all of that stuff about his age, that's subtext based on how he acts and like his surroundings, but even then he acts like a teenager.
Yeah.
But then it's also outside of the comic because she confirmed his age on like Tumblr.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Like people can close their eyes and pretend, oh, maybe he's just a young CEO billionaire, 20,000 years old or 2,000 years old. Maybe that's like 20, you know? Because it's such a large number, 2,000. It's like how Edward is like 100 years old and Bella's only 17. You know, like people are like, oh, 100, but he was frozen at 17. Meh, you know? It's not like he's like 40 years old and an actual 40-year-old.
But even he looks older than her. He looks bigger than her. He
But
looks
all of the men look like that.
Yeah, but he looks like her dad. How can people like that dynamic? It seems like Rachel was kind of easing people into it, because I know in this last 30 chapters when they're in Hera's garden and all that stuff, it ramps up a lot.
It does.
And she's like easing people into it, and she made Hades, I don't know, I feel like he looks older now.
He looks older now. In the beginning, he didn't look this old. He looked kind of like Robert Pattinson in The Batman.
Yeah.
Kind of like emo, young CEO type guy.
And now it's like he looks old. He
looks like he looks like a guy from the 1950s.
Yeah.
Like who's in his 40s. All the actors in the 1950s were in their 40s.
And it's like,
and how Persephone's looking younger too.
Yeah, I don't know any young women, unless they've been groomed, who are actually attracted to older guys like that. You know, that's
I can understand like a guy like hypothetically when you're like 15, you're like 15-year-old boys are gross. I only like Brad Pitt from Fight Club. You know, like I understand that. But I can't understand 15-year-olds in real life being attracted to their friends' dads. That doesn't really happen.
No,
like,
that's a myth. That's like a red pill myth.
Yeah.
So for that to be happening in media aimed at little girls is like very disturbing. So
yeah. Well, even moving beyond that fact, I feel like at this point, yeah, it's just coasting off the goodwill of the 1st through 70th episodes, because that's where all the good art is, that's where all the initial fluffy stuff is. And like even going beyond the sexual assault, it hasn't been completely bungled and mishandled to the point that it has been now, where it's just like flip-flopping all over the place.
Yeah.
And I think, like, honestly, if you want a comic that has like problematic romance, really dramatic, high stakes, super evil main villain female character energy, I would say, like, dude, at this point, just go read Peach Girl. It's like an old Japanese manga that I really liked because it was so, like, juicy and problematic, and it's, like, written like a soap opera, kind of like how Lore Olympus wants to be, you know? With all the, like, dramatic plot lines and the dramatic characters and all that stuff. And there's, like, you know, it is definitely more scandalous than Cursed Princess Club, if that's why people like Lore Olympus, because it has, like, all of the, like, juicy gossip, trashy stuff going on. Like, yeah, if Cursed Princess Club is too wholesome for you, go read Peach Girl. Even though it takes place in high school, all of the characters in Lore Olympus act like they're in high school.
They
do,
yeah.
I mean, I think the main character of Peach Girl is actually more mature than Persephone, which isn't hard to do because Persephone acts like she's about 8 years old. Yeah, Peach Girl, I highly recommend Peach Girl. There's like a love triangle, there's a freaking chaotic guy, and then there's like the Hades sensitive guy, and then there's like an evil Minthy type, but she's actually irredeemably evil and done really well. Like, she's basically a pathological liar. There's a lot of drama. It's complete, and you can find it online really easily. And I read it like once every couple of years just because it's super dramatic and it's a fun read. And I think, yeah, there's problematic stuff in there, but it's still handled way better than Lore Olympus. There's nothing like all the male love interests are all the same age as the main character. One guy that she likes, who's in his 20s, that she trusts for a second, turns out to be an evil, like, it's like, why is he interested in high school girls? And he turns out to have nefarious reasons for that, because in real life, a guy in his 20s who's interested in high school girls would be a creep, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just like much better version of what Lore Olympus tries to be. And I think at this point, after episode 100, like, do you think Lore Olympus is redeemable? I think it's irredeemable. The bungling of the sexual assault plotline, Minthy's character assassination, and like the fact that you want me to buy all of that, meanwhile your main friggin' love pairing is so questionable, and the way it's framed is so questionable, and Persephone is so sexualized. I'm just like, get out of here. Get out of here, bro. Like, this is crap now, you know?
Yeah, I don't know.
And the art isn't even nice. At this point, she's got 5 assistants. In some episodes, she has 2-3 assistants. In some episodes, she has 5 assistants. The art is already starting to look really inconsistent, like how it looks now. There's not like the weird character renderings like there are now, but you're already starting to see shades of that. Where
Yeah.
Hades' freaking shoulders take up the whole frame.
Or in some panels, he looks like an old dude, like really old. Like,
Dude, in the latest episodes, it's like now it's like a Kardashian in like 2016, or in the current timeline, episode 100, like a Kardashian in 2016, and now it's just like a Kardashian in like 2022, where like all the plastic surgery is starting to look really bad.
Oh.
Like it's just kind of like this aesthetic pushed up to 11, but it's not even close to the aesthetic from episode 1 to 70. Like all of the niceness in the art is gone.
Yeah, again, so like I don't understand.
It doesn't look like Disney anymore.
No, I don't understand why people enjoy it unless they haven't sat down and like really thought about it. Not even really thought about it. Like I just blitzed through it and I'm like, I'm gonna be mean here, but I think it's garbage. You know, I'm gonna be mean and I'm just gonna say I think it's garbage. Same way I think, I don't know, like Lost, the TV show Lost is garbage because it was a mess and the writers thought they were so smart. Same way Heroes on NBC is garbage, right? So it's not like I'm totally trashing somebody's art and saying
it's exclusively just this one thing.
No, like there's a lot of stuff that I think is garbage. I think Marvel movies are garbage, right? But me thinking that they're garbage doesn't have any impact on their success whatsoever. And if you legitimately like it, it shouldn't have any impact on you liking it.
But I think you should definitely question that this is aimed at kids, though. I think that's indefensible.
Like again, it racks my brain. I think it's gonna definitely be like the Twilight in the next few years, though, where people are gonna be like, "Why was this ever good?" Especially if it comes out for adaptation, or if they make animated shorts that are voice acted. People are gonna be like,
I think it's gonna be really interesting to see how it all ends.
Yeah.
I think the ending is gonna be so bad. It's gonna be like the Renesmee moment in Twilight, where the whole fandom's just gonna turn as one and be like, "This sucks."
Yeah,
like you're already starting to see the fandom turn.
But I mean, Rachel's made her millions. She probably doesn't care. She probably knew at some point that it's like this is getting really bad. So I don't.
No,
really
you can
care
tell she's
about
already
it.
struggling at this point.
Yeah, she's really struggling. She doesn't care about it anymore. So it's like that's fine. You know, no shame in that. There's no shame in just kind of giving up and just taking the paycheck. That's what E.L. James did. That's what the Star Wars movies are like now. It's just what happens when things become commercialized.
And the art gets worse the more assistants she has.
The art gets worse the more assistants
she has. And the story gets worse the more assistants she has.
It's being pushed as a really popular, successful comic. It's like the flagship series for webtoon. But no wonder it didn't take off in Korea, man.
Yeah, we're gonna keep going. I think the most entertaining parts of this read are just kind of like coming up with alternate stories and how she could have tackled that. Yeah, I mean, I guess I can only see how much worse the objectification gets, because I think, like, lately, it's kind of weird, because lately there's, like, there's still objectification, because Persephone has her boobs out in almost every panel, but there's not as much exploitative framing, and there's not as much, like, DDLG stuff in the newer episodes.
Yeah, well, it's probably been outgrown by the production team, because it's, like, a crazy...
No, I think Rachel just doesn't care anymore.
Yeah.
She probably just doesn't... You know, she's just doing whatever she can to keep the story going.
Yeah.
It's not her passion project anymore.
I don't want to get too much into it, but it would be interesting to compare this to other flagship series like Let's Play and Unordinary.
Yeah, I think we should do Let's Play next, because Let's Play is another whole kettle of fish.